Chapter 1456. Shihua Laozu and Full Moon Laozu charged in one after another, causing 9 profound towers blockade to fall into a state of near collapse. Ancestor Guiyue and Ancestor Lin Yu had also rushed over. However, Ancestor Guiyue was carried over by Ancestor Lin Yu using a divine ability. Previously, because he had used the Earth Vein to weaken the energy supply of the 9 profound towers Spirit Vein to the Array Formation, Ancestor Guiyue had suffered a strong backlash from the 9 profound towers Array Formation Masters. At this moment he was already unconscious. Clearly, the 9 profound tower would not be able to participate in the final battle within the sect. Although Lin Yu Laozu had rushed over, he was not in a good state either. It seemed as though he had exhausted a great deal of his primary energy. He was in a worse state compared to Lu Ping, who had only just broken free from the water vein. After Shihua Laozu charged into 9 profound tower, the cultivators besieging 9 profound tower were on the verge of collapsing. However, despite the counterattacks from the sect's defensive array, both Yang Shouchang and Sanshin Laozu were seriously wounded. In the end, they were still incapable of completely repairing the passageway opened up by the space break array. After Shihua Laozu charged into the array, the passageway was reduced to a size of 1 qi and stabilized. 7 Laozu waved his hand and his 7 spiritual fans flew forward to set up a magic array in midair. Next, he utilized his magic skill to forcibly tear open the passageway. However, even though the sect's defensive array was clearly running out of power, 7 Laozu was in a hurry to re-establish the connection with the 4 pure young cultivators who had entered 9 profound tower. That was not something that could be done quickly. Seeing that, Full Moon Laozu brought out his life-bound spirit treasure and the two of them worked together to tear open the passageway, reducing it to a size of 2 qi. However, that was still not enough. Once all of them charged into 9 profound tower, there was a high chance that the array masters from 9 profound tower would be able to seal off their escape route. Lu Ping consumed several precious true essence recovery medicinal pellets one after another, and his true essence had already recovered about 60% to 70%. If it weren't for his quick reflexes to resist the heaven and earth's force, it wouldn't have been easy for him to recover in such a short time. Let this junior lend the 2 seniors a hand. The sword of the true spirit slashed down. The defensive array that was already on the verge of collapsing under 7 Laozu and Full Moon Laozu could no longer withstand the slash of the sword of the true spirit. After a series of ripping sounds, the sect protective array was torn open by Lu Ping. On the side, 3 Chen-old ancestors saw how Lu Ping easily tore through the sect protecting array formation. Although the 2 pure young martial emperors had distracted him, he still focused his attention on Mo Li, the true spirit sword. Lu Xiaoyu, what a sharp flying sword. If the old man is right, this flying sword seems to be extremely proficient in the art of breaking arrays. Lu Ping was shocked. Before the sword of the true spirit had gone through the thunder tribulation, its 9 treasured restrictions were actually refined by Lu Ping using the 9 array foundations left behind by Jiao Daoren. If Lu Ping used the sword of the true spirit with all his might, this natal spiritual treasure could be said to be a genuine flying sword that could break arrays. However, Lu Ping was afraid that others would see through the sword of the true spirit, so he had not revealed Mo Li's talent in breaking arrays. Unexpectedly, when he helped 7 Laozu and the others, he had only displayed a little of Mo Li's ability to break arrays, and Sanshin Laozu, an array formation grandmaster, had seen through it. Although Lu Ping was shocked, his expression was calm as he said, "I can't say that I'm proficient, but I do have some ability to break arrays. Otherwise, I would have volunteered to help you." Lu Ping did not know if he had dispelled Sanshin Laozu's suspicions about the sword of the true spirit, but at this time, the gap in the 9 mystical towers protective array was once again being torn apart by Lu Ping and the others. 7 Laozu was the first to charge in. At this time, the 9 mystical tower had joined forces to block the gap in the array, but because 4 pure young adepts had charged in, they were completely suppressed. When 7 Laozu charged in, he became the last straw that broke the camel's back. The 7 spiritual fans swept across, severely injuring the 2 9 mystical tower great adepts who were in charge of the array. At the same time, the 3 mid-dharma adepts beside them were also killed. The 9 mystical towers Tao soldier array was thrown into chaos, and the other 4 pure young adepts took the opportunity to attack. At this time, Full Moon Laozu had already joined in, and the 3 pure young adepts of the 9 mystical tower were finally overwhelmed, and the Tao soldier array completely collapsed. At this time, Xiao Baiyu suddenly shouted, "Be careful of Yang Shi, this person has not appeared, so he must be in seclusion in the spirit space. The 7-feathered fan is most likely in his hands." Before Lu Ping and the others schemed against the 9 mystical tower, he naturally had some understanding of the Nine Mystical Tower. Before the Nine Mystical Tower sealed itself, there were only 3 pure young adepts left in the sect. 8th Sister Zhu was seriously injured, and the other was also injured. At this time, when the group broke through the Nine Mystical Towers' protective array, there were still 3 Nine Mystical Towers pure young adepts. However, in addition to 8th Sister Zhu and the other pure young adepts who were previously injured, there was also an unfamiliar face. Yang Shi Laozu, who had been unscathed during Mara's attack on the Nine Mystical Tower, had not appeared. In this case there was only one possibility. Yang Shi Laozu must be in the spirit space receiving the Nine Mystical Towers' immortal inheritance. In this case, the Nine Mystical Towers' sect-guarding treasure, the 7-feathered fan, must be in his hands. Lu Ping flipped over and entered the protective array. With a backhand slap on the protective array shield behind him, he used the force to attack the Nine Mystical Towers' hinterland. Along with Lu Ping, Yang Shouchang was not to be outdone. Lin Yu Laozu was protecting Guyu, while Laozu and Sanshin Laozu were protecting everyone's escape route in the array. However, no one, including the 3 Qin ancestor, saw that when Lu Ping's palm landed on the Nine Mystical Pavilion's protective array formation, a void underworld essence had already entered the protective array formation. The 3 pure young adepts of the Nine Mystical Tower were still trying to block the attacks of Xiao Baiyu and the others. However, faced with the attacks of 7 pure young adepts and one who was not yet a pure young adept, the Nine Mystical Towers side could only retreat. The 8 of them joined forces to chase after the 3 pure young adepts of the Nine Mystical Tower. Although they had the upper hand, they did not split up to take advantage of the opportunity to plunder. Although the group's plan was ultimately to plunder, when faced with a behemoth like the Nine Mystical Tower, they had to first completely destroy it so that it would not have the strength to retaliate. Only then could they divide the loot with peace of mind. All of them were top-notch great masters, and naturally, they would not ruin the grand plan for a small profit. Hence, although the Nine Mystical Tower had been defeated, the group did not waver in the slightest. They continued to chase after the 3 pure young adepts of the Nine Mystical Tower. Although the 3 pure young adepts of the Nine Mystical Tower could still use the Dharma Soldier formation that the various mid and late Dharma adepts of the Nine Mystical Tower had barely managed to hold on for a while, amidst the continuous cries of pain, many of the Dharma adepts of the Nine Mystical Tower were falling one after another. The Dharma Soldier formation was also in imminent danger. 8th Sister Zhu screamed, "They are trying to destroy the Nine Mystical Tower. All disciples must remember this hatred. Nine Mystical Tower, listen up, disperse." 8th Sister Zhu could already see clearly that the 8 great masters in front of her were trying their best to kill as many high-level adepts of the Nine Mystical Tower as possible. If they continued to fight like this, the mid and late Dharma adepts of the Nine Mystical Tower would all be killed by them. If that happened, the Nine Mystical Tower would really be destroyed. At this moment, 8th Sister Zhu suddenly ordered the mid and late Dharma adepts of the Nine Mystical Tower to disperse. It seemed as if they had given up resisting. The 3 pure young adepts were facing a siege of 8 adepts of the same level, but they could still preserve the vitality of the Nine Mystical Tower. The great masters of the pure young level in front of them could only kill them. It was impossible for them to destroy the Nine Mystical Tower. At least there was still a chance for them to rise again in the future. Chapter 1457. Without the help of the many Dharma adepts of the Nine Shen Tower, 8th Sister Zhu and the other 2 pure young adepts were no match for Xiao Baiyu and the rest. Under the repeated attacks of the crowd, they were soon riddled with injuries. It was only because everyone had their own reservations that they did not kill them. At this moment, a long howl rang out, followed by a thunderous roar. "Who dares to cause trouble in the Nine Shen Tower?" Everyone was shocked at first, but then, as if they had discovered something, they all heaved a sigh of relief. This thunderous roar was accompanied by a powerful aura that seemed to cover the sky and cover the earth. Although it seemed powerful, everyone could clearly sense the cultivation level of the person who had come. He was definitely a pure young adept. Even if his level of cultivation was already at the top of the pure young level, as long as he had not become a pure young adept, no one would be afraid of him. The only thing that the Nine Shen Tower feared about the pure young adept Yanglan Laozu was the heaven-opening divine weapon, the 7-feather fan, which he controlled. There was a ripple in the air, and a towering 9-story tower appeared and floated above the Nine Shen Tower. The tower was 100 feet tall and one could reach for the stars. Even in the Nine Shen Tower, not many people knew that there was such a tower floating above the sect. This must be the true foundation of the Nine Shen Tower. Xiao Baiyu looked at the plaque hanging above the entrance of the tower. On it were the words Nine Shen Tower. He said, "It seems that this 9 Shen Tower is also a lesser Kiliacosm." Lu Ping was puzzled and asked, "Then what should we do? Should we enter or not?" Xiao Baiyu smiled and said, "There is no need to enter. He will come out on his own." Seeing the puzzled look on Lu Ping's face, Qifan Laozu explained, "A spirit dimension cannot withstand the might of a heaven-splitting divine weapon. If Yang Lan does not want to be trapped in a spirit dimension by us, he can only come out and fight to the death with us. It can be said that the moment we broke through the 9 Profound Towers sect protecting formation, the 9 Profound Tower had already lost this battle. In the cultivation world, not everyone can catch up to the time when the true spirit inheritance of the Holy Land is temporarily cut off. It is also not easy to gather 11 pure Yang level cultivators." The portal of the mini Kiliacosm floating above the sect opened wide. A green-faced old man, who looked to be in his 50s, walked out of the portal with a feather fan made of 7 different colored feathers. In a trance, he appeared in front of everyone and stood with 8 Sister Zhu and the other 2 pure Yang disciples of the 9 Profound Tower. Facing Xiao Baiyu and the other 8 pure Yang level cultivators, Yang Lan Laozu was not afraid at all. He looked directly at Xiao Baiyu and said, "Fellow Xiao wants to destroy my 9 Profound Tower? I don't dare and I can't. I don't want to perish together with you," Xiao Baiyu said seriously. Yang Lan Laozu opened his eyes and shouted, "If you can't destroy my 9 Profound Tower, aren't you afraid of my revenge in the future?" 7 Fans Laozu took a step forward and said coldly, "Fellow Yang Lan, don't tell lies in front of famous people. Although we can't destroy the 9 Profound Tower, we can make it unable to recover from this setback. We came here with a request. If fellow Yang Lan can satisfy our request, we will naturally retreat." Yang Lan said sternly, "7 Fans, how dare you? This time you have offended the dignity of the Holy Land. If you retreat now, the old man will naturally let bygones be bygones. But if you push your luck, do you really think that the old man has no means to deal with you?" Yuan Pokong opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. After breaking the 9 Profound Towers' protective formation, Yuan Pokong's internal organs had been shaken and he had suffered some injuries. Hearing Yang Lan's words, he laughed and said, "Old man, if you really have the means to deal with us, why do you need to wait until now? It's just activating the 9 Profound Towers' forbidden formation. Now that we are prepared, we naturally won't perish together with you." Yang Lan Laozu raised the heaven-splitting divine weapon in his hand and said coldly, "Humph, the old man at least has the 7-feather fan in his hand. Do you really think that you can defeat the old man? Moreover, even if the old man activates the forbidden formation, even if he can't go up to you, you can forget about getting anything you want from the 9 Profound Tower." Yang Shouchang looked Yang Lan Laozu up and down, his mouth making clicking sounds, but his mouth was not clean. He said, "Old thing, why don't you activate the forbidden formation? Why don't you do it? Are you afraid of death? If you're afraid of death, why are you boasting? I, old Yang, am sure that you won't dare to activate it." Yang Lan snorted coldly, ignoring Yang Shouchang's clamor. Instead he said to Xiao Baiyu, "You and the others took advantage of the perilous situation to plot against my 9 Profound Tower, and even involved the demon race cultivators in it. You will definitely be despised by the human race cultivators. My 9 Profound Tower may be weak now, but we are still a Holy Land sect. Aren't you afraid of arousing the fear of the other Holy Lands and making a move against your respective sects?" Yuan Pokong scolded, "So what if I am a demon race cultivator? Yang Lan, old man, to think that you are a pure Yang Holy Land, a grandmaster of a sect, yet your words are as narrow as a marketplace cultivator." Full Moon Laozu said calmly, "Since we dared to plot against the 9 Profound Tower, we are naturally prepared to disappear. As long as the other 5 Holy Lands do not know our whereabouts, which sect would dare to casually make a move against our sects? At most, we can just continue to attack them. Over the years, haven't we, the sects with pure Yang Holy Land, been like this?" After Full Moon Laozu finished speaking, everyone fell into an unusual silence. However, Lu Ping and the others were slowly moving to their respective positions, slowly surrounding Yang Lan Laozu and the others. At this time, among the 4 pure Yang Holy Land of the 9 Profound Tower, apart from Yang Lan Laozu, who was unscathed, and 8 Sister Zhu's injuries were relatively light, the other 2 pure Yang Holy Land had been seriously injured by Xiao Baiyu and the others. They almost had no strength to fight again. However, at this time, the only thing that everyone was worried about was Yang Lan Laozu's means of mutual destruction. Yang Lan Laozu was the true sole candidate of the 9 Profound Tower of this generation. Previously, he had been in seclusion in the small thousand world of the 9 Profound Tower, trying to become a true soul. The small thousand world and the seven feather fan were under his control, so the 9 profound towers forbidden isolation formation was definitely under his control. After a long time, young Lan Laozu finally opened his mouth and said with a gloomy face, "What do you want?" "It's very simple. The small thousand world, the secret of the 9 profound towers' true soul inheritance." Yang Lan Laozu flew into a rage and said, "Wishful thinking. Even if the old man opens the forbidden isolation formation and the entire 9 profound towers' inheritance is ruined, it will not benefit you." However, just as Yang Lan Laozu's voice fell, an earth-shattering sound like a thunderclap suddenly came from outside the 9 profound towers sect protection formation behind Xiao Baiyu and the others. 7 Fan Laozu's expression immediately changed and he said sternly, "Not good, the 9 profound tower has reinforcements. Fellow Taoist 3 Chen and the others are in danger." Everyone including Lu Ping panicked. A thought suddenly rose in their hearts, "Not good, the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. We've fallen into a trap." At this time Xiao Baiyu suddenly said sternly, "Don't panic. If you want to keep us here unless a true soul cultivator personally makes a move, since fellow Taoist Yang Lan won't give it to us, we can only take it by force. Now we have no way out. Otherwise, all our years of planning will be in vain, and the sects you belong to will suffer tragic revenge." Chapter 1458. Because Sanchen Laozu and Guyu Laozu were in their hands, Linyu Laozu stayed behind to take care of the two, so the 3 of them did not participate in the battle. However, when the 3 of them were suddenly attacked outside the sect protecting formation, Xiao Baiyu and the rest, who were confronting the pure young cultivators of the 9 profound tower, turned pale with fright. They thought that the 9 profound tower had called for reinforcements. Seeing that everyone's decades of planning was about to go down the drain, and that the sect they belonged to was going to suffer a tragic revenge, Xiao Baiyu's stern shout immediately made everyone go all out. They might as well not think about the forbidden formation or the 9 profound towers' inheritance, and kill the pure young cultivators of the 9 profound tower in front of them first. Although Lu Ping had doubts in his heart, he saw that after Xiao Baiyu's stern shout, Qi Fan, Feng Lu and Full Moon Laozu took the lead to attack Yang Lan Laozu. His heart stirred and he launched a whirling chain kill, the sword of true spirit heading straight for Yang Lan Laozu. The sudden change outside the sect caused Yang Lan Laozu to be stunned for a moment, but he was immediately overjoyed. Although he did not know who was attacking outside the sect, there was no doubt that it was beneficial to the 9 profound tower at this time. However, he did not expect that Xiao Baiyu and the rest would be so desperate that they would attack him regardless of anything. This caused Yang Lan Laozu to be even more shocked and furious. "You guys are courting death." The 7-feather fan in Yang Lan Laozu's hand pulsed with spiritual light. Lu Ping looked carefully and saw that only 2 of the 7 feathers on the fan had undergone a strange change. The other 5 feathers did not change much. Even so, Lu Ping's heart tightened. The moment Yang Lan Laozu was about to attack, he already had one of Luan Daoist's life feathers in his hand. The wind surged and the auspicious clouds rolled on top of Ancestor Yang Lan's head. A colorful phoenix soared in the clouds, and then a feather fan rose in mid-air. The colorful phoenix slammed into the feather fan. Originally, there were only 2 feathers on the left side of the feather fan. Suddenly, 1 more feather was added. The 7-feather fan suddenly began to expand. In mid-air, half of it was dazzling and the other half was dim. Although the process of Ancestor Yang Lan using the 7-feather fan seemed complicated, in fact, the speed was extremely fast. The 7-feather fan, which had been stimulated by half of its power, had already fallen to the crowd. In front of Xiao Baiyu and the others, there was only a huge feather fan falling from the sky. The spiritual light did not wait for the feather fan to fall, and it had already covered the sky and covered the earth. At this time Yang Lan Laozu suddenly yelled, and his voice was full of disbelief and anger. The heaven-covering feather fan that was about to fall on top of everyone's head suddenly collapsed in mid-air, but the power of the spiritual light still rushed toward everyone, and it did not weaken in the slightest. Xiao Baiyu shouted, and the heaven-splitting sword in his hand pointed in the air. A dark crack suddenly appeared in the void, and the spiritual light was suddenly swallowed by the space crack. However, although Xiao Baiyu's heaven-splitting sword qi was wonderful, it was obviously unable to resist such a vast power of heaven and earth. The heaven-splitting sword qi was quickly wiped out by the haze. After Xiao Baiyu, 7-fan Laozu, Feng Lu and Full Moon Laozu also attacked almost at the same time. Among them, 7-fan Laozu was the strongest. His 7-feather fan spiritual treasure was originally an imitation of the 7-feather fan. If he faced the seven-feather fan at ordinary times, he would be the most restrained one. However, at this time Yanglan Laozu did not know what trouble he had encountered. The seven-feather fan was obviously out of control, and seven-fan Laozu became the most successful one in resisting the haze. Each of the seven fans waved a fan in the air, and for a moment, all kinds of magical abilities such as ice, fire, wind, fog, dust, and so on were unleashed at the same time, forcibly clearing a path through the haze that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Feng Lu Laozu's spirit beast bag shook, and a strange monster was slapped on the head by his palm. Then the monster suddenly opened its mouth and began to swallow the haze. The monster's stomach swelled like a balloon until it became round and even somewhat transparent. Seeing that it was about to explode, Feng Lu suddenly grabbed the monster and threw it hundreds of feet away. Pa! The sound of something shattering rang out. It was clear that the demon beast's body had already exploded. Immediately after, the miserable cries of the 9 profound towers cultivators rang out. Full Moon Laozu's method was ordinary. A moonlight mirror rose above his head, and the light was like moonlight. Although the surging haze continued to wear down the moonlight, it could not break through the protection of the moonlight mirror. Yanglan Laozu's heaven-opening artifact was not fully activated. Although its power was still tyrannical, under the joint attack of the 7 top pure yang cultivators, most of its power had been blocked. Although the remaining haze still had good power, it could not do anything to the remaining 4 people, Yuan Pokong, Yang Shouchang, Shihua Laozu, and Lu Ping. Lu Ping flipped his wrist and retracted his natal plume feather. The true spirit sword turned into the Sea of 100 Rivers sword art. 9 sword light vortexes appeared around Lu Ping's body, and the remaining haze was swallowed by the sword light when it rushed in front of him. Yuan Pokong and the others also used their own means to protect themselves. When the haze dissipated, Lu Ping and the others looked at the scene in front of them in surprise. 8th Sister Zhu's 7 flying forks were inserted into Yanglan Laozu's body. Martial Nephew Zhu, what are you doing? Junior Sister Zhu, what's going on? The 2 pure yang cultivators of the 9 profound tower, who had been severely injured before, originally thought that things would turn for the better. Who would have thought that trouble would come from behind? 8th Sister Zhu suddenly launched a sneak attack on Patriarch Yanglan. Yanglan Laozu turned around with the 7-feather fan in his hand, and 8th Sister Zhu was immediately sent flying. At this moment, Xiao Baiyu suddenly attacked Yanglan Laozu from behind with his sword. The remaining 2 pure yang cultivators of the 9 profound tower who were seriously injured were obviously stunned by the scene in front of them. The moment Xiao Baiyu attacked, Laozu and the others also attacked the 2 pure yang cultivators without any explanation. These 2 pure yang cultivators had already been seriously injured by Lu Ping and the others in the previous battle. At this time, because 8th Sister Zhu suddenly attacked Yanglan Laozu, they lost their minds, and their life and death were already at stake. The 7 flying forks on Yanglan Laozu's back sprayed a mouthful of blood on the 7-feather fan in his hand. Then, regardless of Xiao Baiyu's heaven-splitting sword chi approaching him, he brushed the 7-feather fan in front of him. The void that was originally shaking because of the continuous confrontation of magical powers was immediately erased. Yanglan Laozu plunged into the void without thinking. In the distance, 8th Sister Zhu, who was severely injured by Yanglan Laozu, could not care about her severely injured body. She barely supported her upper body and said, "Don't let him return to the 9 profound tower. Otherwise all our previous efforts will be in vain." Yang Shouchang hugged the void with both palms, and a ball of 5-element spiritual light was suddenly born. Then he suddenly pushed it toward the void. The void in front of him all the way to the front of the 9 profound tower was in a strange turbulence. Yanglan Laozu was once again unable to control the use of his space magical power. However, he was a top pure yang cultivator after all, and he had the 7-feather fan in his hand. Although his space magical power was broken by Yang Shouchang's strange means, Yanglan Laozu himself did not suffer the slightest injury. He just staggered out of the void. However, this was enough. Although the 9 profound tower, which was suspended above the sect, was close at hand, Yuan Pokong broke the sky with his rod and appeared in front of Yanglan Laozu again. With a sweep of the spiritual treasure in his hand, Yanglan Laozu had no choice but to retreat and was blocked outside the 9 profound tower. After being severely injured by 8th Sister Zhu and forced to use the 7-feather fan, Yanglan Laozu had already reached the point of exhaustion. After being forced to retreat by Yuan Pokong, Yanglan Laozu could no longer avoid the heaven-splitting sword chi that followed closely behind Xiao Baiyu. In desperation, he could only use the 7-feather fan in his hand to block it. Xiao Baiyu's control of his swordsmanship was marvelous. At the critical moment he pinched out a sword technique. The heaven-splitting sword chi that seemed to devour the world flashed lightly in mid-air. Yang Lan Laozu cried out in alarm. The hand that was holding the seven-feather fan had been cut off. Then 2 screams rang out in succession. The remaining 2 pure young martial artists of the 9 mystical mansion were also shattered by Lu Ping and Seven Fan's old ancestor. However, the 2 were pure young cultivators after all. Their vitality was strong enough. At the moment of death they suddenly shouted, "Senior brother Yang Lan, quickly activate the forbidden array." Suddenly, a strange wave of spiritual energy rippled out from the 2 dying pure young cultivators. Lu Ping's face changed and he said, "Not good, they're going to self-destruct." "No, that's not right. The hardcore space has been destroyed. They're going to sacrifice themselves?" At this moment, 8th Sister Zhu, who was in the distance, could not care less about her serious injuries. She forcefully shouted, "Quick, seize the small thousand world and leave. The forbidden array is about to be activated." Chapter 1459. The 2 pure young masters of the 9 mystical tower had sacrificed themselves to help Yang Lan Laozu activate the 9 mystical towers' forbidden formation. 8th Sister Zhu hurriedly shouted for Xiao Baiyu to put away the mini Kiliacosm first. The secret of the 9 mystical towers' immortal inheritance is in the mini Kiliacosm. Yang Lan Laozu, who had lost the 7-feather fan because his palm had been chopped off, already knew that the 9 mystical towers' destruction was imminent. He did not even try to snatch the 7-feather fan under his feet. Instead he took a few steps back and drew a strange hand seal in front of him. It instantly resonated with the strange spiritual energy fluctuations emitted by the 2 pure young masters of the 9 mystical tower before they died. The entire 9 mystical towers dojo suddenly shook. Lu Ping could clearly see that the 9 mystical towers' protective formation was collapsing. To be more precise, it was not collapsing but retracting. This way, more of the 9 mystical towers sect would be exposed outside the protective formation, while the core of the dojo would become more stable due to the retraction of the protective formation. At the same time, the gap that had previously been pierced through would also shrink rapidly due to the retraction of the formation. Once the forbidden formation was completely activated, the entire 9 mystical towers dojo would be sucked into the spatial crack. The 9 mystical tower had even abandoned part of its base for this. Yang Lan Laozu had already been protected by the dojo's follow-up measures because of the activation of the forbidden formation. For a moment, no one could threaten him at all. However, when the forbidden formation was activated, what everyone lacked the most was time. Otherwise, once they were trapped in the forbidden formation, even if Xiao Baiyu and the others slaughtered everyone in the 9 mystical tower, they would not be able to break the final measure that had been constantly perfected by the 9 mystical towers' immortal Laozu. The instant 8th Sister Zhu reminded Xiao Baiyu, he had already flown towards the 9 profound towers' lesser thousand world floating in mid-air. Yuan Pokong, Yang Shouchang, Full Moon, and the rest flew towards the 9 profound towers' lesser thousand world one after another. The 7-fan Laozu was suppressing the 7-feather fan with all his might, and Lu Ping could only stand guard by the side. Then he saw 8th Sister Zhu stumbling over. Lu Ping's heart tightened. He did not let down his guard against 8th Sister Zhu. The tip of the sword of true spirit was still pointed at her. Clearly he was very wary of this pure young Laozu of the 9 profound tower who had suddenly betrayed him. 8th Sister Zhu felt Lu Ping's hostility. She smiled and did not say anything. Instead, she sat cross-legged on the ground and took out a few jade bottles from her storage artifact. She swallowed all the treasured elixirs in them and began to heal. Obviously, 8th Sister Zhu had suffered from Yang Lan Laozu's counterattack with the 7-feather fan. However, Lu Ping saw a trace of misery and hesitation on the face of 8th Sister Zhu, who was sitting by the side and began to heal as if no one else was around. Lu Ping secretly speculated that it was not easy for 8th Sister Zhu to make a sudden decision to betray him. The 7-feather fan Laozu obviously did not put all his attention on suppressing the 7-feather fan. Seeing that Lu Ping was so cautious, he smiled and said, "Lu Xiaoyu does not have to be so nervous. Fellow Zhu is fellow Zhao's Dao companion. I did not inform you before because this matter is of great importance. It concerns fellow Zhu's life and death. I hope Lu Xiaoyu will not blame me." Lu Ping nodded. There was no expression on his face. He just kept the sword of true spirit. However, he was still on guard in his heart. As for who he was on guard against, even Lu Ping himself was not sure. At this moment, the 9 profound towers' spirit space suspended above the dojo suddenly trembled violently. The clear spatial oscillation almost swept through the entire 9 profound towers' encampment. If Yanglan Laozu had not activated the forbidden formation against the 9 Profound Towers dojo, this wave of spatial oscillation would have caused the 9 Profound Tower to suffer heavy losses. When the 9 Profound Tower returns to the cultivation world, the 9 Profound Tower will definitely pay with blood. In the formation of the forbidden formation, the angry curse of ancestor Yanglan could not stop Xiao Baiyu and several other pure Yang masters from working together to break through the forbidden formation that had not yet been fully formed from the sky of the Taoist rite. With the help of the flaw of the sect protection formation that had been broken before, they moved out of the Taoist rite. Lu Ping and the others also rushed out of the 9 Profound Towers dojo. When Lu Ping retreated from the edge of the spirit space, he also used the force from above to catch up with the pure Yang cultivators in front of him. He saw Linyu Laozu riding a crooked escape light towards them. Lu Ping hurriedly used his own escape light to catch up. Linyu Laozu was already on the verge of death. His life force was intermittent and his body was covered with dozens of wounds. Lu Ping looked at the wounds on Linyu Laozu's body and frowned. It's a lightning technique. There was no need for Lu Ping to say more. All the pure Yang cultivators present were experienced and knowledgeable. Shihua Laozu said directly, "This is the Yuan family's method." Everyone was stunned. The reputation of the #1 family in the cultivation world was really terrifying. Did their appearance come from the 9 Profound Towers' request for help, or was it premeditated by the Yuan family? Lu Ping fed a healing spirit pill with the Wonder Dew as the main ingredient into Linyu Laozu's mouth, hanging on to his life force. Everyone had already rushed out of the 9 Profound Towers encampment and arrived at the entrance of the sect protecting formation. There was still the aftermath of the battle here. The space was still shaking and the scattered spirit chi could almost force core forging cultivators to retreat. However, to everyone present, it was like a light breeze. There was nothing left in the sky, but everyone could still discover many things from the aftermath of the battle. Qifan Laozu took a deep breath and said, "There is indeed a lightning technique being used here. I'm afraid only the pure Yang adepts of the Yuan family could have such power." At this time, because of Lu Ping's healing spirit pill, Linyu Laozu slowly regained consciousness. Seeing everyone, he smiled bitterly and said, "Someone attacked us from the back. It was the Yuan family. The leader was Yuan Tongtian. There were also 2 pure Yang adepts and a few late Dharma adepts. Fellow Sanshin and Guiyue have already." However, the Yuan family obviously did not expect that there would be so many of us and that we would succeed so quickly. In the end, seeing that they were unable to stop us, they killed the heavily injured Sanshin and Guiyue before retreating. The old man was lucky enough to escape. Full Moon Laozu frowned and said, "So you're saying that the Yuan family was not recruited by the 9 Shen Tower?" Full Moon Laozu had actually only said half of what he wanted to say. The rest of the sentence had already been thought of by all the adepts present. If it was not recruited by the 9 Shen Tower, then who was it? The reason why Full Moon Laozu did not say this half of the sentence was because once he said it, he was afraid that it would cause everyone to be suspicious of each other. The pure Yang alliance that they had painstakingly formed might immediately fall apart. At this time, the pure Yang alliance still had to be maintained. At least, before the secret of the spirit space treasure that everyone had forcefully pushed out of the 9 Shen Towers dojo was divided among them, this alliance still had to be maintained. Lu Ping looked on coldly from the sidelines. He knew that after everything in the spirit space was shared, it would be difficult for everyone to work together like before. The sudden appearance of the Yuan family was like a thorn in their side, making it difficult for them to trust each other in the future. As for whether there was a need to maintain the pure Yang alliance, Xiao Baiyu, who had obtained the spirit space, was about to become a true spirit. Coupled with the 9 Shen Towers secret technique that allowed the true spirit to be passed down continuously, there was also the help of 8 Sister Zhu, who was also a pure Yang cultivator and had control over many inheritances of the 9 Shen Tower. After the 9 Shen Tower fell, Skyrend would immediately become a new holy land, so what was the use of the pure Yang alliance? As for the 7 fans, Laozu had obtained the heaven-opening artifact, the 7-feather fan. His cultivation method and the 7 fans that he used were closely related to the 7-feather fan. With the help of the heaven-opening artifact, it was not impossible for him to comprehend some secret technique and divine ability from it to step into the true spirit realm in one fell swoop. If he could obtain the secret of the spirit space treasure in front of him, then the heavenly profound sect would also have the conditions to become a holy land. The 2 most important initiators of the pure Yang alliance were already close to success. Naturally, they had to withdraw from this loose alliance that was originally formed to fight against the Holy Land and maintain the inheritance of their respective sections. The other cultivators would also know the secret of the 9 Shen Towers' true spirit inheritance never being broken. If they could obtain the secret of the spirit space treasure in the form of the spirit space treasure, they would also grasp the method to become a holy land. However, compared to the deep foundation of Skyrend and the heavenly profound sect, there was still a huge gap. Chapter 1460. Lu Ping knew that the arrival of the Yuan clan was not necessarily the work of the remaining 9, but since the seeds of discord had already been planted, it would not be easy to resolve it. The 9 Profound Towers pocket dimension was forcefully pushed out of the 9 Profound Towers dojo. Everyone knew that they could not stay here for long. Their previous sneak attack on the 9 Profound Tower had caused a huge commotion, and the nearby sects must have already found out about it. Coupled with the Yuan clan's random ambush in the Central Plains, it would not take long for the entire cultivation world to know that the 9 Profound Tower had suffered a crushing defeat. The 9 Profound Towers' title as a sacred land would no longer be theirs, and they had even activated a forbidden formation to completely isolate the dojo from the outside world. If the other 5 Holy Land sects were to find out about this, their first thought would be to join forces and kill all of them to prevent the secret of the Holy Land's inheritance from being leaked, and to prevent similar things from happening to the other 5 Holy Land sects. Therefore, Xiao Baiyu and the rest needed to quickly divide up the spoils and leave. They could not even return to their sections. They had to bide their time and wait for the right time to come out. At that time, even the remaining 5 sacred lands would not be able to do anything to them. The previous incident had been brief, and although everyone had forcefully taken away the pocket dimension that was the carrier of the 9 Profound Tower, it had not been refined by Xiao Baiyu. After that, there had been estrangement among them, so Xiao Baiyu naturally would not refine the spirit space to avoid misunderstanding. As for the mystery of the formation of a minor kiliacosm, everyone had their own conjectures after seeing the soul treasure that looked like a 9-story building. The so-called minor kiliacosm could only be carried by a heavenly abode treasure. The heavenly abode treasure restriction that was passed down in the cultivation world could only allow a heavenly abode treasure to form the 8th restriction. As for the core that formed the 9th rune, it had always been controlled by the 6 Holy Lands. Therefore, only the 6 Holy Lands had their own minor kiliacosm. However, it was not as simple as possessing the 9th barrier to form a pocket dimension. It was extremely difficult to form a Grotto Heaven magic treasure to begin with. There were only a handful of Grotto Heaven magic treasures in the entire cultivation world that could form 8 barriers. Moreover, they had to go through hundreds or even thousands of years of accumulation to reach such a level. Not to mention whether or not these few Grotto Heaven magic treasures had the potential to form the 9th restriction. Even if they barely reached the level of a top-notch spirit cultivation Grotto Heaven, who would dare to use them to summon the Thunder Tribulation? The formation of a small thousand world was like the formation of a true spirit cultivator. It was not easy for this world to form. If one wanted to form a small thousand world, they needed at least one true spirit cultivator to personally protect the cave treasure and summon the tribulation lightning. However, in this way, even if the minor thousand world was formed, this true spirit cultivator would not be able to hide in the minor thousand world in time. He would be rejected by this world and would have no choice but to leave the northern ice plains. In other words, if he wanted to create a small world, he would need at least one true spirit cultivator to leave his seat, and he might not even succeed. After knowing this, the pure young cultivators present did not look too good, especially the pure young cultivators who had sects backing them. They originally wanted to rely on the power of their sects to refine a minor thousand world, then use the secret of the 9 mystical towers' true spirit inheritance to advance and become the supreme ruler of this world. However, they did not expect that they would not be able to become a ruler and would have to pay the price of leaving their seat. Everyone looked at each other. How could they be reconciled? At the same time, they were also puzzled. Xiao Baiyu was determined to take away the spirit space from the beginning. Could it be that his mistress, 8th Sister Zhu, had already informed him about it? After all, 8th Sister Zhu was one of the actual controllers of Jiushuan Tower. It was normal for her to know such a secret when she intended to leave Jiushuan Tower. Thinking of this, even 7 fans Laozu and the others looked at Xiao Baiyu and 8th Sister Zhu with a layer of suspicion. However, this was obviously not the time to fall out. Everyone had suffered injuries in this battle. Xiao Baiyu had obviously thought of what everyone was thinking and said with a bitter smile, "I really don't know about this. Please believe me." No one said anything. In the end, it was Lu Ping who suddenly smiled and said, "Senior, we still need to find the secret of the 9 mystical towers' true spirit inheritance. I wonder if Senior Zhu knows where it is hidden in this minor thousand world so that we don't have to search everywhere." Eighth Sister Zhu had been hit by Yang Lan Laozu's angry counterattack with the seven-feather fan. At this time, her injuries were not weaker than Lin Yu Laozu's, but she was also aware of her situation at this time. Although she had turned the tables and joined the crowd as Xiao Baiyu's Taoist companion, everyone was still somewhat suspicious of her. Hearing Lu Ping's question, Eighth Sister Zhu smiled slightly and said, "Even in the Nine Mystical Tower, other than True Spirit Laozu, no one else can enter the Minor Thousand World easily. Although I was previously a pure yang of the Nine Mystical Tower, I did not enter the eyes of the previous True Spirit Laozu. The number of times I have entered this Minor Thousand World is also very few. I only know that the center of this Minor Thousand World is where the foundation of this Minor Thousand World is. If you want to refine and take this Minor Thousand World for your own use, the boundary stone to control this Minor Thousand World is also there." Under Eighth Sister Zhu's lead, everyone hurried to the center of the Minor Thousand World. However, this Minor Thousand World was worthy of being the most important place in the Nine Mystical Tower. In this Minor Thousand World there were spirit herb gardens everywhere. Large tracts of 1,000-year-old spirit herbs could be seen everywhere, and even 3,000-year-old spirit herbs could be found everywhere. Lu Ping even saw many rare treasures that were more than 3,000 years old. In his divine sense, he even noticed many places where the spiritual qi was turbulent. As one of the few alchemy grandmasters in the cultivation world, Lu Ping was able to detect the spirit herbs and the quality of the spirit plants there just by relying on the spiritual qi turbulence. All of the places where the spiritual qi was turbulent were natural treasures that were up to 5,000 years old. Some of them could even strengthen the fleshly body, with effects no weaker than the pure jade fruit. There were also natural treasures that were specifically used to concoct pure yang-grade medicinal pills. There were also a few plants that were close to the level of spiritual demons that were awakening. The entire Minor Thousand World was a huge treasure trove. Lu Ping even regretted not bringing the amethyst bee swarm with him. With everything in this Minor Thousand World, Lu Ping estimated that he could collect at least 1,000 drops of amethyst royal jelly. The amethyst queen bee's cultivation base would most likely improve, and the size of the amethyst queen bee swarm would also greatly increase. In Lu Ping's view, the value of the spirit herb garden in this Minor Thousand World was already unknown. Even the most important spirit herb grotto heaven of the Nine Mysteries Tower, the Longevity Grotto Heaven, could not be compared to it. Lu Ping knew the value of the spirit herbs in this Minor Thousand World. How could the other sects Laozu not know? They might not be able to observe the spirit herbs as carefully as Lu Ping, but they knew the value of the spirit herbs. "Divided, these spirit herbs must be divided," Feng Lu suddenly said. Looking at the endless spirit herb garden, Sage Xueshou's eyes flashed with a fiery blood-red color. Qi Fan Laozu sighed and said, "Divide it. This spirit herb garden is invaluable, and it will be of great benefit to our cultivation." Full Moon Laozu hesitated for a moment, but finally nodded. Seeing that someone had taken the lead, the other pure yang cultivators naturally agreed. Eighth Sister Zhu's eyes flickered, but she did not say anything in the end. Xiao Baiyu laughed loudly and said, "Of course it must be divided. I have said before that as long as it is a Minor Thousand World, everything else must be divided." Chapter 1461. In the center of the minor Kiliacosm was a gigantic palace. This was the core of this minor Kiliacosm, the Nine Mystical Palace. This Nine Mystical Palace was built by the founder of the Nine Mystical Tower, Laozu. Every generation of true spirit Laozu of the Nine Mystical Tower would come here to recuperate. Under most circumstances they couldn't leave the minor Kiliacosm, so they could only spend their time in this minor Kiliacosm and compile ancient records. At the same time, because true spirit Laozu is guarding this place, it's actually the safest place in the Nine Mystical Tower. Hence, the Nine Mystical Tower has drawn many cultivation resources into this minor Kiliacosm. In any case, these things couldn't be hidden. Because true spirit Laozu was guarding this minor Kiliacosm, the Nine Mystical Tower didn't do much to hide the large amount of cultivation resources. In front of these pure yang cultivators, there wasn't the slightest bit of concealment. Hence, they might as well pretend to be generous and tell everyone about it in advance. The vast Nine Mystical Palace was instantly swept clean by the divine sense of the numerous pure yang sovereigns. The number of inheritances, rare treasures, miraculous pills, and miraculous treasures were all accounted for in an instant. After all, the more precious an item was, the lesser the quantity. Even for the inheritances of the Nine Mystical Palace since the creation of the Nine Mystical Palace, there weren't many that could catch the attention of the true spirit ancestor. In the central hall of the Nine Mystical Palace, a 5 chi tall stone tablet was suspended in the air. It was surrounded by dazzling lights and was densely engraved with words. But when everyone wanted to take a closer look, they suddenly discovered that they couldn't see any of the words clearly. Under the stone tablet there was a praying mat. Obviously, there was someone who had comprehended the secret of the stone tablet here before. It should be Yang Lan Laozu. Divine Sound Stone? Old Ancestor 7 Fans asked curiously when he saw the stone tablet. Not only 7 Fans Laozu, but even Lu Ping was secretly shocked when he saw this stone tablet. 8 Sister Zhu nodded. That's right, this is the Divine Sound Stone. This stone tablet is the core of this minor kiliacosm. If you refine this stone tablet, you will be able to control this minor kiliacosm. At the same time, you will also be able to obtain the secret of the true spirit inheritance. Even people like Lu Ping and Xiao Baiyu, who were confident in becoming a true spirit on their own, could not help but feel excited when they saw this inheritance. This was because the secret of the Holy Land's true spirit inheritance was actually a shortcut and trick to becoming a true spirit. It could even allow a pure young cultivator who had no hope of becoming a true spirit to become a true spirit. This was the true value of the Holy Land's true spirit inheritance. Shihua and Laozu were filled with. This was because there was that they could break through to the Ciliocosm. Yang Saint Realm Saints Iacosm and Yang Saint Stage and Saint Sect, and Yang Sect and Spirit of Spirit in. Could it be that only by refining the stone tablet can one obtain the secret method of breaking through to the true spirit realm from the Divine Sound Stone? Full Moon Laozu's question instantly pulled everyone back to reality from their beautiful dreams. Everyone immediately looked at 8 Sister Zhu in an unfriendly manner. 8 Sister Zhu smiled bitterly and said, I really don't know about this. However, it's true that one can obtain the secret method of inheritance after refining the stone tablet. Everyone naturally did not dare to be careless. Each of them used their own techniques to try to decipher the inheritance on the stone tablet. Xiao Baiyu also tactfully did not refine the stone tablet. Instead, he allowed the pure young saints to use their techniques. However, no matter what techniques they used, they could not see any clear words on the stone tablet. The pure young saints from the various sects' faces grew increasingly ugly. At that moment, Xiao Baiyu had no choice but to stand up and say, Everyone, if it really doesn't work, let me refine the stone tablet and tell you the inheritance on it. How about that? All the pure young saints were silent. Only 8 Sister Zhu's eyes flashed with an undetectable glint. 7 Fans Laozu suddenly said, That's not right. In order to ensure that the true spirit inheritance doesn't end, the Sacred Grounds inheritances will usually choose pure young cultivators as true spirit candidates before the true spirit Laozu leaves this world. Then they will leave this world only after the next pure young cultivator becomes a true spirit. Before the next pure young cultivator becomes a true spirit, the small kiliacosm should still be controlled by the previous true spirit. In that case, there should be other ways for cultivators to obtain the secret method of inheritance. Everyone looked at 8 Sister Zhu. Obviously, they were sure that she was hiding something, and they also looked at Xiao Baiyu with more vigilance. 8 Sister Zhu smiled bitterly. I can't do anything if you don't believe me. Anyway, I'm a pure yang that was eliminated by the sect. Even I don't know what the true spirit inheritance should be like. At this moment, Lu Ping's expression changed. He walked forward and reached his hand into the stone tablet that was covered by the dazzling spiritual light under the gaze of all the pure young saints. The moment Lu Ping's palm touched the stone tablet, Lu Ping's expression changed. Then he slowly closed his eyes, but his expression was still very solemn. He seemed to be thinking hard about something, and beads of sweat gradually appeared on his face. All the pure young saints fell silent for a while and looked at Lu Ping in front of them. Everyone had used all means to try to decipher the words on the stone tablet. Obviously, they were afraid of the dazzling light screen that enveloped the stone tablet, but none of them thought of touching the stone tablet with their own hands. After about half an hour, Lu Ping suddenly opened his eyes, retracted his palm, and took a few steps back, panting heavily. Feng Lu and Laozu asked at this moment, How is it? Lu Ping caught his breath and said, Everyone, you will know once you try it. The inheritance is inside. All the pure young saints seemed to have a tacit understanding. Everyone exchanged glances, and Shihua and Laozu took a step forward first and slowly touched the stone tablet through the light screen. Then Shihua and Laozu were suddenly overjoyed, and they restrained all their thoughts. This way they were much faster than Lu Ping. After about half an hour, Shihua and Laozu heaved a long sigh of relief and said, Wonderful, wonderful, I didn't expect there to be such a secret technique. I didn't expect there to be a glimmer of hope for the old man to become a true spirit, ha. Seeing that Shihua and Laozu had also received the inheritance, Full Moon and Laozu went forward. All the pure young saints seemed to be afraid of each other, and only one pure young saint went forward to receive the inheritance each time. Lu Ping was standing at the side of the palace at this time, but his mind was not on the contents of the true spirit inheritance secret technique that he had obtained previously. Instead, he was having an intense discussion with the dragon-shaped sculpture in the core space. You're really confident? Don't worry, many people may have been deceived this time. 8th Sister Zhu and Xiao Baiyu definitely have no good intentions. You're saying that the secret of the true spirit inheritance is fake? Why should I ponder over the profound meaning of the contents? If I follow it, what's the possibility of me becoming a true spirit? The dragon-shaped sculpture sneered and said, how can the inheritance be wrong? What's wrong is that these so-called inheritances can only target everyone who comes into contact with them. Lu Ping was taken aback and said, you're saying that everyone gets different inheritances, and the inheritances are targeted at each cultivator, and others can't copy them at all? The dragon-shaped sculpture said solemnly, that's right. Everyone thinks that they have a chance of becoming a true spirit after receiving the inheritance. However, after they leave this world and leave behind their so-called inheritances, I'm afraid none of their descendants will be able to become a true spirit through this method. In other words, in the future, the Holy Land will still only have Skyrend. The destruction of the 9 mystical tower did not exchange for a few sects with true spirit inheritances, but only Skyrend has a chance of replacing the 9 mystical tower? Do you want to reveal this matter now? The dragon-shaped sculpture suddenly laughed sinisterly and said, why should I expose it? You're different from the others anyway. Chapter 1462. Then do you think 8th Sister Zhu and Xiao Baiyu know about this? What if I reveal this to them? Anyway, when everyone confronts each other, this little trick will be exposed. However, the dragon-shaped statue laughed sinisterly and said, what's the point of saying that? You've already received the inheritance anyway. Unlike the others, the inheritance you've received can really be passed on. Do you also hope that in the future, besides the sky-splitting sword sect and the Zhenling sect, there will be a few more sects with the inheritance of the Zhenling sect? The dragon statue wandered on the surface of the 9-dragon bell, and countless words appeared and disappeared on the surface of the bell. However, these words were different from the blurred words on the stone tablet. These words were abnormally clear and could be seen at a glance. However, these words were arranged in a messy order, and could not form a secret or cultivation method at all. It was more like a random list of words. Haha, you dare to play such tricks in front of me? Why don't you take a look at my origins? I am the dragon-shaped statue on the base of the altar that Taoist Jiao sat on when he opened the altar and gave his speech. I was the one who enlightened the spirit of Taoist Jiao's speech. How could an inheritance slate like you, who knows nothing, compare to me? Lu Ping said thoughtfully, who do you think left this inheritance stone tablet? How can an ordinary celestial spirit Laozu have such a trick? The dragon statue sneered, if they have such a trick, why are there only these 6 holy lands since the beginning of the world? Then who could it be? Who knows? Maybe it is an unintentional work of one of the sky splitters Laozu, or maybe it is some kind of arrangement left by one or a few of them. The avatar of dragons circled around the 9-dragon bell, and Lu Ping's natal essence seeped out from the avatar of dragons and seeped into the 9-dragon bell. As a result, more copies of himself appeared on the bell, and the words became clearer. The dragon statue on the wall of the bell was suddenly dissatisfied. I say, boss, can you keep your statue away from me? What is this always swaying in front of me showing off? Lu Ping laughed. If it weren't for the support of my life essence, would you be able to copy the complete inheritance? The closer my Dharma incarnation is to you, the less life essence it consumes. The current situation is very strange, and I have consumed a lot of my life essence to resist the mighty power of heaven and earth. I should save as much as I can, just in case. The dragon-shaped statue was displeased. Don't you know that your projection's dragon origin aura is stronger? Every time it swings around in front of this dragon is very displeased. Lu Ping simply ignored this guy, and the dragon statue also knew that Lu Ping's words were reasonable. Seeing that Lu Ping was ignoring it, it could not help but complain in a low voice, I really don't know how this guy got such a pure bloodline. If he wants to become a true spirit, he will directly become a true dragon. His starting point is much higher than Jiao Doran's. I heard that bloodline can sometimes be related to the soul. Could it be that this guy's soul also has some secret? The dragon-shaped statue shook its head fiercely and said, Damn, how could this dragon have such a thought? How could this dragon remember these things? It seems that I have really forgotten a lot of things after being in the Taoist altar for a long time. This little bit of sudden emergence is really a little unbearable for this dragon. The so-called true spirit inheritance, according to the explanation given to Lu Ping by the dragon-shaped statue, was that there was actually no inheritance on the stone tablet in front of him. There were only 5,000 different words, and the importance of the stone tablet was that when a cultivator touched it, the stone tablet would arrange these 5,000 words according to different cultivators, forming a secret technique suitable for the cultivator to advance. The pure young cultivators in the mini Kiliakosm all thought that they had obtained a shortcut to advance to the true spirit from the stone tablet, but they never knew that in fact, the secret technique that everyone obtained was different. Although Lu Ping knew, 8 Sister Zhu and Xiao Baiyu might have also known, the 3 of them pretended to know nothing. Most of the Laozu of each sect's mind began to comprehend the moment they received the inheritance. Therefore, no one thought of verifying their gains with each other, and this little secret was unexpectedly preserved in such an incredible way. Although all the Laozu had obtained the true spirit inheritance, they did not know that the inheritance they obtained was only suitable for themselves. When they became true spirits in the future, the same method might not be successful for the younger generation cultivators. Therefore, it was naturally impossible for the true spirit inheritance to be eternal like the Holy Land. This little trick could not be hidden from the Laozu of each sect, but it could not be hidden from the 9 dragon bell in Lu Ping's body, which seemed to be of the same origin as the stone tablet. To be exact, it was the dragon-shaped sculpture. This was a pedestal sculpture carved by the chiming sound god stone in the 7th Patriarch's Taoist altar because of the enlightenment of Jiao Doran's mantra. Even the moment the dragon-shaped sculpture came into contact with the stone tablet through Lu Ping, it completely inherited all the methods of the stone tablet's inheritance. That was to say, if someone wanted to obtain the shortcut to advance to the true spirit in the future, the dragon-shaped sculpture also had the ability to create the secret technique inheritance according to the person. That was to say, at this time, Lu Ping was actually like Xiao Baiyu, who had also obtained the key to the Holy Land's inheritance. Now, what Junling lacked was the door of the Holy Land's inheritance. After the pure young Laozu obtained the inheritance, they began to discuss how to divide the cultivation books in the mini Kiliakosm, the few treasures and the spiritual herbs, spiritual materials and spiritual mines. All the cultivation manuals were gathered together and handed over to each of the patriarchs to make a copy of. There didn't seem to be a lot of things, especially when compared to the tens of thousands of years of inheritance that the 9 profound tower had accumulated since the beginning of the world. The number and content of these manuals was really not abundant. However, these things recorded the core and most important inheritance and secrets of the 9 mystical tower. It could even be said that each of the things recorded in these books could even cause a great disturbance in the cultivation world. In the mini Kiliakosm, there were several spiritual treasures and magic treasures of the 9 mystical tower. Although they were not too powerful treasures for killing, they all had various wonderful uses. However, they were rarely used, so they were stored in the mini Kiliakosm. According to the previous agreement, Xiao Baiyu would not participate in the first round of treasure distribution because he had obtained the mini Kiliakosm, and 8th Sister Zhu was not qualified to participate. Sanchen Laozu and Guyu Laozu had also died, and Qi Laozu, like Xiao Baiyu, had given up 2 opportunities to choose treasures in the first round because he had obtained the 7-feathered fan. Therefore, everyone counted the contributions. Feng Lu, who had lost a natal fierce beast, was ranked first, and Lu Ping, who had blocked the entire Qingming River with his own strength, followed by Feng Lu. Feng Lu Laozu chose a second tribulation spiritual treasure. It was also the only second tribulation spiritual treasure among all the spiritual treasures, magic treasures and magic weapons found in the mini Kiliakosm. Moreover, this second tribulation spiritual treasure seemed to be the natal spiritual treasure of a great cultivator elder of the spirit beast sect who had gone missing. Unexpectedly, it was found in this mini Kiliakosm. In this way, the death of the great cultivator elder of the spirit beast sect was most likely related to the 9 mystical tower. Lu Ping followed closely behind Feng Lu and chose a first tribulation spiritual treasure. If this spiritual treasure was used to fight, its power would not be too strong. However, Lu Ping had heard spiritual master Xianwei mention a special treasure that was used to assist in searching for ores. The spiritual treasure in front of him seemed to be quite similar to what spiritual master Xianwei had said, so Lu Ping did not hesitate to take this spiritual treasure. After that, Lu Ping also received a magic pill furnace, a spirit-raising rune brush specially used to draw talismans, a spirit-raising rune formation disc used to set up formations, several sets of dozens of high-grade magic weapons for setting up formations and other strange items. After that, they began to distribute all kinds of training resources. There were natural treasures, precious minerals, rare herbs, spirit materials and spirit plants. After a round of distribution, except for 8 Sister Zhu, everyone could be considered to have a full pot of loot. The entire mini Kiliacosm had been taken away by everyone. By the time everyone had finished distributing, 3 days had already passed. After everyone had received the inheritance from the stone tablet, Xiao Baiyu began to refine the stone tablet. Although he was unable to focus because of the distribution, he was still able to control the mini Kiliacosm to hide himself and escape eastward. 3 days had passed. The news that the Nine Shen Tower had been attacked and had no choice but to activate the Forbidden Break formation and hide the dojo in a crack in space once again shocked the entire training world. The huge Nine Shen Tower was only left with a large number of ordinary disciples. Only a small number of elite and true disciples were allowed to enter the dojo to follow the pure yang cultivator of the Nine Shen Tower, Laozu, 4 grand adepts, and more than 10 early and mid-dharma adepts to prepare for a comeback. This kind of loss could be said to have reduced the Nine Shen Tower, one of the 6 holy lands, to a large sect. They even had to activate the Forbidden Break formation and hide in the crack in space. This Forbidden Break formation was different from sealing off the mountain. After the Forbidden Break formation was activated, not only could outsiders not enter, but even the Nine Shen Tower cultivators who were inside the Forbidden Break formation would not be able to come out easily. This was much more powerful than sealing off the mountain. It was as if the sect was cut off from the world. Unless the sect was in a life-and-death situation, the Forbidden Break formation would definitely not be activated. But even though the Nine Shen Tower had suffered heavy losses from Mara's attack, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Moreover, the Nine Shen Tower had already sealed off the mountain. Who would have the ability to break through the protective formation and completely destroy the Nine Shen Tower? The news was quickly leaked by the Nine Shen Tower disciples who had stayed behind to guard the sect. The news of 10 pure yang cultivators caused an uproar in the entire world of cultivation. Many people began to suspect that if the 6 holy lands and the demon clans did not make a move, it was unknown whether or not there would be 10 pure yang cultivators in this world. How could so many pure yang cultivators have joined forces to attack the Nine Shen Tower? Among those who suspected this, there were many famous great divines in the world of cultivation. Soon after, more concrete news came out. After it was confirmed that there were indeed 10 pure yang cultivators who had joined forces to attack the Nine Shen Tower, the entire world of cultivation gasped. Could it be that there were people from the other holy lands and the demon clans involved? It was only when the names of the 10 pure yang cultivators who had joined forces to attack the Nine Shen Tower were exposed that the entire world of cultivation realized that there were actually so many unknown great divines in this world. At this time, the people who had joined in the attack on the Nine Shen Tower had split up everything in the small thousand world of the Nine Shen Tower and then went their separate ways. Chapter 1463. Xiao Baiyu and the other pure yang cultivators, along with the North Sea Water Sword Immortal, had taken down one of the 6 sacred lands, the Nine Mystical Tower, forcing the Nine Mystical Tower to activate the Forbidden Formation to protect itself. This had caused an uproar in the cultivation world. The other 5 sacred lands and the Yuan family quickly sent pure yang cultivators to the Nine Mystical Tower to investigate. Unfortunately, the Nine Mystical Tower had already activated the Forbidden Formation, so only some ordinary disciples and 9 Mystical Tower cultivators were left behind. Subsequently, these people tried to search for traces of Xiao Baiyu and the others. However, Xiao Baiyu and the others had disappeared after capturing the 9 Mystical Tower and snatching the mini Kiliacosm. At the same time, they also learned from the 9 Mystical Tower's disciples that the pure yang cultivator 8th Sister Zhu had left with them. Soon, 8th Sister Zhu's betrayal of the 9 Mystical Tower once again shocked the entire cultivation world. Soon, some people determined that the reason why the 9 Mystical Tower was captured was not only because of the terrifying strength gathered by Xiao Baiyu and the others, but also because the 9 Mystical Tower was at its lowest point. The most important reason was probably 8th Sister Zhu's sudden betrayal. Soon, well-informed people unearthed the old story of Xiao Baiyu and 8th Sister Zhu's relationship. It was said that at that time, the 9 Mystical Tower had tried to use 8th Sister Zhu to win over Xiao Baiyu, a rising star who was already famous in the world at that time. However, the honey trap ultimately failed, and the two parted on bad terms. However, it seemed that the two still maintained their relationship. However, it was not 8th Sister Zhu who had captured Xiao Baiyu, but Xiao Baiyu who had taken away 8th Sister Zhu's heart. The cultivation world might not be clear about what the loss of the 9 mystical towers mini-kiliacosm meant to the 9 mystical tower, but the other 5 sacred lands understood it very well. Soon, the entire cultivation world would probably guess what had happened. After all, 11 pure yang cultivators had joined forces to capture the 9 mystical tower. It was definitely not as simple as snatching a mini-kiliacosm. So, what else in the 9 mystical tower attracted the 11 pure yang cultivators the most? The result was obvious. It was the inheritance of the Holy Land, the secret of the Holy Land's true spirit that would never be broken. Needless to say, this secret was hidden in the 9 profound towers minor thousand world. As a result, the entire cultivation world surged with undercurrents once again. The other 5 holy lands no longer dared to harbor any more thoughts. The destruction of the 9 mystical tower had definitely aroused the vigilance of the 5 holy lands. Naturally, their target would be the 10 pure yang realm cultivators who had seized the minor kiliacosm. However, if the 10 of them were to gather together, not even the other 5 sacred lands would dare to provoke them, let alone those from the cultivation world. However, these 10 pure yang experts each had their own sect background, so they would not gather together. In that case, when they were alone, didn't that mean that everyone had a chance to obtain the sacred land's inheritance? Unfortunately, the 10 pure yang cultivators had disappeared without a trace. Although the cultivation world was surging with undercurrents, the 10 pure yang cultivators never showed themselves again. If a pure yang cultivator wanted to deliberately hide in the cultivation world, it would be almost impossible to find them unless true spirit Laozu took action. At this time, Lu Ping had quietly met up with Yin Tianchu, who was hiding in a deep mountain along the Qingming River. Amazing! Yin Tianchu obviously wasn't just waiting in the mountains. He was well aware of what was happening in the cultivation world. Even though Yin Tianchu was used to Lu Ping's amazing feats, he had to admit that Lu Ping's feats were getting more and more amazing each time he saw Lu Ping and the other pure yang cultivators. Yin Tianchu was used to Lu Ping's amazing feats, but he had to admit that Lu Ping's feats were getting more and more amazing. Lu Ping smiled and said, "I'm just relying on my strength to bully the weak. It's nothing." Yin Tianchu returned all the things that Lu Ping had left for him and asked, "Will this cause trouble for you in the sect?" Lu Ping nodded and said, "I'm afraid I'll have to hide for a while. As long as they can't find me, then no one will dare to provoke my sect. However, junior brother, you need to return to the sect as soon as possible and inform the sect master to be careful and further strengthen the cooperation between the 5 sect alliances. Also, the beast-taming spirit sect can be considered a public target now. In order to avoid being discovered, the sect's plans will be put on hold until I return to the sect." Yin Tianchu knew that what Lu Ping and the others had done this time was a huge matter. If they did not keep a low profile and further strengthen the cooperation with the Tianxian sect, Skyrind, and the other 2 sects, it was very likely that they would incur the wrath of the public. At this time, perhaps the cultivation world would be wary of Xiao Baiyu and the others because they were in hiding, but the suppression of the sects that participated in the attack on the 9 profound tower was inevitable. The pure yang masters had long been prepared for this before they separated. Under the suppression of almost the entire cultivation world, the sects might be in a more difficult situation. However, compared to obtaining the inheritance of the Holy Land, this kind of loss was completely bearable. In fact, compared to the Tianxian sect, the Heavenly Moon sect, Skyrind, the Beast-Taming Spirit sect, and the Carefree Pavilion, Junling's situation was already good enough. After all, Junling was alone in the North Sea, and there was not a single sect in the entire North Sea cultivation world that had the strength to resist Junling. It could be said that Junling's current control over the North Sea cultivation world was even greater than the Crystal Palace's control over the East Sea. Therefore, the impact it received was almost the least. Lu Ping and Yin Tianchu stayed in the deep mountains for a few more days, mainly waiting for Lu Ping to sort out the harvest from the 9 profound towers mini-world. After selecting a small portion that Lu Ping might use, the rest would be handed over to Yin Tianchu to bring back. Of course, some of the important inheritances that were related to secrets were handed over to Yin Tianchu to bring back, while the rest were still carried by Lu Ping. Even so, the things that Lu Ping gave him were enough to shock Yin Tianchu, who had always had a cold expression. "Remember, this time I might disappear without a trace for decades or even longer. These things are used by the sect to recuperate and strengthen during this period of time." Yin Tianchu nodded and said, "Don't worry." Lu Ping nodded and said, "Directly sneak back to the North Sea from the Yingshan side courtyard. Don't let anyone discover your traces. Don't use the Tianxian sect or the Heavenly Moon sect's super teleportation formation. At this time your whereabouts might be linked to me. After sending off Yin Tianchu, Lu Ping simply sank into the Qingming River to recuperate for more than a month. When his strength had recovered to its peak, he followed the Qingming River eastward and headed towards the Nine Profound Tower. After the Nine Profound Tower was attacked, the dojo's disappearance into the void caused a huge uproar in the cultivation world. However, although the undercurrent of the cultivation world surged towards Lu Ping and the 10 pure Yang realm cultivators who had obtained the Nine Profound Towers' true spirit inheritance, the storm on the surface was towards the Nine Profound Towers' encampment. Everyone knew that although the Nine Profound Tower still had the pure Yang realm cultivators and the Nine Profound Towers dojo, the Nine Profound Towers' decline in the cultivation world was already a foregone conclusion. Since it was already a foregone conclusion, there was nothing to be afraid of. Now that the Nine Profound Towers' true elites had all gone into the void with the dojo, how could the remaining few of them defend the Nine Profound Towers' huge encampment? In addition, the Nine Profound Towers' vast territory and cultivation resources had now become the target of competition between the various sects in the cultivation world. Of course, the Nine Profound Towers' might was still there. Although the various sects wanted a piece of the pie, they still had to cover it up and not be too unsightly. Even so, it had only been slightly more than a month since Lu Ping and the others attacked the Nine Profound Towers' encampment. The Nine Profound Towers' encampment had already been successively attacked by unknown sects several times. The remaining disciples of the Nine Profound Tower tried to protect the encampment, engaging in a life-and-death battle with the invading forces. However, they were powerless and suffered heavy casualties. The Nine Profound Towers' encampment was plundered again and again. In the end, even the hearts of the remaining Nine Profound Tower cultivators were shattered. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. The remaining Nine Profound Tower cultivators either died or fled. Only the most loyal disciples remained to defend the encampment, waiting for the Nine Profound Towers dojo to return. Lu Ping did not expect that in just a little more than a month, the Nine Profound Tower, one of the 6 great holy lands, would fall to such a state. The encampment had become an unguarded wilderness, allowing anyone to come and go as they pleased. And one of the main culprits for all of this was Lu Ping himself. Lu Ping let out a sigh. The Nine Profound Tower had completely fallen apart, and even his heart was shattered. Even if Yang Lan and Lao Zu returned to the Nine Profound Dojo, they would not be able to stop the Nine Profound Tower from falling apart. Furthermore, Yang Lan and Lao Zu might not even be able to wait until the day the Nine Profound Dojo returned. Lu Ping calmed himself down and expelled the scene of the Nine Profound Tower from his mind. He was confident that Jinling would not fall to such a state like the Nine Profound Tower in the future. However, the Nine Profound Tower would still serve as a warning to Jinling. Silently, Lu Ping once again returned to the Nine Profound Tower's encampment. Holding a spatial essence in his hand, he circulated his spatial divine ability. Following the unique frequency of spatial fluctuations, Lu Ping spent most of the night searching for the traces he had left behind. Yang Lan, Lao Zu, and the rest of the Nine Profound Towers cultivators, who were hiding in the dojo to recuperate, would never have thought that he would be able to make a comeback. Lu Ping threw away the last trace of pity he had for the Nine Profound Tower. Finding a secluded place, he casually threw the spatial essence in his hand into a pile of rubble. Then he formed several hand seals, and an invisible ripple caused Lu Ping's entire body to become illusory. Space rippled like water, and when the ripples stopped, Lu Ping's figure disappeared into the rubble. In an unknown space, 2 specks of light suddenly flashed out of nowhere. Then, a spatial door gradually opened and a small person about a foot tall jumped out and walked around. The small person quietly assassinated 2 Nine Profound Tower cultivators who had been attracted by the spatial fluctuations. Then Lu Ping stepped out of the spatial door. After the door behind him disappeared, he looked around and recalled Lu Xiaoping. After dealing with the 2 corpses, Lu Ping immediately concealed himself and disappeared. Chapter 1464. The moment Lu Ping arrived, he had scanned the spatial rift hidden by the Nine Profound Tower with his divine sense. The spatial fluctuations caused by Lu Ping entering the Nine Profound Tower's dojo could not be hidden from Yang Lan Lao Zu, so Lu Ping did not deliberately hide his tracks. However, what Lu Ping did not expect was that Yang Lan Lao Zu did not notice Lu Ping's arrival at all. This confused Lu Ping. Could it be that the Nine Profound Tower had connected the Nine Profound Dojo to the outside world so quickly? Could Yang Lan Lao Zu have already left? Since his arrival did not attract the attention of the Nine Profound Tower, Lu Ping was naturally happy to hide. After all, it was too shocking for him to suddenly appear in the Nine Profound Towers dojo at this time. If the news was leaked, people would immediately associate it with the Hollow Spirit. The thought of shocking made Lu Ping's heart skip a beat. At this time, Lu Ping had already discovered that the Nine Profound Towers' defense was lax. However, this was not surprising. They had already hidden the dojo in the spatial rift. Even the true spirit Laozu might not be able to find traces of them. The previous battle had also caused the Nine Profound Tower to suffer heavy casualties. Now that they were temporarily in the spatial rift, they were naturally very relaxed. Yang Lan Laozu had been seriously injured by Eight Sister Zhu's sneak attack, and then his palm was cut off by Xiao Baiyu's sword. After forcibly activating the Forbidden Break formation, he was probably at the end of his flight. No one knew where he was hiding in seclusion. If this was the case, it would explain why Lu Ping had not been discovered when he entered the dojo. There were still 4 great cultivators in the Nine Profound Tower, but Lu Ping only detected the auras of 2 of them. The other 2 were nowhere to be seen. It didn't take long for Lu Ping to sneak around the dojo. Only then did he realize that there were only a small number of 9 mystic cultivators in the dojo. Most of the remaining cultivators were either in closed-door cultivation or recovering from their injuries. It seemed like the 9 Mystic Pavilion had understood their predicament after the battle that day and were working hard to improve themselves. In order to stop Xiao Baiyu's invasion, the 9 Profound Towers' high-level cultivators had also suffered heavy casualties. Now that they had finally found a safe place to recuperate, they needed to focus on recuperating from their injuries. This was so that they could work hard to establish the 9 Profound Towers' position in the world of cultivation in the future. However, the more the 9 Profound Towers' cultivators were like this, the more determined Lu Ping was to kill them. In fact, if the Void Essence was in the hands of Xiao Baiyu, 7 Fan Laozu, and the others, they would still adopt the same strategy as Lu Ping and eliminate the Void Essence. In fact, they might even be more ruthless than Lu Ping. Of course, the 9 Profound Towers' cultivation resources were still gathered in the 9 Profound Tower. Naturally, Lu Ping would not let others share these benefits. The 2 great cultivators on duty were not together. Additionally, one of them was handling the affairs of the 9 Profound Tower while the other was giving a lecture to the cultivators within the 9 Profound Tower. That gave Lu Ping an opportunity to take advantage of. In Lu Ping's opinion, the 9 Profound Tower, with the exception of the Great Isolation Array, was like a ferocious tiger that had been imprisoned and was unaware of its existence. It could only wait to be slaughtered. In the 9 Profound Palace, after Yang Mingho finished sorting out the number of cultivators within the 9 Profound Tower and their respective cultivation bases, he could not help but sigh. The calamity that the 9 Profound Tower had faced this time was even greater than the 10 years of siege from Mara's army. It could be said to be the greatest crisis the 9 Profound Tower had faced since its founding. Although there were still nearly 1,000 elites from the 9 Profound Tower in the 9 Profound Tower, the number of cultivators in the 9 Profound Tower had been reduced to 80%. Yang Mingho Laozu himself did not know if the 9 Profound Tower would be able to restore the former glory of the 9 Profound Tower when it reappeared in the world of cultivation. After letting out a heavy sigh, Yang Mingho Laozu decided to go out and take a walk around the 9 Profound Tower. He mainly wanted to relax. Yang Mingho Laozu had incited the cultivators in the 9 Profound Tower to train hard for the sake of revenge. However, the truth was that Yang Mingho Laozu himself was feeling somewhat lost. Yang Mingho Laozu, who had a heavy heart, did not pay any attention to his surroundings after walking out of the 9 Profound Palace. Rather, it would be more accurate to say that he did not expect to encounter any danger in the 9 Profound Tower. When Yang Mingho Laozu realized that the surroundings were a little too quiet, Lu Ping, who had been lying in ambush, suddenly made his move. "Who is it? Who's there?" Yang Mingho Laozu shouted sternly. His voice was like a rolling wave, but it could not travel far. His voice only traveled a few hundred feet before it disappeared. Yang Mingho's heart sank, but he still held on to the slightest bit of hope. He probed, "Is it Uncle Master Yang?" However, a faint 5-colored light suddenly flickered in the quiet space. 12 5-colored pearls circled around Yang Mingho's body, causing him to suddenly recall a major event that had happened in the world of cultivation. That person had used 12 5-colored pearls to set up a formation and killed 3 great cultivators in one fell swoop, while seriously injuring 2 others. "Lu Tianping, how did you get in here?" Yang Mingho was horrified. He reached out and grabbed a spiritual treasure in his hand. He circulated all the strength in his body and unleashed the strongest attack in his life. It was not to break the 5-colored space, but to attract the attention of the entire 9 Profound Tower when he fought with Lu Tianping. However, a deep shout came from the five-colored space. "See coming." The Patriarch of Yang Mingho's full-force attack did not even have the chance to penetrate the space of the origin quarter grand formation before it vanished like a clay ox entering the sea. The Patriarch of Yang Mingho immediately panicked. Just as he was about to make another move, he heard a muffled cry coming from the boundless void once again. Mountain suppression. Yang Mingho Laozu suddenly felt his body being suppressed by an inexplicable force. He wanted to struggle, but the force became stronger and stronger until Yang Mingho Laozu could not move. Then he felt a gust of cold wind, and his vision immediately turned upside down. Then he fell into a deep silence. Lu Ping appeared out of nowhere. He casually stowed away Yang Mingho Laozu's storage artifact and the spiritual treasure he had just used. Afterwards, he waved his right hand and buried Yang Mingho's corpse under some spiritual herb garden or spiritual tree in the Room of Gold. Afterwards, Lu Ping walked into the Nine Profound Hall in a dignified manner. The cultivators guarding the Nine Profound Hall had already died to Lu Ping's sword. The Nine Profound Hall was normally a place where the entire Nine Profound Hall gathered to discuss the sect's plans. Its status was similar to Jinling's Heaven Spirit Hall, so it obviously contained a rich collection. Very soon, Lu Ping found the location of a treasure in the Nine Profound Hall. However, just as he was about to use an ability to collect it, his soul suddenly twitched. He discovered that someone was currently heading over. Lu Ping sighed secretly. It seemed that someone had noticed the disturbance from the clash earlier. However, it did not seem to attract the attention of Yang Mingho Laozu or the other two great cultivators who were in seclusion. As a result, the person who came would only be sending himself to his death. However, if Lu Ping had tried to collect the treasure hidden in the Nine Profound Hall earlier, it would probably have caused an even greater disturbance. It might even have alerted Yang Mingho Laozu. Although Lu Ping was not afraid, he would definitely be surrounded, which would be troublesome. Huang Xinxiao Laozu, who was currently giving a lecture to the Nine Profound Hall's cultivators, suddenly sensed a strange ripple of spiritual energy flash by near the Nine Profound Hall. As a result, he interrupted his lecture and made his way over to the Nine Profound Hall. At the same time, Huang Xinxiao Laozu became more cautious. He ordered the disciple who was listening to the lecture to inform the other two great cultivators who were in seclusion. The area before the Nine Profound Hall was peaceful. Nothing had happened, but Huang Xinxiao Laozu felt his heart palpitate for no reason when he saw the Nine Profound Hall. He could not help but laugh to himself. Huang Xinxiao Laozu was suddenly shocked. The Nine Profound Hall was just a little too quiet. No, where did the disciples guarding inside and outside the Nine Profound Hall go? Senior Yang Mingho should already know that I've arrived, so why is there still no movement from the Nine Profound Hall? Huang Xinxiao raised his arm and a beam of light shot into the sky. This was the Nine Profound Hall's warning signal. Once the Nine Profound Hall's cultivators received this signal, they would be ready for battle. However, the beam of light that shot into the sky only illuminated the five-colored space within a radius of a few dozen feet. Huang Xinxiao Laozu was shocked. He knew that he had fallen into someone else's trap. Immediately after, he felt countless undercurrents flowing in the five-colored space. Although Huang Xinxiao Laozu tried his best to stabilize his body, these forces were extremely strange. Under the tearing force from all directions, he was no longer able to stabilize his body. Even the true essence in his body was in chaos due to the strange force, and the execution of his divine abilities and Dharma spells was greatly affected. After a moment of stalemate, two beams of light shot out from the void, followed by a scissor. Huang Xinxiao Laozu's head shot into the sky with hot blood. At this moment, he finally understood that the person who ambushed him was actually Lu Tianping of the North Sea. The two beams of light were extremely similar to the pure yang spiritual treasure that had caused an uproar in the cultivation world. Chapter 1465. Although Lu Ping did not know that Huang Xinxiao Laozu had prepared a backup plan in advance to kill two great cultivators in a row, the scene in the dojo made Lu Ping realize that his infiltration into the dojo had probably been discovered. In that case, there was no need to hide. Lu Ping casually put away the storage artifact in Huang Xinxiao Laozu's hand. Unfortunately, the Grade 1 Tribulation spiritual treasure in his hand had chosen to self-destruct at the last moment. It seemed to be this great cultivator's natal spiritual treasure. After putting away the remains of the spiritual treasure, Lu Ping looked at the Nine Mystical Temple and temporarily gave up on collecting the Grotto Heaven magic treasure in the Nine Mystical Temple. If he did so, it would definitely alarm the entire Nine Mystical Dojo. At this time, although there were 9 mystical cultivators who realized that something was wrong, they obviously did not realize the seriousness of the matter. The aura of two great cultivators suddenly appeared in Lu Ping's divine sense, but Yang Lan Laozu was obviously not alarmed. Since things had reached this point, there was no need for Lu Ping to hide anymore. As long as he killed the two great cultivators who had obviously not recovered from their injuries in one fell swoop before Yang Lan Laozu could react, then even if Yang Lan Laozu came out of seclusion, he would not be able to reverse the situation. Lu Ping could clearly see that 8th Sister Zhu had used all her strength to sneak attack Yang Lan Laozu from behind. In just over a month, even if there were immortal elixirs in the 9 mystical tower, it would not be able to recover completely. Moreover, Lu Ping had also seen Yang Lan Laozu's strength at that time. A pure young cultivator who was seriously injured and had lost his heaven-opening artifact was not in Lu Ping's eyes. The ambush on Huang Xinxiao had stirred up the spiritual energy again. Even if the 9 mystic great cultivators were stupid, they would have known something was wrong. They wouldn't fall into Lu Ping's trap so easily. Since that was the case, Lu Ping decided to conceal himself and head straight for the 9 mystic great cultivators. The white feather lotus array diagram instantly extended, and before the 2 oncoming great cultivators could react, it had already arrived beneath their feet. Who are you? How did you enter my 9 profound dojo? A furious roar shook the entire 9 profound dojo. It's you, Bei. The sudden appearance of the water-serene invisible sword shocked the other great cultivator so much that he swallowed back the words he was about to say. Lu Ping sneered inwardly. This time the 12 gentian beads changed their shapes. Next, the gentian array took shape and the 2 cultivators who had yet to fully recover fell into Lu Ping's trap. It's you, Lu Tianping of the Northern Sea. How did you get into my 9 profound dojo? The other great cultivator finally managed to evade the invisible water nethersword's attack and shouted. Lu Ping sneered. Why are you shouting so loudly? Now that you've entered my array, you won't make a single sound even if you shout until your throat breaks. The 2 great cultivators' expressions immediately changed. The reason why they shouted so loudly was to inform all the cultivators in the dojo. Since Lu Tianping of the Northern Sea had appeared, the only way to match him was to awaken Yang Lan Laozu, who was in seclusion. Otherwise, everyone in the 9 profound tower would have to face a merciless slaughter with no escape route. However, the gentian array that took shape in an instant caused the 2 great cultivators' hearts to sink to the bottom. Because Lu Ping had deliberately concealed the colorful light within the gentian array, the 2 great cultivators didn't immediately expose Lu Ping's identity. In fact, this was the effect that Lu Ping wanted. He didn't need to hide it from others, he just needed to hide it from the other cultivators in the dojo. The 2 great cultivators at their peak were no match for the Northern Sea Water Sword Immortal. Now that the 2 of them had yet to recover from their serious injuries, they were even less able to fight back. The 2 great cultivators' faces instantly revealed looks of despair. However, something unexpected happened that Lu Ping didn't expect. Strange spiritual energy fluctuations suddenly appeared on the 2 great cultivators' bodies. Even Lu Ping himself was shocked at this moment. Self-destruct. You're crazy. One of the great cultivators sneered and said, in any case, we're all going to die at the hands of the Northern Sea Water Sword Immortal. If we can drag the Northern Sea Water Sword Immortal down with us, then it'll be worth it. Lu Ping sneered. Layers of spatial barriers started piling up in front of him and the 9 mystic great cultivators. He said, do you really think you can take me down with you just by self-detonating? The other great cultivator said, humph, we're all going to die anyway. As long as we can seriously injure you and alarm Uncle Yang Shi, it'll be worth it. Lu Ping cursed in his heart. This time he had failed. He still had fantasies in his heart and was still unwilling to reveal his identity. Thus, he couldn't remove the gentian formation, at least not before the 2 of them self-destructed. He simply summoned the 9-dragon bell, which shrouded him in a golden light. At the same time, he wrapped the cloud sail around his body and fled outside the formation. It's too late to leave now. Lu Tianping, let's all die together. The 2 great cultivators immediately activated their core space. However, in that split second, the netherwater sword suddenly appeared behind one of the great cultivators and pierced through his core space, destroying the Dharma idol inside. At the same time, Lu Xiaoping also appeared next to the great cultivator, and with a slash of the azure willow sword, he beheaded the great cultivator. The great cultivator's self-destruction was instantly stopped. However, Lu Ping no longer had a chance to stop the other great cultivator's self-destruction. This was because Lu Ping had used most of the power of the gentian formation to protect himself. Thus, the moment the great cultivator self-destructed, the Gentian formation began to collapse. The spatial barriers stacked in front of Lu Ping were instantly wiped out by the tyrannical power of the great cultivator's self-destruction. The nine-dragon bell followed with a loud bang, and the golden light hanging down was immediately shattered. At the same time, a series of loud booms exploded in the training ground. The 9 Shen cultivators who came to help felt a sharp pain in their heads. Even a few who had just advanced to the early Dharma stage felt dizzy and fainted. The other low-level cultivators were even worse off. Although Lu Ping still had the protection of the cloud sail and the shield of vigor, he was still powerless under the threat of a great cultivator's self-destruction at close range. In addition, the Gentian formation was instantly broken. Lu Ping's core space also shook violently. Then, he felt a sweetness in his throat and a mouthful of blood overflowed from his mouth. He had been too careless. As soon as this thought arose in Lu Ping's mind, he felt an extremely strong divine will sweep over from a remote place in the training ground. The strength of this divine will was actually not below that of Lu Ping's. It was Yanglan Laozu. The self-destruction of the 9 Shen cultivators had finally alarmed Yanglan Laozu, who was in the midst of his closed-door training. Lu Ping secretly felt that it was a pity. This time, even if he did not completely destroy the entire 9 Shen Tower, he had planned to destroy all the high-level combat power of the 9 Shen Tower. However, he did not expect that the 2 great cultivators from the 9 Shen Tower would be so decisive and choose to self-destruct as soon as they appeared. Now that Lu Ping was still seriously injured, if he forced himself to fight with Yanglan Laozu, even if he won in the end, it would not be worth it. Forget it, I'll retreat first. In the future, I'm afraid there won't be another chance. He casually collected the scattered things of the 2 great cultivators into the Golden House because of the self-destruction of the storage artifact. The second sweep of great ancestor Yang Lan's spiritual thoughts had come over. Lu Ping did not want to expose his identity, so he could only look at the spatial magic treasure in the 9 Shen Hall close at hand and sigh. Then, he turned into a stream of light and instantly arrived at the place where he had entered the training ground. The space essence in his hand flashed again, and the moment the spatial door appeared, he plunged into it. Behind him, Yanglan Laozu had already caught up with him. An extremely angry shout was heard, "Scoundrel, where are you going?" Chapter 1466. Lu Ping was filled with hatred. His plan had been ruined by the self-destruction of the 2 great practitioners of the 9 mystical tower. Lu Ping, who had intended to take advantage of the situation, had been injured by the self-destruction. Faced with Yanglan Laozu's pursuit, he had no choice but to temporarily avoid it. The moment he used the space spirit to pass through the forbidden formation, Lu Ping retrieved the 2 space spirits that were placed on top of the formation's protective barrier. The space tunnel shrank rapidly as Lu Ping entered. Yanglan Laozu saw that he could not catch up with the enemy, so he could only use a divine ability to rush into the space portal. Immediately, the forbidden formation shook violently. Yanglan Laozu stood at the spot where the man had disappeared. He was furious and coughed violently. Only when all the spittle that flew out turned into blood did he calm down. He let out a long sigh, and his expression revealed a trace of sorrow. "Master Granduncle." The voice of a 9 mystical tower practitioner came from behind him. If Lu Ping was here, he would have recognized this person as Sun Liuhe, one of the 3 direct disciples of the 9 mystical tower. Yanglan Laozu immediately restrained the expression on his face. He turned around and asked in a low voice, "How is it?" Sun Liuhe, who had always been known for his frivolity, had a solemn expression on his face. He said in a trembling voice, "Master Yang, Master Huang, and the others have all died. In addition, a few disciples and 2 early Dharma disciples have also met with misfortune." Yanglan Laozu's body trembled when he heard this, but he still managed to keep his voice steady. He asked quietly, "Did anyone else in the sect discover the intruder? Do you know who he is?" Sun Liuhe lowered his head and said, "No, no one discovered how the intruder entered the scene. He seemed to have deliberately hidden himself. No one met him, so we don't know his identity or his level of cultivation." Yanglan Laozu could no longer hide the anger in his heart. He spat out another mouthful of blood. "Martial Granduncle." Sun Liuhe cried out in alarm and hurriedly went forward to support Yanglan Laozu's body. Then he heard Yanglan Laozu say in a sorrowful voice, "Our 9 mystical tower has always been the best in the cultivation world since the creation of the heavens. Who would have thought that we would encounter such a calamity? You must remember that Xiao Baiyu, Qi Fan, Full Moon, Feng Lu, Shihua, Linyu, Yuan Pokong, Yang Shouchang, Lu Tianping, and 8 Sister Zhu are all sworn enemies of our 9 mystical tower. As long as one of us survives, we must have the thought of revenge. Especially that 8 Sister Zhu. She's a traitor. She's even more despicable than those 9 people who ruined my sect. When Sun Liuhe saw that Laozu's mind was in a mess, he hurriedly said, "Martial Granduncle, this disciple will remember everything. In the future, when this disciple's cultivation is successful, I will definitely avenge our sect." Avenge? Yang Lan Laozu was, after all, a top-notch pure yang cultivator. However, he was not confused and could still clearly see the reality that the remaining members of the 9 mystical tower were facing. Yang Lan shook his head and said, "No, no, no. Don't be in a hurry to avenge our sect. Right now, our sect is at a critical juncture of life and death. The key is the inheritance. Yes, the inheritance. We must ensure that our sect's inheritance will not be cut off before we seek revenge. Those who destroyed our sect are all top-notch figures in the cultivation world. Now that our sect's minor kiliacosm has been robbed, the immortal inheritance has been broken, and the heaven-splitting divine weapon has been lost. At this time, even if we want to seek revenge, it will be beyond our power. We must first protect ourselves and then wait for an opportunity to act." Yes, that's it. Even the dignified pure Yang Laozu seemed somewhat incoherent at this time. Fortunately, he was not confused and could still clearly see the reality that the remaining members of the 9 mystical tower were facing. Yang Lan Laozu paused and collected his thoughts before looking at Sun Liuhe. He sighed inwardly and said, "For the next few days, you will follow the old man to cultivate. Out of the 9 great inheritances of our sect, apart from the 1st Yuan Tower Master, the 3 Talents Tower Master, and the 5 Elements Tower Master who advanced to the late Dharma stage and were secretly sent to travel by the sect, the Yin and Yang Tower Master who died in the battle with Mara's army, and the 4 Symbols Tower Master who was killed by Xiao Baiyu and Shi Hua in the previous battle to destroy the sect, you are the only one left in the dojo who can be trained." Sun Liuhe was excited, but he managed to suppress it on his face. He bowed and said, "Thank you for your guidance, Uncle Master. I will do my best." After Lu Ping escaped from the 9 mystical tower dojo, he hid his tracks and once again entered the Qingming River to cultivate and recover from his injuries. However, he would often use the art of sea deception to change his appearance and walk around the world of cultivation so that he could keep abreast of the developments in the world of cultivation. As Lu Ping had expected, after the 9 mystical tower dojo escaped into the crack in the void and shocked the entire world of cultivation, the 11 pure yang cultivators, including 8 Sister Zhu, who were involved in this matter, all hid in the world of cultivation. Although the other 5 holy lands condemned this behavior and even threatened to make the sects that these pure yang cultivators belonged to pay the price, in the end, their actions were all bark and no bite. However, although the 5 holy lands did not make a move, it did not mean that no other sects responded to the call of the holy lands and took advantage of the situation. First, the Heavenly Xian sect, Heavenly Moon sect, and Skyrend all suffered different degrees of suppression, especially when the 5 sects joined forces to fight against the Crystal Palace in the East Sea. Now, the Heavenly Xian sect and Heavenly Moon sect were greatly affected, and Skyrend was also greatly affected. Junling's situation was the best, but it was not as if no one wanted to deal with them. Therefore they had no choice but to withdraw all the forces that had gone deep into the East Sea back to the fallen Mystery Land. Immediately after, another major event that shook the entire world of cultivation happened. The 7 Manifestation sect, a large sect that had been passed down for tens of thousands of years in the West River region, was destroyed overnight. The dojo of the 7 Manifestation sect did not even have time to activate the Forbidden Formation. Everyone was killed inside and out and everything in the sect was plundered. Lu Ping knew that this was because Sanchen Laozu had died in the process of attacking the 9 mystical tower with everyone else. In fact, this ending of the 7 Manifestation sect had long been foreseen by Lu Ping and the others. However, they could only watch the destruction of the 7 Manifestation sect and sigh. It was not that they were heartless, but at this time, no one knew how many people in the world of cultivation were tracking them. The destruction of the 7 Manifestation sect was undoubtedly a trap for them. Once any one of them appeared, they would probably be chased endlessly until they died. After that, the sects behind them would immediately face the same fate as the 7 Manifestation sect. Now, the only thing Lu Ping and the others could do was to hide their traces. Only in this way would the cultivators of the various sects be wary of them and not dare to kill the sects behind them. Even so, Lu Ping felt that he should do something. It would be best if he could make these people have some misgivings. At the very least, they would restrain themselves from suppressing Junling and the other sections. The news of Sanshin Laozu's death might have already been known in the world of cultivation. However, at that time, Sanshin Laozu did not directly participate in the attack on the 9 Mystical Tower. Instead, he was killed by the cultivators of the Yuan family who rushed over after arriving outside the 9 Mystical Towers formation. Therefore, only the Yuan family who first knew of Sanshin Laozu's death would be able to make preparations within a short period of a month and brazenly launch a war against the 7 Manifestation sect. It seemed that he had to teach the Yuan family a lesson. It seemed that Lu Ping was not the only one who thought of this. 3 days later, the great cultivator of the Yuan family, Yuan Qingtian, went missing in the cultivation world of the Qingming River west. 2 days later, her body was found dumped in the wilderness in the west of the river. Just 1 day after Yuan Qingtian went missing, 3 early Dharma adepts of the Yuan family were killed at the same time in the cultivation world of the Central Plains. This was within the sphere of influence of the Yuan family. The Yuan family immediately sent pure Yang adepts to investigate, but in the end they found nothing. 2 days later, one of the direct disciples of the Yuan family who was traveling in the Nanjiang cultivation world lost contact. The sole lamp of the family was extinguished. A large number of masters of the Yuan family rushed to Nanjiang, but in the end they only found a corpse. After another few days in a mountain range in the north of the Central Plains cultivation world, a hurricane suddenly descended near the base of the Yuan family. It was obvious that someone had performed an unparalleled magic. Although it did not cause much damage to the Yuan family, it caused the entire Yuan family to panic for a while. There was a rumor that before the hurricane arrived, someone had seen a huge feather fan floating in midair and slowly descending from the west side of the mountain. This wave of harassment and attacks against the Yuan family lasted for about 3 months. The Yuan family had lost more than 10 Dharma adepts, including 3 great adepts. This kind of loss was enough to make the Yuan family furious, but they could do nothing about it. The person who had attacked was very powerful, and there was almost no time for him to miss. Moreover, he usually left after a single attack. He never lingered for a long time, and the places of his attacks were almost all over the Central Plains cultivation world. There was no way for anyone to figure out where he had gone, let alone who had done it. Naturally, there was no way for them to counterattack. In fact, at this time, anyone in the cultivation world with a brain knew that the person who had attacked was probably the pure Yang Laozu of the various sects who had taken down the 9 Shen Tower. They had used this method to vent their anger for the destruction of the 7 Manifestation clan, and at the same time, they were warning the entire cultivation world not to play with fire. However, this battle had also led to an unexpected change. No one had ever noticed that the traces of the Yuan family practitioners had actually spread throughout the entire cultivation world. This time, the attacks against the Yuan family had occurred in every corner of the cultivation world. It seemed that the important practitioners of the Yuan family could be found everywhere. There had always been a rumor in the cultivation world that when the Mara disaster broke out, wherever the Yuan family practitioners appeared, the disaster of Mara would occur. Now that the Mara disaster in the cultivation world had gradually subsided, the practitioners of the Yuan family still remained in every corner of the cultivation world. What exactly were they plotting? Because of the deterrence of these pure Yang level great practitioners who were hiding in unknown places, the suppression of the sects behind these great practitioners was naturally much more relaxed. This went on for about 30 to 40 years. The peaceful cultivation world seemed to have made people forget the threat of these pure Yang practitioners. However, they never forgot the benefits that the sects behind these pure Yang practitioners had gained. Hence, the suppression of these sects rose again. Chapter 1467. Perhaps it was because of the instigation of the Holy Land sects behind the scenes, or perhaps it was because of greed, but in just 30 to 40 years, the incident of a few pure Yangs causing the Yuan family to be in such a sorry state seemed to have long been forgotten, and so the suppression of these sects was once again on the rise. However, this was just the beginning. All these years, great masters who had been hiding somewhere, and even made people think that these people were dead, suddenly appeared and killed this seedling. This time it was the Koi Demon clan and the North Sea Demon clan who were unlucky. Lu Tianping, who had disappeared for an unknown period of time, suddenly appeared in the upper reaches of the Yulon River, single-handedly killing into the Yulon River tribe where the Koi clan was located, killing 2 early Dharma adepts, 3 mid-Dharma adepts and 1 late Dharma adept. In addition, he severely injured 2 late Dharma adepts and left, taking away the Koi clan's supreme inherited sword technique, the Heavenly Gate Sword formation. The pure Yang Laozu of the Koi clan could not catch up, and the entire Koi clan was terrified, and the cooperation with the North Sea primordial giant crocodile clan was cancelled midway. The North Sea demon clan had secretly joined forces with several sects of the North Sea to launch a surprise attack on Jinling, but it was completely defeated by Jinling. This time, a new late Dharma adept appeared in Jinling, and the appearance of Mei Tianqin used an extremely explosive method to suppress the provocations of the Haiyan sect and Shuiyan Pavilion. And when faced with the attack of the North Sea demon clan, another third-generation disciple of Jinling made a name for himself. In the face of the beast tide that the demon clan had set off in the waters of Jinling, Jinling did not even use its treasured ships. The two great practitioners, Celestial Laozu and Jiang Tianlin, blocked two great practitioners of the demon clan, while the other great practitioner was held up by a mid-Dharma adept. This third-generation adept at the mid-Dharma stage was not Yin Tianchu, who had previously shone brightly in the East Sea. Instead, it was Ji Tianxian, a direct disciple of the Jinling clan who was proficient in making puppets and had previously only had a little fame in the North Sea. After Lu Ping gave Ji Tianxian the legacy of the avatar he obtained from the Longhuai ancestor, the gap between Ji Tianxian, who was originally known as one of the three heroes of the true spirits, and the one immortal and one fiend, was almost forgotten by the outstanding cultivators of the three generations of Jinling. This feeling of being forgotten finally disappeared completely after Ji Tianxian successfully refined two natal puppets with the external incarnation technique and passed the first lightning tribulation in one go. Relying on the coordination between his two natal puppets and his main body, Ji Tianxian, who was at the mid-Dharma stage, managed to block the attack of a primordial giant crocodile clan great practitioner. Yin Tianchu, who was hiding in the middle of the battlefield, suddenly attacked and severely injured the primordial giant crocodile. After that, the two of them joined forces to hunt down and kill the demon clan great practitioner completely in the Jinling waters. The beast tide instigated by the North Sea demon clan quickly collapsed due to the death of the demon clan great practitioner. Although the demon clan suffered heavy losses, the Jinling side also paid a heavy price. In particular, Jinling had to resist the beast tide while suppressing the Shuiyan Pavilion and the Haiyan sect, which resulted in the deaths and injuries of several Dharma adepts in Jinling. In this way, the cultivation world once again calmed down for another 50 to 60 years. The plot against the Tianshan sect and the other four allied sects came again. This time, the unlucky ones were the Crystal Palace, the Purple Talisman Pavilion, the Wind and Thunder Island, the Wuxing School, the Taishan sect, the Lingwu sect, the Huda sect, and the Flowing Cloud Pavilion. Just as the Crystal Palace and the other two sects were stirring up trouble in the East Sea again, several central sects, led by the Wuxing School, suddenly rushed to the Treasure Island in the waters under the jurisdiction of the Tianshan sect, trying to rob the large spirit stone mine there. Among these central sects, other than the Wuxing School, the Taishan sect was originally the most powerful. However, in recent years, the great practitioners of the Taishan sect had repeatedly fallen in the hands of the Tianshan sect and Lu Ping, greatly weakening their strength. Now, the Taishan sect had long been surpassed by the Flowing Cloud Pavilion, becoming the largest sect attached to the Wuxing School. As the Taishan sect declined day by day, the Cloud Sky Pavilion took advantage of the situation to rise. Especially after the Nine Mysteries Tower was conquered, the Cloud Sky Pavilion took the opportunity to expand their sect's power to the south, obtaining many of the territories that originally belonged to the Nine Mysteries Tower, and the sect's power grew by leaps and bounds. Then, 20 years ago, the cultivator in charge of the Flowing Cloud Pavilion, Yintian Laozu, successfully summoned the Third Thunder Tribulation and became a pure Yang cultivator. The strength of the Flowing Cloud Pavilion skyrocketed. In the north of the Qingming River, it seemed to be on par with the Tianshan sect. However, just as the five central sects tried to unite and attack Xiao Baiyu, Eight Sisters Zhu, Seven Fans, Full Moon, Linyu, and Lu Tianping, the six of them acted at the same time as if they had agreed to do so. Xiao Baiyu defeated the two pure Yang cultivators from the Crystal Palace in the East Sea. Although Linyu, Laozu, and Eight Sisters Zhu were defeated in the end, they helped the Xiaoyao Pavilion to stabilize the situation. The Jinling and Luoxin sect still had the most control over the fallen Mystery Land, but most of the former Northern Alliance territory had fallen into the hands of the Crystal Palace and the other two sections. At this time, another piece of news came from the North Sea. The leader of the North Sea Jinling sect, the teacher of the North Sea water sword deity Lu Tianping, Lu Tianling Laozu, had successfully passed the Second Thunder Tribulation. He became the fifth great adept of the late Dharma stage of Jinling, after Chenxiang Jiang Tianlin, Lu Tianping, and Mei Tianqin. Now, the power of the Jinling sect in the North Sea had greatly surpassed the control that the failing sect had over the North Sea in the past. The footprints of the Junling cultivators were no longer limited to a corner of the North Sea. Instead, they had begun to set foot in the East Sea and Central Plains, especially in the areas of influence of the Tianshan sect and the Tianyue sect on the eastern coast. It was common to see North Sea cultivators traveling to Central Plains. At the same time, the North Sea was no longer as isolated as before. There were also many Central Plains cultivators who were willing to travel to the North Sea through the long-distance teleportation array to experience the different local customs. In Central Plains, the high-spirited Pure Yang cultivator of the Flowing Cloud Pavilion, Yun Tian Laozu, had yet to lead his sect's cultivators to the territorial waters of the Tianyuan sect when Lu Tianping personally came to find him. Then he was hunted down for a month. The Flowing Cloud Pavilion was indeed prepared to defend against Lu Tianping, Qi Fan and the others. Yun Tian Laozu also vowed that even if he was no match for these people, he could still delay them until reinforcements arrived. At this time, there were many people in the cultivation world who were watching both openly and secretly. They were certain that Lu Tianping, Qi Fan and Full Moon would not be indifferent. Once they appeared and were unable to break the stalemate, the cultivators from the various sects who were hiding at the side would be like bloody jackals and wolves who would rush forward to get a share of the loot. In fact, Yun Tian Laozu was right. Lu Tianping had indeed appeared, but Yun Tian Laozu did not have the strength to stop Lu Tianping's rampage. The imagined scene of a chase really happened, but the one being chased was Yun Tian Laozu himself. In 1 month he was chased by Lu Ping from the eastern coast to the western wilderness. In the end, if Lu Ping did not dare to use his full strength because he was afraid of the cultivators from the various sects who secretly followed him, this new Pure Yang cultivator of the Flowing Cloud Pavilion in thousands of years, Laozu, would have been either dead or injured. 7 Fan and Full Moon joined hands and fought a fierce battle against the Pure Yang cultivators of the Five Elements sect, blocking their way to the east. When the rest of the people of the 5 sects arrived at the island, they were greeted by the treasured ships of Zhenling sect, as well as a large number of reinforcements led by Tianshan sect, Tianyu sect, and Heaven-Breaking Sword sect. Once again the scheme of the 5 sects failed. At this time, after Lu Ping had taken the opportunity to practice hard for about 100 years, the essence of the Flood Dragon in Lu Ping's body had been completely refined. With the addition of the White Lotus Body Accommodation Elixir, Lu Ping's physical body and cultivation had reached a terrifying level. Lu Ping had also studied the ancient books inherited from the Nine Shen Tower over the years. There were many insights left by the previous Pure Yang Laozu of the Nine Shen Tower, which had benefited Lu Ping a lot and strengthened his own foundation. At this time, Lu Ping's cultivation had been pushed all the way to the peak of the late Dharma stage. After chasing Yun Tian Laozu all the way, Lu Ping felt that his own foundation was strong enough, and it was time to prepare for the Pure Yang Thunder Tribulation. After causing havoc with the Koi clan, Lu Ping had been hiding in the Yulon River to practice. The Yulon River was completely different from the Qingming River. All these years, Lu Ping had been swimming in the 2 major water veins. Not only did he use the power of the water veins to improve his cultivation, he also had a new understanding of all kinds of magic skills and techniques. Whether it was the North Sea 12 techniques, the Boiling Heaven Sword technique, the Tianmen Sword technique, the Great River East Sword technique or the Natal Gentian formation, they were now in the hands of Lu Ping with more ease, and their power had greatly increased. This went on for another 20 to 30 years. On this day in the sky above the Yulon River, in the middle and lower reaches of the Yulon River, dark clouds covered an area of hundreds of miles. Almost the entire Yulon swamp was now under the cover of this huge celestial phenomenon. Suddenly, a violent surge of lightning began to brew in the thick layers of clouds. The dull sound of thunder was like a stick striking one's chest, causing one's heart to involuntarily beat along with the dull sound of thunder. The heavy pressure was like the descent of a devil god. This kind of pressure not only contained the destructive power of the gigantic meteorological phenomenon, but also a kind of subservience that came from one's bloodline and spirit. Even the cultivators outside the scope of the meteorological phenomenon couldn't help but have an urge to kneel and worship. The appearance of the huge celestial phenomenon in the sky above the Yulon swamp quickly alerted the nearby cultivator sections. Many of the Dharma adepts quickly guessed that this was the sign of the thunder tribulation. However, very few cultivators had seen such a powerful thunder tribulation. Some of the cultivators were fortunate enough to have seen a cultivator of the late Dharma stage summon a second thunder tribulation. Therefore, they were certain that the celestial phenomenon in front of them was far more powerful than the second thunder tribulation. A cultivator of the late Dharma stage must have summoned the third pure Yang thunder tribulation. To the majority of the cultivators, being able to witness the second thunder tribulation of the late Dharma stage was already an extremely rare thing. To almost all the cultivators, witnessing the third pure yang thunder tribulation was something that only existed in legends. But the scale of this thunder tribulation was a little too big, so big that it made people despair. Could this be the true power of the pure yang thunder tribulation? With such power, it seemed that for the majority of the cultivators, there was no hope of advancing to the pure yang stage. Chapter 1468. Just as the pure yang thunder tribulation covered almost the entire lush jade swamp, the massive aura of the thunder tribulation alarmed the powerful beings who were hiding in various corners of the cultivation world. The pure yang thunder tribulation was different from other thunder tribulations. As a checkpoint before the true spirit, the pure yang thunder tribulation directly bestowed the dharma form of the cultivator who was undergoing the tribulation with the power of pure yang. This was directly related to whether Lu Ping could become a true spirit in the future. When the thunder tribulation arrived, it would produce an inexplicable connection with the dozens of pure yang cultivators in this world. Lu Ping was shocked. This connection made Lu Ping feel as though he was facing dozens of pure yang cultivators at once. Lu Ping could feel their presence, and they could also understand Lu Ping's current situation. However, Lu Ping did not know that compared to his surprise, the pure yang cultivators who were paying attention to his thunder tribulation could no longer be described as shocked. This power of the thunder tribulation. He's simply courting death. How did he summon it? Is he going to undergo the thunder tribulation with his natal numinous treasure? That's crazy. No one can succeed. Although Lu Ping could sense the presence of these people, he could not sense their identities. Naturally, he could not know what these pure yang cultivators were thinking about when they saw the thunder tribulation that Lu Ping had summoned. At that moment, Lu Ping had focused all his attention on the raging pitch-black pure yang tribulation cloud in front of him. After more than 100 years of preparation, Lu Ping's body, quintessential essence, spiritual force, and everything else had been adjusted to their peak state. The decision to lead the sword of the true spirit, Mo Li, through the pure yang thunder tribulation was also a decision that Lu Ping had made after careful consideration. Over the past 100 years, Lu Ping had meticulously studied the ancient books and legacies he had brought back from the Nine Profound Tower. There were speculations regarding the creation of a heaven-splitting divine artifact. The heaven-splitting divine artifact was also a pure yang-grade spiritual treasure, but its might and spirituality far surpassed other pure yang spiritual treasures. Throughout the generations of the Nine Profound House, there were people who guessed that the heaven-splitting divine artifacts might far surpass other pure yang spiritual treasures of the same grade. Firstly, it was because the heaven-splitting divine artifact had been nurtured by heaven-splitting seventh patriarch, and heaven-splitting seventh patriarch's achievements were so high that even cultivators who had achieved true spirit might not be able to match up to him. The second possibility was that the heaven-opening artifact, as the life-bonded spiritual treasure of the heaven-opening Laozu, had most likely gone through 3 thunder tribulations with them, thus greatly increasing its spirituality and power. Of course, doing so was naturally an extremely risky move for a cultivator, but Lu Ping had absolute confidence in his own cultivation. With a slight thought, the pitch-black world suddenly lit up. The void seemed to be torn apart by lightning, and it silently fell on top of Lu Ping's head, followed by a thunderous roar that resounded throughout the world. Even though the power of the pure yang thunder tribulations was earth-shattering, the first 3 thunder tribulations did not pose much of a threat to Lu Ping. Lu Ping relied solely on the strength of his current physical body to survive the first 3 thunder tribulations. From the beginning of the 4th thunder tribulations, Lu Ping's expression showed a little seriousness. He suddenly slapped his chest, and although the roar was not earth-shattering, it was enough to penetrate the void, causing the faces of the pure yang cultivators who were watching Lu Ping's thunder tribulations to change again. What a pure bloodline power, what a strong real essence power. This was obviously a great master who was likely to become a celestial spirit in the future. Among the dozens of pure yang cultivators in the entire cultivation world, how many of them really had a chance of becoming a celestial spirit? Now that the Dharma form of the dragon had changed again, perhaps because of the refinement of the flood dragon's blood essence, the 9th transformation of the Dharma form had been completed before the pure yang thunder tribulations descended. The shape of the head of the Dharma form of the dragon had changed greatly, and it now looked very much like a camel's head. The 4th pure yang thunder tribulations descended, and the Dharma form of the dragon actually went up against it. The lightning fell into the Dharma form's body and disappeared, and the pure yang qi contained in the lightning was swallowed up by the Dharma form. The fifth thunder tribulations followed closely, and this time the Dharma form of the dragon did not have time to completely absorb it. Its body hovered in midair, and it raised its head to swallow the lightning directly into its belly. The entire Dharma form of the dragon was instantly surrounded by lightning. Even Lu Ping's body had become red from the double attack of the pure yang qi and the power of the thunder tribulations. However, the fifth thunder tribulation still could not cause too much damage to Lu Ping. Lu Ping's tyrannical body and vigorous real essence were enough to support the Dharma form of the dragon to eliminate the fifth thunder tribulations. The sixth thunder tribulations followed, and the Dharma form of the dragon looked up to the sky and roared. A huge pure yang pearl was spat out from the dragon's mouth, brazenly facing the lightning. Within the pure yang pearl, there was a lifelike 9-leaf grass. It was a fully matured samling 5 elements leaf. The pure yang thunder tribulation instantly wrapped around the pure yang pearl, forming a huge ball of lightning in midair. The Dharma form of the dragon danced around the ball of lightning up and down, and a stream of life essence was spat out from its mouth and seeped into the ball of lightning. The Dharma form of the dragon had always wanted to refine this pure yang pearl into its own dragon pearl, but it had always been lacking. After completely absorbing the sixth pure yang thunder tribulations, Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. He felt that this was the moment. However, after withstanding 3 thunder tribulations, the Dharma form of the dragon seemed to have reached its limit. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat, and the sword of true spirit, Mo Li, who had been indirectly absorbing the pure yang power in the core space, flew out and circled around the Dharma form of the dragon. At this moment, there was an explosion in the sky, and the boundless pure yang tribulation cloud began to rapidly condense towards the center. A huge vortex was formed in the middle of the tribulation cloud above Lu Ping's head. A bolt of lightning was like a waterfall between heaven and earth, smashing towards the top of Lu Ping's head. The sword of true spirit instantly flew up, and with 2 slashes the lightning waterfall was immediately divided into 3. One fell on Lu Ping's body, and the clothes on Lu Ping's body were completely turned into ashes. From time to time, lightning flashed between his skin, and his whole body was stiff and motionless. Even moving his eyeballs was difficult. The second bolt was easily withstood by the Dharma form of the dragon. The weakened pure yang thunder tribulations did not have much of an impact on the Dharma form of the dragon. The third bolt was absorbed by the sword of true spirit. Rich pure yang power flowed within the flying sword, and Lu Ping could even clearly sense that Mo Li's spirituality was rising. The power of the sword of true spirit was increasing, and the connection between it and Lu Ping's mind was getting closer. The 8th bolt of thunder tribulations descended from the sky. This was no longer the impact of the lightning waterfall, but a piece of the pure yang tribulation cloud in the sky had been cut off, and it directly descended. Lu Ping, the Dharma form, and the sword of true spirit were all immersed in the thunder tribulations. From the outside, Lu Ping was already surrounded by a huge ball of lightning. The tyrannical power spread to the surrounding void, and even caused the void to start shaking and collapsing. At this moment, Lu Ping was like a cooked prawn. There was not a single part of his body that was not twitching, and the heart in his chest was beating very quickly, almost jumping out of Lu Ping's mouth. Lu Ping wanted to open his mouth to catch his breath, but unexpectedly, the first thing he spat out was a mouthful of blood. The Dharma form's roar was already hoarse. The Dharma form that was condensed from Lu Ping's life essence and bloodline seemed weak under the raging lightning. However, at this moment, there was a flash of golden light in the Dharma form's lower jaw, and it slowly absorbed and dissolved the power of the thunder tribulations. This was where the reverse scale of the Dharma form was, and it was very likely that this reverse scale was a scale that fell off from Jiao Doran's true spirit. The 9 foundation arrays that were originally recorded by Jiao Doran had now become the key for the Dharma form to resist and refine the pure yang thunder tribulations. As for the sword of true spirit, it had been hiding in the core space to enjoy the fruits of others' labor. At this moment, it was facing the pure yang lightning tribulation with ease. It transformed into a flood dragon that was similar to the Dharma power of the dragon. It swam around in the pure yang lightning tribulation and spat out lightning. However, the 8th bolt of lightning was completely absorbed by Lu Ping, and the last bolt of pure yang thunder tribulations had already fallen. This time, Lu Ping did not feel like there was lightning falling from the sky. Instead, it felt like he was being sucked into the pure yang tribulation cloud in the sky, giving off a feeling that space was being flipped. Lu Ping seemed to have fallen into a world of lightning, and he was constantly being attacked by the raging lightning. At this moment, Lu Ping's physical body had reached its limit. His skin and flesh had already turned black and cracked, giving off a burnt smell. There was no more blood to spit out from his mouth, as if it had been roasted by the lightning. The intense pain had even made Lu Ping numb. He wanted to open his mouth to shout, but he found that there was no sound coming from his mouth. The Dharma form of true spirit was entrenched in the void. Under the attack of the pure yang thunder tribulations, it was also on the verge of death. It no longer had the energy to move around and could only curl up there passively to absorb the power of pure yang. The pure yang pearl and reverse scale were still trying their best to absorb and refine the pure yang thunder tribulations, but it was obvious that they were unable to do so. Only the sword of true spirit still had some strength to struggle, and it was still trying its best to swim in the world of thunder tribulations. However, no matter how one looked at it, it was like a fish out of water, and it was already at the end of its flight. The ninth bolt of tribulation thunder tribulations was still wreaking havoc. At this rate, before the tribulation thunder tribulations dissipated, Lu Ping would already be at the end of his rope. However, in the face of such a desperate situation, Lu Ping struggled to point his finger, which was about to be roasted by the tribulation thunder tribulations, towards his chest. Boom! Like a river bursting through its banks, surging water instantly rang out in Lu Ping's body. His dry and cracked body was instantly nourished by the torrent of water in his body. His wounds were healing and his body was recovering. In an instant, Lu Ping's body was once again full of life. The Dharma form of true spirit, which was on the verge of death, suddenly raised its head when it heard the sound of flowing water. It saw Lu Ping pointing towards the Dharma form of true spirit. The Dharma form of true spirit seemed to be instantly infused with a powerful life force, and it immediately regained its former vigor and vigor. It once again began to move about in the world of thunder tribulations. At this moment, the sword of true spirit was like a fish that had jumped into the water. It regained its former cheerfulness and swam freely in the tribulation thunder tribulations. For the past 100 years, Lu Ping had been swimming and training in the Qingming and Yulin River basins. One of the reasons was that he wanted to use his own life essence to nurture more life essence water and expand the tribulation sea in his core space. He wanted to set up a backup plan for the pure yang tribulation thunder tribulations today. And today, at the most critical and dangerous moment of the pure yang tribulation thunder tribulations, the tribulation's divine water really became the key to turning the situation around. With the nourishment of the tribulation's divine water, Lu Ping broke through the world of thunder tribulations in one fell swoop. The tribulation clouds in the sky were about to dissipate, and the air was filled with heavenly dew along with the thick pure yang qi. Lu Ping and the Dharma form of true spirit happily absorbed the heavenly dew to recover their inner yuan and injuries. At the same time, the sword of true spirit refined the pure yang qi in the surroundings. At the same time, Lu Ping did not wait for the remaining tribulation clouds in the sky to dissipate. He threw the 7 treasures thunder calabash into the air and absorbed all the remaining tribulation clouds and lightning power that had yet to dissipate into the calabash. Lu Ping's pure yang tribulation thunder tribulations were so powerful that it could be said to be unique in the world of cultivation. Therefore he also refined the pure yang qi in the end and absorbed a huge amount of heavenly dew. Lu Ping had taken a huge risk, but at the last moment he finally received a huge reward. The sword of true spirit flew around Lu Ping happily. This was Lu Ping's second pure yang spiritual treasure. At the same time, it was also Lu Ping's personal spiritual treasure. After going through 3 tribulations with his Dharma form, Lu Ping could even feel that he and Emoli were connected by blood. After going through the pure yang tribulation thunder tribulations, Lu Ping finally achieved pure yang cultivation and became an existence that stood at the top of this world. Although Lu Ping already had the status of a pure yang cultivator before this, only when he truly reached the height of a pure yang cultivator could Lu Ping truly feel that he was so close to the end of this world. In the unseen world, Lu Ping felt as if he was bound by a huge cage, and he instinctively wanted to break through this fence and rush out of this world to take a look. However, Lu Ping also knew that this feeling was not real. At the very least, the current Lu Ping had not yet broken away from the true strength of this world. This instinctive feeling pointed out the direction that Lu Ping needed to work hard in, and that was to break through the shackles of this world. Just like the soaring dragon galaxy technique that Lu Ping cultivated, the endless starry sky was perhaps the limit that Lu Ping wanted to pursue. Northern Ice Plains. Chapter 1469. The surging pure yang qi and the large amount of heavenly flower dew that fell from the sky surrounded Lu Ping. At this time, Lu Ping was like a bottomless abyss, swallowing all the pure yang qi and heavenly flower dew. Lu Ping's body was surging with vitality, and his injuries were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Outside the Yingyu swamp, the void suddenly shrank and collapsed, forming a circular door. Then, a middle-aged cultivator with a slightly blank expression stepped out of the door. Looking around, the cultivator seemed to be feeling the surrounding pure yang qi, and then he said, "It should be here." I don't know which cultivator could cause such a big movement. It seems that he has passed the tribulation successfully, but he shouldn't have left yet. In the swamp, Lu Ping, who had just advanced to the pure yang level, was working hard to refine and stabilize the last trace of pure yang qi in his body. He frowned, and at the same time, the inner yuan around his body surged like a river, but he was on guard. At this time, someone had actually rushed to the Yingyu swamp, and from the aura captured by Lu Ping's divine will, the person's cultivation should be at least of the pure yang level. But the strange thing was, although Lu Ping's tribulation had passed, the aura of the tribulation was still there. Cultivators above the Dharma plane would definitely not dare to go near the Yingyu swamp at this time. This was also the reason why Lu Ping was at ease refining pure yang qi here to recover from his injuries and stabilize his cultivation. But now, there was a cultivator who was at least of the pure yang level who had come to the Yingyu swamp, but the aura of the tribulation in the air of the Yingyu swamp did not pose the slightest threat, and the person who had come did not seem to care at all. Lu Ping's heart trembled and he opened his eyes. Green and red light burst out, and he looked into the depths of the fog of the Yingyu swamp. The middle-aged cultivator seemed to be moving slowly but was actually moving quickly towards the area with the densest aura of tribulation. At this moment, he seemed to have sensed something and said, "Hey, have I been discovered? It seems that this person is really extraordinary. The old man was not as good as him back then. What should I do?" Lu Ping took a deep breath. This breath was long enough to even force the air around him to become chaotic. And Lu Ping, who originally looked a little tired because of the thunder tribulation, suddenly looked full of energy, as if the pure yang thunder tribulation did not have the slightest effect on him. Lu Ping suddenly opened his mouth towards the depths of the swamp and said, "Since you're already here, why don't you come out and meet me? Ah, please don't get me wrong. I'm Guangyuan Laozu from Wuxia School. May I know your name?" The fog in the swamp began to disperse, and the middle-aged cultivator walked out with a smile on his face. When he saw Lu Ping from afar, there seemed to be a trace of surprise on his face. He did not expect that Lu Ping would look so young. When a cultivator's cultivation reaches a certain level, although they can often change their appearance, they can't change the vitality in their body. Brilliant cultivators can usually determine a cultivator's cultivation career through the amount of vitality that a cultivator emits. The moment the middle-aged cultivator saw Lu Ping, he was startled at first, then shocked. He unconsciously slowed down his steps towards Lu Ping, and at the same time the aura around him changed slightly. These changes that happened inadvertently to the middle-aged cultivator were now clearly seen by Lu Ping's divine sense. The corners of Lu Ping's mouth rose slightly and he said, "It seems that you've guessed my identity. Fellow Taoist from Wuxia School. Ha, you've never been on good terms with me." At this time, the middle-aged cultivator was already standing tens of feet away from Lu Ping. At this time the aura around him suddenly relaxed for some reason. He said with a smile, "To have such great achievements at such a young age and also have a grudge against the cultivators of our sect, you must naturally be the rising star of the cultivation world, the North Sea Water Sword Immortal, Lu Tianping." Lu Ping said with a smile, "In front of you, how dare I call myself a Sword Immortal?" The middle-aged cultivator looked surprised and he said, "Oh, do you know who I am?" Lu Ping said seriously, "I've seen the pure yang cultivators of your sect, but I've never seen you before. However, your cultivation at the peak of pure yang cannot be faked. I've just gone through the thunder tribulation, and the power of the thunder tribulation has yet to dissipate, but you actually entered the area where I was going through the thunder tribulation so easily. All in all, could it be that you're the supreme Laozu of Wuxia School? But I don't think it's your real body. Is this body a puppet or an incarnation? Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to ignore the power of the thunder tribulation. You should still be in the spirit space of Wuxia School." The middle-aged cultivator's eyes flickered with surprise and he said, "It seems that the 9 mystical towers inherited secret technique has really fallen into your hands. I didn't expect you to know so much." Lu Ping did not comment on this and instead asked, "Did you come to the abundant jade swamp to kill me?" The supreme master of 5 elements, Guangyuan Laozu, smiled and shook his head and said, "The old man actually came here because of the thunder tribulation that you summoned. Such a large-scale pure yang thunder tribulation is indeed something that the old man has never seen in his life. The old man thought about it, and I'm afraid the only explanation is that you've gone through the pure yang thunder tribulation together with your natal spiritual treasure. If the old man didn't come to investigate such a grand occasion, I'm afraid he would regret it for the rest of his life. It really is the real spirit of Wuxia school, Laozu. I'm very lucky. Guangyuan Laozu ignored Lu Ping's words and continued, the pure yang thunder tribulation is summoned together with the natal spiritual treasure's pure yang thunder tribulation. The power of the thunder tribulation is not as simple as 1 plus 1. Under such circumstances, the old man is really amazed that you can go through it safely. Lu Ping sneered and said, Senior, you may admire me, but I'm afraid you're more regretful now, right? Guangyuan Laozu nodded and admitted, it's a pity that the old man's real body can't leave the 5 elements cave. Otherwise the old man would definitely kill you. Lu Ping didn't care at all. Instead he smiled and said, Senior, you've already made your move. I'm afraid the pure yang thunder tribulation of Wuxia school has already received the news and is rushing here. But I'm a little curious. Senior, are you really sure you can hold me here? Guangyuan Laozu smiled and said, although you've tried your best to suppress it, the old man can still guess that the pure yang thunder tribulation has still caused you serious injuries. The North Sea water sword immortal is a genius. If you were in good condition, the old man's puppet body might not be able to stop you even though it has the strength of a peak pure yang cultivator. But now it's hard to say. Well then let me ask the real spirit Laozu about the power of the divine sense in battle with his pure yang cultivation. As you wish. As soon as Wu Guangyun's voice fell, his left hand was already moving toward Lu Ping and he shouted, freeze! The surrounding void suddenly compressed, trying to imprison Lu Ping in a narrow space, unable to move. A thick ball of pure yang qi suddenly burst out of Lu Ping's body, and he shouted, break! As Lu Ping let out a sound wave, the pure yang qi that burst out suddenly fluctuated in a strange rhythm, and in an instant the surrounding void shattered and loosened. Lu Ping regained his freedom, and he immediately took a step forward, wanting to leave this place. Where do you think you're going? Guangyuan Laozu shouted, and the surrounding spiritual qi suddenly divided into yellow, green, blue, red and gold bands of light, weaving into ropes and wrapping around Lu Ping's body. Lu Ping laughed, and in his core space, a round pure yang pearl was being refined by the Dharma form of dragon above the floating sea. The 9-leaf samling 5-element leaf in the center was still vivid and lifelike, and traces of spiritual qi from the pure yang pearl were absorbed by the pure yang pearl. Then Lu Ping waved his sleeve, and the 5 colored bands of light immediately returned to chaos, and Lu Ping walked through them as if there was no one around. Guangyuan Laozu was very surprised. He didn't think that his 5-element divine sense would be so easily dissolved by Lu Ping, and even Guangyuan Laozu was a bit discouraged. He wondered if his guess about how to cultivate after the 5-element divine sense was wrong, and if his years of studying the 5-element divine sense was wrong. Thinking of this, Guangyuan Laozu's face darkened. He formed a few hand seals and shouted, burn! Lu Ping's expression changed. This was the void fire condensed from the fire attribute divine sense. It was also invisible and colorless, but it could directly burn through the void. It was impossible to defend against but also impossible to avoid. At this moment it was closing in on Lu Ping. Guangyuan Laozu smiled proudly and said, Lu Daoyu, what do you think of the old man's move? Lu Ping was still floating in the void, and his expression didn't change. Guangyuan Laozu's smile froze on his face and he snorted coldly. Suddenly the flame fell on Lu Ping, who was standing still in the void. With a chi-la sound, a cloud of mist rose, and Lu Tianping turned into a puddle of water. Before it could fall to the ground, it was burned completely by the void fire. Guangyuan Laozu was about to recall the void fire and look for Lu Ping again, when a cloud of mist suddenly fell and wrapped around the void fire. If Wu Guangyun hadn't seen it in time and recalled the void fire with his space divine sense, his natal spiritual fire would have been extinguished by the triple light sacred water. Guangyuan Laozu's expression turned ugly. He originally thought that although he was only fighting as a pure yang puppet, with the guidance of true spirit Laozu's consciousness, he was not weaker than those experienced pure yang cultivators. Moreover, he only needed to try his best to delay Lu Tianping. Guangyuan Laozu also used this ingenious method to seize the initiative. Although it was dangerous, it didn't waste too much of his real essence. All it consumed was the cultivator's mind. This was a test of the cultivator's control of their own Zhen Yuan and the techniques they cast. This was supposed to be Guangyuan Grand Ancestor's forte since he couldn't use his full strength, but he didn't expect that he couldn't even gain the upper hand against Lu Ping. Lu Ping used the triple light sacred water as a medium to cast the art of traveling through clouds and summoning rain to cast a curtain of rain in front of him, blocking Guangyuan Laozu's pursuit. Lu Ping laughed and said, "See you later." Then he disappeared in midair. Guangyuan Laozu's laughter suddenly came from behind him. He said, "Fine. In that case, old man will send Lu Daoyu off." Lu Ping's expression changed slightly. He felt a huge force coming from the void behind him, making it impossible for Lu Ping to dodge. He had no choice but to take the blow. Lu Ping felt a sweetness in his throat. His internal organs had been injured, but he used this force to fly forward faster. He completely broke away from Guangyuan Laozu, and Guangyuan Laozu couldn't catch up with him. "I will remember what Senior has given me. I will repay you in the future." Guangyuan Laozu sneered. "If you have the ability, go to Wuxing School and look for old man." Unexpectedly, as soon as Guangyuan Laozu finished speaking, two blade lights suddenly shot out from the void. Without a sound, they flew towards Guangyuan Laozu's direction. Divine Water Talisman, Spirit Treasure Halves. Guangyuan Laozu was shocked and hurriedly jumped back. Guangyuan Laozu was Guangyuan after all. He was able to block the Spirit Treasure Halves. However, Guangyuan Laozu's sleeves were torn in two. Pieces of gray cloth fluttered in the air like gray butterflies. Guangyuan Laozu stood in the middle of the lush jade swamp and looked in the direction where Lu Ping had left. After a long time, he let out a long sigh and said, "I don't know if this is a blessing or a curse. However, the old man probably won't be able to see it. It seems that I will have to find a heavenly abode of human Tao as soon as possible to accept the inheritance. If something unexpected happens in the future and I have to leave this world early, my sect will have no successor. This will give people with ulterior motives an opportunity to take advantage of. The 9 Profound Tower is a good example." Not long after Lu Ping left, several rays of light came from the south and landed in the lush jade swamp. Guangyuan Laozu had already confirmed their identities the moment they entered the swamp. He smiled bitterly and said, "You are too late. He has already left." Chapter 1470. In fact, the difference between Lu Ping and Guangyuan Laozu's incarnation was not as big as it seemed. Lu Ping had experienced it himself. However, it was obvious that Guangyuan Laozu's control over the pure young cultivator's power was much better. In this aspect, Lu Ping was also quite good at it. However, after he had just become a pure young cultivator, his power had skyrocketed, and the injuries and mental exhaustion caused by the Thunder Trial made it impossible for Lu Ping to fully unleash the power of a pure young cultivator. That was why he was at a disadvantage in the battle against Guangyuan Laozu. The fire spirit saw Guangyuan Laozu and asked, "Master, is that really Lu Tianping? I didn't expect him to be hiding here. Master, have you fought with him before? How is his power?" Guangyuan Laozu looked at him and the 2 pure young cultivators behind him and said, "In the future, do not make him your enemy. If you meet him alone, you must avoid him." The fire spirit was a little unwilling. Is this man really that powerful? Even Master couldn't defeat him? Guangyuan Laozu glanced at him and said, "This man's potential is even higher than Xiao Baiyu's. Plus, he should have 2 pure young spirit treasures." 2 pure young spirit treasures? The fire spirit and the others all exclaimed. "I'm afraid one of them is the life treasure that he used to go through the pure young thunder trial with." Guangyuan Laozu sighed and said, "When we meet again in the future, when this man's power is stable, I'm afraid that even the old man's puppet body won't be able to defeat him. Plus, the old man's puppet body can't move too far away. It can only move within 3,000 miles of our sect. Unless his real body comes out, the most he can do is to protect our sect's territory." Shui Lingzi and the others hurriedly thanked him in shame. "We are incompetent as pure young cultivators, we still need Martial Uncle's help." Guangyuan Laozu waved his hand and said, "This world has never lacked geniuses, but it has always been difficult to continue. What our sect needs to do is to ensure that the true spirit's inheritance continues and that the treasured cauldron of heaven and earth is not lost. Then the position of the Holy Land will last forever. Although there will be heroes for a time, it will be difficult to touch the foundation of our sect for eternity." The fire spirit bowed and said, "Master, you are right. However, that Lu Tianping has quite a grudge against us. A few potential 3rd-generation direct disciples were all killed by him. What should we do?" Guangyuan Laozu smiled and said, "Then just support him to become a true spirit as soon as possible." The other pure yang cultivators were shocked, not knowing what was going on. Guangyuan Laozu smiled and said, "Now that the 9 profound towers small thousand world is in Xiao Baiyu's hands, even if that Lu Tianping also obtained the true spirit's inheritance and the secret of forming a small thousand world, how will he be able to obtain the small thousand world before he becomes a true spirit?" Shui Lingzi suddenly understood and said, "Without the protection of the small thousand world, even if that Lu Tianping becomes a true spirit, he will not be able to be accepted by this world. He can only be like the other geniuses from the other sects and have no choice but to go to the North Ice Field and leave this world." Guangyuan Laozu nodded and said with a smile, "Exactly. In fact, when those geniuses appear in the world of cultivation, the 6 holy lands have always been suppressing them. If they can't suppress them, they will indulge them. They will even secretly help them increase their cultivation in order to make them leave this world as soon as possible so that they can no longer pose a threat to the status of the 6 holy lands." Guangyuan Laozu sighed and said, "Unfortunately, no matter how much we calculated, we still couldn't predict Xiao Baiyu's future. We also didn't expect that the 9 profound tower would encounter the calamity of Mara and suffer great losses, giving Xiao Baiyu and the others the opportunity to take advantage of. Since the beginning of the world, the 9 profound tower is probably the first sect to have to give up its position as a holy land. Then, martial uncle, how should we treat Xiao Baiyu and Skyrend who is behind him?" Guangyuan Laozu pondered and said, "If we can't get rid of Xiao Baiyu when he is in the pure yang state, then when he becomes a true spirit, we will treat Skyrend as a holy land. I think this is also the intention of the other sects." Guangyuan Laozu's words were actually a declaration that he had accepted Skyrend as a holy land. After all, it was not that easy to kill Xiao Baiyu. For the past 100 years, the cultivation world could not even deal with Lu Tianping, who had not yet reached the pure yang state, let alone Xiao Baiyu. This did not include 8th Sister Zhu, who was by his side. Lu Ping did not know that Wuxing School's strategy towards him had changed. When the incident at the lush jade swamp spread throughout the cultivation world, perhaps the other 4 holy lands' attitudes towards Lu Ping would also change. Although Lu Ping found it strange that Guangyuan Laozu could have a puppet incarnation at the peak of pure yang, when he thought about the fact that Longhuai Ancestor also had a similar puppet incarnation, he did not find it too strange. The only thing that surprised Lu Ping was that Guangyuan Laozu did not pursue him after he left the lush jade swamp. Based on the situation at that time, although Guangyuan Laozu could not do anything to Lu Ping, it could still chase him all the way. Or could it be that Guangyuan Laozu's incarnation could not travel as far as Longhuai Ancestor? Speaking of Longhuai Ancestor, Lu Ping had now advanced to the pure yang state. It seemed that after he was ready, he would go to the East Sea's secret place to see if he could help Longhuai Ancestor break the firmament poison. However, with Longhuai Ancestor's strength, once he was free from the firmament poison, would he become a pure yang or a real spirit? Although Lu Ping had tried to figure out Longhuai Ancestor's true strength several times, as his cultivation increased and his experience broadened, the impression that Longhuai Ancestor had left on him became more and more unfathomable. Lu Ping sneaked all the way north. Along the way he was not in a hurry. Instead, he carefully inquired about the current situation of the North Sea's cultivation world. If Jinling really became a sacred land in the future, then the chaotic Hebei cultivation world would obviously become a springboard for Jinling to expand his forces deep into the Central Plains. Although the narrow North Sea's cultivation world had created a unique and safe environment for Jinling, it also restricted Jinling's further expansion of forces at the same time. It could be said to be a double-edged sword. To solve this problem, Jinling had already started to make arrangements long ago, which was to go south to the East Sea and west to the Central Plains. Although the East Sea's cultivation world was vast and rich, it was now divided up by the local forces. Although Jinling had consolidated his foothold in the fallen secret land, it would not be easy for him to expand again. Putting aside the fact that Crystal Palace was the dominant force in the East Sea, even large sects like Purple Talisman Pavilion, Gale Thunder Island, and Carefree Pavilion were not easy to deal with. Moreover, Skyrend was increasingly recognized as the new 6th sacred land in the cultivation world. The newly established Luo Xn sect also had a pure yang cultivator, Linyu Laozu, who should not be underestimated. This was especially so for Skyrend and Crystal Palace. With the rise of Skyrend, there would definitely be a fierce battle between the two sections. The entire East Sea could not even be divided among them. At this time, Jinling was on the same side as Skyrend. However, once Skyrend became the new sacred land, the relationship between them would probably have to be redefined. At that time, Jinling, who was an outsider, would more or less become an eyesore. He might even become the target of public criticism. Under such circumstances, Yingshan Side Courtyard was extremely important to Junling. If Junling wanted to protect this bridgehead that was secretly going deep into the central plains, other than secretly increasing the strength of the side courtyard, he also had to act as the driving force behind the scenes to maintain the current chaotic state of the Hebei cultivation world, which was without a leader. He had to make preparations to invade the central plains in one fell swoop in the future. This was undoubtedly an extremely risky plan. Once Yingshan Side Courtyard was exposed, not only would the entire Hebei cultivation world immediately unite to resist Junling's invasion, even the Wuxia School, Supreme Profound Sect, Cloud Sky Pavilion, Huda Sect, and other sects outside the Hebei cultivation world would definitely unite to repel Junling's invasion. Even allies like the Heavenly Profound Sect and the Heavenly Moon Sect might turn against each other because of this. That would be like going for wool and coming home shorn. Thus, Yingshan Side Courtyard could be said to be a risky move by Junling. Over the past few years, Junling could be said to be treading on thin ice when it came to secretly managing Yingshan Side Courtyard. It was already 3 months after he arrived at Yingshan Side Courtyard. The gains from the pure Yang Thunder Tribulation had clearly far exceeded Lu Ping's expectations. Now, not only had Lu Ping fully recovered from his injuries, he had not gone into closed-door training for the past 3 months, but his cultivation was still rapidly stabilizing. Lu Ping's rapid adaptation to the pure Yang cultivation caused his strength to increase rapidly every moment. The current Yingshan Side Courtyard had more than doubled in terms of both scale and strength compared to before. Now, among the few powers in the Yingshan district, their strength was not weak either. At the very least, Yingshan Side Courtyard had 3 early Dharma adepts on the surface. Thus, over the past few years, Yingshan Side Courtyard could be said to have expanded its territory in the northern region of the Hebei cultivation world. Its sphere of influence had rapidly expanded, and the number of disciples in the side courtyard had also increased. Lu Ping could guess that Junling's expansion in the North Sea had reached its peak. Over the past few years in the East Sea, the few pure Yang adepts of the 5 major sects would not appear unless it was a matter of life and death. Faced with the overt and covert suppression from the various powers in the Central Plains and the East Sea, the 5 major sects had no choice but to adopt a conservative and defensive stance. Thus, the expansion of their own strength was similarly restrained. Under such circumstances, in the past 100 years, Junling had no choice but to focus part of his energy on the Yingshan Side Courtyard in the Central Plains. In order to not attract the attention of the various sects in the Central Plains, although Junling had the intention to expand, he had no choice but to be careful. After more than 100 years of secret planning, he had finally managed to bring half of the Yingshan mountain range under the control of the side courtyard. This became an important supplement for Junling to strengthen his own foundation. Lu Ping's arrival naturally did not alarm anyone in the Yingshan side courtyard. However, when Tian Hui, who was currently in charge of the side courtyard, saw Lu Ping suddenly appear in the restricted area of the side courtyard, she was pleasantly surprised. 100 years had passed, but Tian Hui was still at the early Dharma stage. This was already the second time she had been in charge of the Yingshan side courtyard. When she saw Lu Ping return, she immediately realized something and exclaimed in surprise, "Junior brother, you have already advanced to the pure Yang stage." Could it be that the pure Yang lightning tribulation that had spread like wildfire in the Yingyu swamp was because of you, junior brother? Lu Ping smiled and said, "That's right. I am now a pure Yang cultivator." Tian Hui hurriedly said seriously, "Then junior brother, do you have any instructions for coming to the side courtyard this time?" Lu Ping smiled and said, "It's not that I have any instructions. I just want to return to the North Sea." Return to the North Sea? Tian Hui was both surprised and delighted. Didn't junior brother and the other pure Yang cultivators not show their faces in the cultivation world? How come now? Lu Ping said, "Don't worry, senior sister. Now, no pure Yang cultivator in the cultivation world would dare to provoke me. Moreover, I am not returning to the North Sea with great fanfare. There are some things that I must plan at this time. Although I will not deliberately keep it a secret, there is no need to deliberately reveal my whereabouts." Tian Hui nodded and said, "I understand. When are you leaving, junior brother?" "I'm not in a hurry." Lu Ping waved his hand and said, "Senior sister, tell me about the current situation of our sect. I heard that in the past 100 years, our sect has also suffered some losses." Tian Hui sighed and said, "Uncle Qianlu has reached the end of his lifespan. He passed away a few years ago." Chapter 1471. After Qianlu Laozu passed away, the first generation of Jinling's cultivators was left with only Tianxiang Laozu and Tianshui Laozu. Among the first generation of Jinling's cultivators, the one who helped Lu Ping the most was Qianlu Laozu. It was because of Laozu's selfless help that Lu Ping was able to complete the continuous improvement of his cultivation and strength while he was still in the core forging stage. Before Jinling's sect was ready to become a large sect, the Fornax ancestor began to gradually fade away from the ranks of the core cultivators of Jinling's sect. It even made people wonder if Jinling's sect was keeping the Fornax ancestor's death a secret. In fact, the Fornax ancestor had put all his energy into the restoration of Tianling Mountain, silently contributing to Jinling's sect. Once he succeeded, he would create a foundation for Jinling's sect for eternity. Counting the first generation of Jinling's cultivators, there were 6 Laozu. After Tiankang Laozu advanced to the mid-Dharma stage, he fought for Jinling's vanguard. Even when his lifespan was exhausted and he passed away, he passed on his Dharma soul to his descendants. In order to build Jinling's treasured ship, Tianjiang Laozu worked day and night. When the treasured ship set sail, he was already at the end of his rope. It was the same for Qianlu Laozu. Tianshui and Tianfan Laozu were the strongest barriers for Jinling's rise. Until Tianfan Laozu fell in the Central Plains, Tianshui Laozu originally had the will to die, but because Jinling had faced many difficulties, he had no choice but to stay in the world. As for Tianxiang Laozu, needless to say, the reason why Jinling could prosper today could be said that Tianxiang Laozu was the true spiritual pillar of Jinling and the driving force behind the scenes. Lu Ping once asked himself, he was like the sun in the sky in Jinling and even in the entire cultivation world. However, did he treat his own sect wholeheartedly like the 6 first-generation Laozu? Indeed, Lu Ping's contribution to Jinling was unquestionable. In terms of contribution, Lu Ping dared to say that no one in the entire sect could surpass him. However, the size of one's contribution was not only determined by one's loyalty to the sect, but also the level of a cultivator's ability. Most of Lu Ping's contribution was determined by the latter. Lu Ping asked himself if he was like Tianjiang and Qianlu Laozu, who were willing to give up everything for the rest of their lives for the sake of their beliefs, or even their lives for the sake of the sect. He might not be able to do it. If it was Tianshui Laozu or Tianxiang Laozu, Lu Ping did not doubt that the two of them would definitely be able to do it. This was the true difference between him and the 6 Laozu. In Yingshan Courtyard, he recorded everything he had seen and heard about the various forces in Hebei's cultivation world for Tianhui and the rest to refer to. Only then did Lu Ping return to the North Sea through the super long-distance teleportation array under the courtyard's back cliff with a heavy heart. 100 years later, although Jinling had suffered a lot of suppression outside the North Sea, within the North Sea, Jinling's power had only increased. Under Jinling's strong oppression, the various sects' sphere of influence had already been compressed to the extreme. This was especially so when the Haiyan sect and Shuiyan Pavilion colluded with the North Sea Demon Clan and launched a sneak attack when the North Sea Demon Clan was launching a beast wave, causing Jinling a lot of losses. Unexpectedly, Mei Tianqin suddenly successfully passed the second lightning tribulation at the critical moment and then launched a bloody revenge on the two sections. The two sects were ranked in the top 5 in the North Sea back then, and they were almost beaten down from medium-sized sects to small forces by Mei Tianqin. Due to the existence of a super long-distance teleportation formation and the fact that Universe Island was becoming more and more desolate, Lu Tianling had long since used all sorts of tricks to seize the sea near Universe Island and put it within Jinling's sect's sphere of influence. Although Lu Ping's return was not announced with great fanfare, all the Dharma adepts still received the news. After Tai Shin Laozu, the appearance of Jinling's first pure young adept in 6,000 years had undoubtedly raised the morale of everyone in Jinling. After greeting the elders of the sect, his companions and old friends, Lu Ping sat together with the 4 great adepts, Tian Xiang, Jiang Tianlin, Mei Tianqin and Lu Tianling. Now that Jinling's status had risen again and again, the cultivation of the high-level adepts had increased again and again, and the hierarchy of power had also changed accordingly. Now, as the ones with the greatest authority in Jinling, there was no doubt that these 5 people were gathered together. Among them, Lu Ping usually did not participate in the specific matters, but all his power was placed on the head of the sect, Lu Tianling. Therefore, Lu Tianling's power had naturally increased greatly, and the head of Jinling was naturally respected. Seeing that Lu Ping had returned safely, everyone was naturally happy, but Tianxiang Laozu said, although the matter at the 9 Mystical Tower was successful, it was too dangerous. Now, a large part of the sect's honor and disgrace rests on you, so in the future, you must not take such a risk again. Lu Ping knew that Tianxiang Laozu really cared about him, so he hurriedly thanked him respectfully. Only then did he tell the four great adepts about the 9 mystical tower from beginning to end. Although Yin Tianchu had already brought most of what Lu Ping had obtained from the 9 mystical tower back to the North Sea, the most important small harvest had always been with Lu Ping. Although the four of them had already made many guesses about Lu Ping's true harvest in the 9 mystical tower, there was no lack of optimistic guesses that all of the inheritance of the 9 mystical tower was in Lu Ping's hands. But when Lu Ping really took out all of the harvest from the 9 mystical tower, the four Laozu were indescribably excited. The 9 mystical tower's complete inheritance of the past generations, a large amount of extremely high-quality cultivation resources and several rare treasures. With these things in hand, Junling could try to establish a foundation for a Holy Land sect. When Lu Ping took out the 9 dragon bell and told Junling that he had truly obtained the true spirit inheritance of the 9 mystical tower, the four great adepts couldn't help but cry out in excitement. Even though they had already thought highly of Lu Ping, when Lu Ping really appeared according to their expectations, the four great adepts found it hard to believe. Junling was a large sect that had been established for less than 200 years. How could he suddenly covet the qualifications to become a Holy Land sect? In the end, Celestial Phenomenon Laozu's temperament was a level higher than everyone else's, and he was the first to recover from this strange atmosphere. He coughed softly and asked, "Boy Lu, do you have anything to say about this true spirit inheritance? What rules does the 9 mystical tower have for it? Tell us first." Lu Ping sighed inwardly. Celestial Phenomenon Laozu's eyes were as sharp as a torch. He was able to detect the crux of the true spirit inheritance from just a few words. If this was not handled well, it could really be the root of the sect's destruction. 8th Sister Zhu of the 9 mystical tower, Heaven Splitter, Profound Sky, and the other large sect's founders were no exception. After Lu Ping explained the rules and the pros and cons to the four great adepts, the four of them inevitably fell into silence. In every generation, only one person had the qualifications to become a true spirit and enter the Minor Thousand World. This rule was inevitably unfair to other cultivators. Even for Junling, which of the four great adepts present didn't have the intention to become a true spirit. But now that Junling had Lu Ping, it meant that if Junling really had the qualifications, then at least the four great adepts present, regardless of whether it was possible or not, had already lost the chance to become a true spirit. This was because none of them would compete with Lu Ping. They didn't have the qualifications to compete and they couldn't win. Not only did they not have the qualifications to compete, even the 4th or 5th generation of cultivators might not even have the qualifications to inherit the true spirit inheritance after Lu Ping. It had to be known that Lu Ping had only cultivated for 400 years. Once he became a true spirit, Lu Ping would have at least 1,300 to 500 years of lifespan. If he hid in the Minor Thousand World and didn't come out, it would be enough to exhaust 2 generations of Junling. At this time, Lu Ping could only remain silent. He knew this rule was a bit cruel to the pure young cultivators who also had the potential to become true spirit realm cultivators. But from the perspective of the sect's long-term heritage, it was undeniable. After all, if the entire sect focused their power to promote one true spirit realm cultivator, it would be a virtuous cycle for the sect. But if they promoted 2 true spirit realm cultivators at the same time, it would consume the sect's vitality. For the sake of the sect's development, they could only make this choice. Seeing that the atmosphere was becoming more and more depressing, Heavenly Phenomenon Laozu couldn't help but chuckle. Seeing that everyone was looking at him in surprise, Heavenly Phenomenon Laozu said, "Whether or not our sect can have an unbroken true spirit inheritance like the 6 great holy lands no longer depends on the inheritance itself, but on the Minor Thousand World. According to the inheritance of the 9 profound tower, it will take at least 1,000 years for our sect's best treasure, the abundant void treasure mirror, to condense the 9th treasure restriction, and then accumulate the foundation to summon the lightning tribulation. After 1,000 years, not only will our lifespans be exhausted, even little Lu himself will not be able to wait to become a true spirit and go to the northern ice plains. Moreover, the possibility of creating a Minor Thousand World by himself is much lower than the possibility of creating a spirit treasure. It's laughable that his mind has been disturbed by a true spirit inheritance." Everyone felt ashamed for a moment. After all, the temptation of becoming a true spirit was great. Even Jiang Tianlin, Mei Tianqin, and the others found it difficult to control themselves. At the same time, they were wary of Lu Ping's story about the division of the sect. In fact, this was also Heavenly Phenomenon Laozu's goal. As for the matter of a Minor Thousand World, Jinling naturally wouldn't take it seriously and condense a minor thousand world. It was almost impossible. Since everyone has enough understanding of this true spirit inheritance, we should now speed up the pace of planning for the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven. Otherwise, when little Lu becomes a true spirit, we won't have a minor thousand world to reside in. Wouldn't our sect suffer a great loss? Heavenly phenomenon. Laozu's words made everyone smile, and they all focused their attention on the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven. Although the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven was called a Grotto Heaven, it was actually a genuine minor thousand world. 5 of the 7 great divinities who created the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven were true spirits Laozu, and the remaining 2 were pure yang cultivators. The rare treasures they collected still benefited the cultivators of the various sects in the North Sea. Lu Ping had gained a lot in the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven back then. His amethyst wasp Dao soldier and protective magic power, as well as the mysterious myriad poison source liquid, all came from there. Now, it's not just our sect that wants to plot for the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven. The Yuan family and the Lu family from the Middle Earth have both been found to have sent cultivators to the sea where the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven has appeared. Chapter 1472. After paying respects to Fornax Laozu, who had passed away in meditation in the True Spirit Grotto Heaven, Lu Ping returned to Huangli Island. Skyfox was already waiting for him on the island. Although the area of Huangli Island had not increased at all, and it was still a level lower than a medium-sized island, the island was almost the most prosperous in the North Sea. Especially decades ago when the North Sea demon tribe attacked Jinling with a beast tide, they were defeated by Jinling and were forced to sign an alliance with Jinling. The demon tribe began to trade with the human race, but the location was not in the Xinhai demon tribe, but Huangli Island. Many rare treasures produced by the Deep Sea demon tribe were bought by Jinling at a low price every year, and the rest were sold or traded at a normal price on Huangli Island. At first, the demon tribe was only forced to trade for the New Year's coins after their defeat. Later, the demon tribe quickly traded with each other and gained many benefits. Later, more and more demon tribe cultivators swarmed into Huangli Island before and after the trade. Later, there would be demon tribe cultivators going to Huangli Island to trade. Even the North Sea demon tribe was not limited to the East Sea demon tribe. The East Sea demon tribe gradually appeared in the North Sea, especially the Green Sea snakes. Because of their good relationship with Lu Ping, the cooperation between the two sides was very pleasant. Before Lu Ping went to the Central Plains to plan the 9 Mysteries Tower, Lu Ping sent Samling back to the East Sea to receive the full inheritance of the Green Sea snakes. With Lu Ping's current status and power in the cultivation world, Lu Ping was qualified to be Samling's follower. He was not afraid that the Green Sea snakes would not let him go. After the incident at the 9 Mysteries Tower, Lu Ping's status in the cultivation world rose to a higher level. Now that he had successfully advanced to the pure yang stage, the Green Sea snakes naturally had no reason to reject Samling as their follower. The monster race began to make peaceful contact with the human race, but because of the North Sea Water Sword Immortal's reputation, neither the monster race nor the human race cultivators from other cultivation worlds dared to challenge the Sword Immortal's authority here. Due to the fact that the cooperation between humans and demons on Huangli Island had been going smoothly for the past few decades, the influence and scale of this trade had grown larger and larger. Not only had it attracted the attention of the entire North Sea, but many cultivators from the Middle Earth and East Sea had also come. On the other hand, the Yao race had also felt the sincerity of the human race through several transactions. Additionally, the Yao race cultivators on Huangli Island would often feel a sense of familiarity. That was because many of the current rulers of Huangli Island were Yao race cultivators. For example, Lu Daguay, who possessed the bloodline of the tyrannical tortoise, was now leading the Wooling Fish Taoist soldiers of Huangli Island after condensing his Dharma form. He was in charge of the safety of the sea around Huangli Island. Every day he would swim quickly in the sea and maintain the order of the demon cultivators who came ashore. Lu Xiaohai, who was born in the Hanging Eyes White-Fronted Tiger clan and had also condensed his Dharma form, was in charge of the security of Huangli Island. Usually he patrolled the island with the Zhenling sect cultivators and settled disputes. Lu Xiaohai was born in a noble family. He was a descendant of Taoist who from the White-Fronted Tiger tribe. Lu Xiaohai had always been fair and generous. Coupled with his innate bloodline suppression, many overseas demon cultivators and demon cultivators who came to Huangli Island because of his fame were quite obedient and respectful to him. Lu Qin'er was originally above Lu Xiaohai. But now that Lu Qiner and Luan Yu were together on Failing Island, the position of Huangli Island's security commander was taken over by Lu Xiaohai. Lu Debao, the head shopkeeper of the Thieving Sky Pavilion, was famous in the North Sea cultivation world. He controlled the largest auction house on Huangli Island. At the same time, the Thieving Sky Pavilion was involved in about one-third of the trading places on Huangli Island. It was because of the help of Lu Ping's spiritual pets and followers that the Jinling side was naturally happy to trust them. The demon tribe's hostility towards Jinling was also reduced. Therefore, the scale of Huangli Island's human and demon exchanges became bigger and more famous. As the host, Jinling's benefits were naturally envied by the entire cultivation world. Lu Ping and Sky Fox walked freely on Huangli Island. Among the passers-by there were many Dharma stage cultivators, but they never noticed Lu Ping and Sky Fox. This Huangli Island is still a little small. With how prosperous it is now, the scale of Huangli Island should continue to expand. This way it can gather more cultivation resources for the sect. Sky Fox smiled and said, I've already found a few deserted islands in the nearby seas. But now that Huangli Island is prosperous, some of the deserted islands around it have become a place for many cultivators to stay. Among them there are some forces that have formed groups or loose practitioners. I'm afraid there will be some disputes and it will take some time to negotiate. Lu Ping laughed heartily and said, after casting a series of spells, the surrounding islands were instantly transformed, almost comparable to the heaven and earth. Ordinary rogue cultivators and forces would be scared to death, so who would dare to come here to fight? Even if there are those with ulterior motives, this is even more of a deterrent to them. Who dares to oppose us? Who dares to oppose us? Who dares to oppose us? You can just set a deadline and move. If you are compassionate, you only need to leave a few means of compensation. As for whether they are satisfied or not, there is no need to think too much about it. Lu Ping looked at Sky Fox and teased, although you have condensed Dharma power, you still have the heart of a weak core forging adept. Dharma stage cultivators are the giants of this world. They have the power to decide life and death. Why do you need to consider the feelings of unrelated people? Sky Fox heard this and immediately rolled his eyes at Lu Ping. He said, Lu Tianping Laozu, you are so powerful. Now that you are famous, you naturally do not need to consider the feelings of others. Even when you are traveling in Central Plains, you have beautiful women to accompany you and be praised by the world. Lu Ping was stunned. He smiled awkwardly and said, Qi Lianying's life is pitiful. I did not expect there to be such a storm. Seeing that Sky Fox was still jealous, Lu Ping told Sky Fox about Qi Lianying's life. Unexpectedly, when Sky Fox found out that Qi Lianying was actually his fifth senior sister, Jiang Tianying, the daughter of the sect leader Lu Tianling and Jiang Tianlin, her expression became even more worried. Lu Ping was greatly surprised. He didn't know why, but after asking again and again, the Sky Fox finally said, She's your teacher's daughter. Once she reveals her identity, she will definitely rise rapidly in the sect. No wonder I can't compare to her. Only then did Lu Ping come to a realization. He then joked, Huh? You actually call yourself a little girl? That is strange. Could it be that there is someone else with whom I have slept with countless times before? But then again, now that you have successfully condensed Dharma power, it is time for you to have a child. Sky Fox was embarrassed. She pushed Lu Ping and said, You are courting death. How can you say such things in public? Huangli Island was bustling, but at this moment who could notice that the owner of Huangli Island was among them? Lu Ping teased, So this cannot be said in public. Then let us find a place where we can say such things. Sky Fox really could not stay here anymore. She turned around and used her space divine power to return to the cave abode, leaving only Lu Ping there. Lu Ping chuckled and took 2 steps forward. Unbeknownst to him, he had already disappeared from sight. Although Lu Ping did not deliberately reveal his whereabouts, his appearance in the North Sea still attracted the attention of many people. At this time, Lu Ping's public appearance in the cultivation world had obviously shocked many people. However, what was even more surprising was that after Lu Ping's public appearance, the expected scene of the cultivation world's major sects joining forces to encircle and annihilate him did not happen. Moreover, Lu Ping's appearance seemed to prove that Jinling seemed to be planning something. Lu Ping's public appearance in the cultivation world had obviously caused many people to misunderstand. As the news spread, it even caused a few other pure young Laozu who were still hiding in the cultivation world to misjudge. Not long after the news of Lu Ping's appearance in the North Sea, Shihua Laozu was discovered appearing in the land of Heshi. Immediately Xiang Palace, Wuxia School and Lingyun Valley sent 6 pure yang cultivators to the land of Heshi to encircle and annihilate him. Shihua Laozu died after a bitter battle, shocking the entire cultivation world. Immediately after that, Full Moon Laozu also exposed himself when he secretly contacted the Heavenly Moon Sect cultivators. Immediately he was encircled and annihilated by the pure yang cultivators from Wuxia School, Lingyun Valley and Skyward Pavilion. Fortunately, with the help of Chi Fan Laozu, Full Moon Laozu was seriously injured and escaped. However, in this battle, when Chi Fan Laozu rescued Full Moon Laozu, he took out the 9 Profound Towers Heaven Opening artifact, the 7 Feather Fan, and heavily injured the pure yang Laozu of Skyward Pavilion and Lingyun Valley in one fell swoop, shocking the entire cultivation world once again. However, when the news reached the North Sea, Lu Tianping continued to do as he pleased. In Huangli Island he used the Blue Sea Mulberry Fields technique and absorbed 5 barren islands into Huangli Island in one short month, making Huangli Island the 50th medium-sized island under Jinling's jurisdiction. Under such circumstances, a rumor suddenly spread in the cultivation world. The reason why Lu Tianping of the North Sea was not encircled and annihilated by the pure yang cultivators of the Holy Lands was because Lu Tianping had surrendered to the 5 Holy Lands and revealed the whereabouts of Shihua Laozu, Full Moon Laozu, and the others. This rumor spread so widely that when Jinling went out to travel, the cultivators of Heavenly Xian and Heavenly Moon were not as cordial to the cultivators of Jinling as before. When Sky Fox found Lu Ping, it was in a newly opened secret land in the central area of Huangli Island. This secret land was deep under Huangli Island. It was specially opened after Lu Ping achieved pure yang and returned to the North Sea. No one on Huangli Island knew about this secret land. When the secret land was opened, only Sky Fox and Deng Tianming, the formation great master who participated in the opening of the secret land, knew about it. After the secret land was opened, Jinling's core Laozu such as Tianxiang, Jiang Tianlin, Mei Tianqin, Gu Tianshan, Chu Tiancheng and several others came to this place. This showed the importance that Jinling attached to this secret land. After Sky Fox lost track of Lu Ping on Huangli Island, he guessed that he should be in this secret land at this time. When Lu Ping saw Sky Fox coming he could not help but reprimand, "You are pregnant now, you should rest well." Sky Fox touched his protruding abdomen, a gentle look flashed across his face and he said, "Xuanqi and the others have returned from their travels in the Central Plains. Now they have arrived on the island and want to see you urgently. It seems that there is an urgent matter." Lu Ping smiled and said, "They're too impatient. What urgent matter could they possibly have? It's just a few rumors but they've caused such a commotion. Rumors will stop at the mouth of the wise. I wanted them to suppress their cultivation base and go out to explore the world because I wanted to temper their temperament before entering the Avatar realm. But I didn't expect them to be so far away." Chapter 1473. Above an unknown part of the North Sea, Yuan Feixiang bowed to the old man in front of her and said, "Third grandfather, will Lu Tianping's return to the North Sea affect our plans?" Yuan Feixiang turned around and a pair of cold eyes shone in the dark night. He said coldly, "Of course there will be an impact. Lu Tianping was able to kill pure yang adepts when he was only at the late Dharma stage. Now that he has advanced to the pure yang stage, his abilities have naturally increased by another level. Now that he dares to openly return to the North Sea, it proves that he has absolute confidence in his own abilities. Until now, the pure yang adepts of the 5 Holy Lands have not joined forces to encircle and kill Lu Tianping. His abilities are the best proof of his abilities." Yuan Feixiang smiled and said, "Speaking of this, the entire world of practitioners is now saying that the reason why Lu Tianping dared to appear so brazenly in the North Sea was because Lu Tianping had secretly compromised with the 5 Holy Lands and leaked information about the other pure yang adepts. This caused Shihua Laozu to be killed and Manuel Laozu to be almost killed. This matter has spread like wildfire in the world of practitioners, and I'm afraid that the alliance of the 5 main sects will be affected by this." Yuan Feixiang glanced at Yuan Feixiang, who was gloating at the misfortune of others and said, "You believe this?" Yuan Feixiang was stunned for a moment, then shook his head and said, "I don't really believe it, but I heard that the disciples of the other sects of the 5 main sects are now not friendly to the Jinling adepts." Yuan Feixiang asked again, "Are there any Dharma adepts involved?" Yuan Feixiang was stunned again and said, "No." "You understand now." Yuan Tongtian continued, "The Dharma adepts of the 5 great sects are all very rational. Perhaps they have already guessed that these rumors are false, or perhaps they have already received instructions from their own pure Yang Laozu. Without the participation of the Dharma adepts, the alliance of the 5 great sects will not be harmed. Yuan Feixiang was confused. But it will still be a hidden danger for the alliance. When the 4th and 5th generation cultivators who have conflicts with Jinling grow up to be the leaders of their respective sects, will the 5 sects still be as close as they are today? Fool! Yuan Tongtian reprimanded her mercilessly. Yuan Feixiang's face turned red. Then she heard Yuan Tongtian continue, the so-called alliance is just because we each have our own needs. In the end, in the cultivation world, what matters is one's own strength. From the day the alliance of the 5 great sects was established, it was destined to be dissolved one day. The high-level cultivators of both sides know this. In that case, why should we waste our energy on a few rumors? Yuan Feixiang did not understand. Then what is the purpose of the person who spread these rumors? Yuan Tongtian's face was full of sarcasm as he said, Wuxing School's methods are getting more and more despicable. They only want to sow discord and reap the benefits of others' hard work. Wuxing School again? Yuan Feixiang's face was full of disgust as she said, yes, Lu Tianping was crossing the pure Yang Thunder Tribulation in Yingyu Swamp, which is the closest place to Wuxing School. With such a big movement, the people of Wuxing School should have been the first to feel it, but in the end there was no news. Now it seems that it's not that the people of Wuxing School didn't go, but that they didn't get any benefits, so they resorted to such underhanded methods. Speaking of this, Yuan Feixiang thought of something and said, in that case, the reason why no one from the 5 Holy Lands has been looking for Lu Tianping is probably because they got the news from Wuxing School. Could it be that Lu Tianping's strength made the 5 great sects fear him? Is that why Lu Tianping dared to show up in the cultivation world in public? Yuan Feixiang's speculation surprised even Yuan Feixiang. Then her eyes flickered and no one knew what she was thinking. Yuan Feixiang's expression did not escape Yuan Feixiang's eyes. Yuan Feixiang said carefully, Third grandfather, although the family has been paying attention to the 7-star cave heaven, is it also because of Wuxing School that they suddenly entered the North Sea? Yuan Feixiang hesitated for a moment, then nodded and said, indeed, although the family has long been suspicious about whether the 7-star cave heaven is a spirit space, and we even specially sent you to the North Sea to investigate, the 7-star cave heaven is hidden in the void, and it is the work of 7 great mediums. It is very difficult to get it. It is also said that behind the 7 great mediums, there seems to be the 7th patriarch who opened up the sky. Therefore they did not dare to do anything. Now, with the help of Wuxing School, they have returned to the North Sea. Yuan Feixiang said, Wuxing School is harboring evil intentions. They want the family to fight against Jinling. Wuxing School is openly plotting. Even if we know about it, what can we do? Although the Yuan family is known as the top family in the world, we can never have a spirit space. Without a spirit space, the Yuan family will never be able to break the destiny of opening up the sky, and become a place that is truly on par with the Holy Land, or even far surpassing the Holy Land. This is also the reason why I, your grandfather, have been supporting you to find a spirit space all these years. It's a pity that Xiao Baiyu and the others outside the 9 mystical towers succeeded too quickly. That person's position is obviously not high, and there are always people within the family holding him back. Otherwise, with that person acting as a spy, everything that Xiao Baiyu and the others have planned may have become a wedding dress for the Yuan family. Yuan Tongtian shook his head and said, don't underestimate people like Xiao Baiyu, Qi Fan and Feng Lu. Whether it is intelligence or strength, they are the top group of people in this world. If they could gather more than 10 pure Yang-level cultivators to plot against the 9 mystical tower, I'm afraid that they have already secretly prepared for any unexpected situations. The old man originally wanted to go to the 9 mystical tower with the best outcome, but even if it doesn't, it's still within his expectations. Yuan Feixiang said, Third grandfather, has that person recently sent any news about Xiao Baiyu, Lu Tianping and the others? Especially that Lu Tianping. I have a feeling that Lu Tianping has returned to the North Sea this time with some shocking plan. Perhaps he has come for the 7-star grotto heaven. Should we let that person go and find out what's going on? After the 9 mystical tower incident, these people have already gone their separate ways and no longer have any contact with each other. Firstly, it is to avoid implicating each other when the 5 Holy Lands join forces to take revenge. Secondly, I'm afraid that these people have been hostile to each other for a long time, and they can no longer trust each other. Even that person rarely knows about the others. Yuan Tongtian smiled and said, Lu Tianping has inherited the immortal spirit. He is the most outstanding person in this world, and the possibility of him achieving the immortal spirit is very high. Moreover, time is also very fast. If we don't want to leave this world so quickly, then the most important thing is naturally to find a minor kiliacosm to live in. Therefore, the battle between our Yuan family and Junling for the 7-star grotto heaven is already unavoidable. On Huangli Island, the Sky Fox saw the strange formation set up in the secret ground and the few formation tools around it. She said in disbelief, "For the 7-star grotto heaven, we have to use so many spiritual treasures and precious weapons?" Lu Ping smiled and said, "If we really have the confidence to obtain the 7-star grotto heaven, let alone the 3 treasures of the vast sea and the magic treasure pill furnace, so what if we have pure yang spiritual treasures?" The Sky Fox said in shock, "Could it be that even so, we might not be able to obtain the 7-star grotto heaven?" Lu Ping shook his head and said, "I don't know. The 7-star grotto heaven has appeared in the North Sea for a long time. In the past there were people who tried to obtain this grotto heaven world, but they could not enter it. They could only wait passively for it to open on its own once every 100 years. Now, although our sect has analyzed the legends left behind over the generations, the inheritance of Fei Ling Island, and the inheritance of the Vast Sea sect, especially the conclusion that the Vast Sea sect once determined that the Vast Sea Laozu was the only person who grasped the method to enter and leave the 7-star grotto heaven freely, and came to this conclusion, even I am not confident that we can really keep the 7-star grotto heaven on Huangli Island. Is it because the Yuan family has appeared in the North Sea recently? The Sky Fox asked after thinking for a while. Lu Ping nodded and said, "The Yuan family is indeed troublesome. No one knows what secrets the number 1 family of the heaven-splitting family has grasped. That is the most frightening thing." Lu Ping paused for a while and continued, "Recently there has been news from the Middle Earth that another pure yang cultivator from the Yuan family has arrived in the East Sea. I'm afraid he will appear in the North Sea in the next few days. In addition to Yuan Tongtian, Yuan Feixiang, and a few other great cultivators in the North Sea, even if our sect is the local tyrant, it will not be easy for us to stop the Yuan family from robbing us." Lu Ping returned to his cave abode, where Wang Xuanqi and Du Xianluo were already waiting. After meeting Lu Ping, the two of them reported to Lu Ping about their journey in the Middle Earth. In the end, the two of them seemed to want to report something to Lu Ping, but Lu Ping raised his hand and stopped them. He asked, "How many people did the two of you fight with in total during your journey in the Middle Earth?" Wang Xuanqi said, "I fought with the 4th-generation cultivators of the Heavenly Xian sect 17 times. I won 15 times and lost 2 times. I fought with the 4th-generation cultivators of the Heavenly Moon sect 9 times and won all of them." Du Xianluo said, "I am not as good as eldest senior brother. I fought with the 4th-generation cultivators of the Heavenly Xian sect 12 times and won 7 times, drew 4 times and lost 1. I fought with the cultivators of the same generation from the Heavenly Moon sect 9 times and won 5 times and drew 4 times." Wang Xuanqi smiled and said, "I am not as kind as you. Once I fight with someone, I always lose if I don't win. Although the Heavenly Moon sect has many female cultivators, it is difficult for them to hold back." Du Xianluo laughed and said, "Senior brother's swordsmanship is sharp." In the end, the 4th-generation cultivators of the Heavenly Xian sect actually sent a 4th-generation cultivator who had advanced to the Dharma stage to fight in order to save face. Otherwise, you would still have won all of your battles in the Heavenly Xian sect. When Lu Ping heard this, he frowned and asked, "Why? Did the Dharma adepts of the Heavenly Xian sect also fight?" Wang Xuanqi did not dare to hide anything and said, "Because someone in the Heavenly Xian sect talked about you, I was angry and went a little too hard during the fight, seriously injuring 2 of them. That was why the 4th-generation direct disciples who had advanced to the Dharma stage came to fight. I lost twice in a row and embarrassed you, master." When Lu Ping heard this, his brows relaxed, but he still said sternly, "Now that the 4th-generation direct disciples of the 5 Holy Lands have started to condense their Dharma power, and even the older large sects like the Heavenly Xian sect have started to have their 4th-generation disciples condense their Dharma power, the 2 of you should have accumulated enough. However, do you know why I made the 2 of you repeatedly suppress your cultivation level and did not even let the 2 of you condense a 3rd type of heaven and earth spirit to form a golden elixir, and instead went out to train?" Without waiting for the 2 of them to answer, Lu Ping continued, "You are hot-tempered and only know how to fight. You don't know how to judge the situation. How can the 2 of you inherit the legacy of the Hearing Wave Manor in the future?" When Wang Xuanqi and Du Xianluo saw that Lu Ping was angry, they could not help but keep quiet out of fear. At this moment, Lu Ping, who was sitting at the head of the table, suddenly stopped talking. Wang Xuanqi and Du Xianluo carefully raised their heads to look at Lu Ping, but saw that their teacher was also frowning, as if he did not understand what was going on. They could not help but feel puzzled. At this moment, Lu Ping said, "Xuanqi, Xianluo, the two of you go to Huangli Island and welcome Senior Lin Yu on behalf of Master." Chapter 1474. Lu Xiaoyu, I'm here to seek your protection. Lin Yu Laozu expressed his purpose to Lu Ping the moment he met Lu Ping. Lu Ping didn't expect Lin Yu Laozu to be like this. He was startled for a moment before he smiled and said, "Senior, you must be joking. Since you're here on Huangli Island, you're my guest. Please have a rest in your cave abode." Both parties sat down. Lin Yu Laozu looked at Lu Ping's Tingtao cave abode and praised, "Little friend, this is a good place to run. This cave abode is simple but elegant. There's no lack of incense in this cave abode. Isn't it the most precious of the three great incense in the cultivation world?" Both of them exchanged greetings before Ancestor Lin Yu pondered deeply for a moment before he said, "May I ask young brother Lu if young brother Lu had encountered the members of the Five Elements sect at the Brimjade Swamp earlier?" These things could be easily guessed in the eyes of those who paid attention. Lu Ping didn't hide it and nodded, "Yes." Lin Yu Laozu's spirit was lifted and he immediately asked, "Who?" Lu Ping asked back, "Senior, do you know that there's a Laozu called Wu Guangyuan in Wuxing School?" "Wu Guangyuan?" Lin Yu Laozu was shocked. Then, as if he thought of something, he asked in surprise, "Guangyuan Laozu? Wuxing School's current true spirit cultivator Laozu Wu Guangyuan? Little friend, you actually met this person. Oh. How did he come out of the formless cave abode? This is too unbelievable. Little friend, you actually..." Lu Ping knew why Lin Yu Laozu was shocked, so he quickly explained, "Senior, you misunderstood. The Guangyuan Laozu I met was not his real body. It should be a puppet at the peak of pure Yang realm." Lu Ping's explanation made Lin Yu Laozu, who seemed a little confused, calm down a little. He smiled awkwardly and said, "The old man is being rude. Lu Xiaoyu, please don't laugh at me." At this moment, the old man really can't believe it. Even if Guangyuan Laozu did not come with his real body, he used his real soul to control the puppet at the peak of pure Yang realm. I'm afraid that even fellow Taoist Xiao may not be able to take advantage of him. I didn't expect you to be able to escape unscathed. This kind of strength really makes the old man admire you." Lu Ping repeatedly said that he did not dare, but he heard Lin Yu Laozu say, "Little friend, please don't decline." The old man said that he was asking for little friend's protection. "Little friend, you have the strength to make Guangyuan Laozu helpless. No wonder you dared to show yourself in the North Sea. The old man is also being pressured by the pure Yang realm of those holy lands. Without absolute strength like Xiao Baiyu and little friend, who can ignore the pure Yang realm of the various sects, and without fellow Taoist Qi Fan, Full Moon and Feng Lu, I have no choice but to seek little friend's protection." Although the old man's strength is not good, he still has pure Yang cultivation. I believe now is the time for little friend to use it. Without waiting for Lu Ping to agree or not, Lin Yu Laozu continued, "The old man has been saved by little friend before, and I don't know how to repay you. I hope little friend can give the old man a chance to repay you." For a pure Yang cultivator to do this, it could be said that he had lost all face. If Lu Ping refused at this time, he would become enemies. Although Lu Ping was not very comfortable with such a slightly forced request, he was also grateful for Lin Yu Laozu's repeated help during the battle with Mara in the Nine Mystical Tower. Therefore, he said after some consideration, "Senior has also risked his life to help my sect, so don't mention anything about saving my life. It's just that I do have something that I need Senior's help with, and I hope Senior can help me." Lin Yu Laozu was overjoyed. He said, "The old man will never forget your kindness. May I ask what the old man can do for me? Please tell me." Lin Yu Laozu and Lu Ping stood on Yankun Island several hundred kilometers away from Heavenly Spirit Island and looked down. Lin Yu Laozu sighed in surprise, "Your sect really is extravagant. Such a medium-sized island has actually been completely covered by a formation. Once it's activated, the entire island will probably sink. It looks quite similar to a Great Traction formation, but it's not. The old man doesn't know much about formations, so I've made a fool of myself." Lu Ping smiled faintly. His face brimmed with confidence as he said, "This Yankun Island concerns the rise and fall of our sect, so please forgive me for not being able to say too much. However, I can tell you that if this matter is successful, our sect will be able to establish a foundation for generations to come." Lu Ping glanced at Lin Yu Laozu and said seriously, "Originally, this matter has always been handled by me personally, but I've recently been forced to go to the Eastern Sea to participate in the Illusionary Spirit Island gathering that's held once every 100 years. This matter concerns the distribution of the huge spiritual stone mine on the 5 islands, so there will definitely be a fierce battle. I really can't split my time. After all, our sect has only recently risen up, so our foundation cannot compare to the other sections. Aside from me, there's no one else in the sect who can do it. I originally thought that this matter would have to be pushed back 100 years, but Senior's arrival just happened to solve this urgent matter, so please look after it for me. Junior and Jinling will be extremely grateful." Lin Yu Laozu said hesitantly, "Since this matter concerns the rise and fall of the sect, the old man is still an outsider after all." Lu Ping laughed and said, "Senior, you only need to look after the island." Every 3 days, Tianling Mountain will definitely send a cultivator to bring Senior enough spiritual stones. At that time, Senior only needs to use your pure yang cultivation to maintain the island's great formation under the command of our sect's formation grandmaster. There's no need to worry about anything else. Lin Yu Laozu understood the meaning of Lu Ping's words. Lu Ping just wanted to use his cultivation to maintain the operation of the formation. As for why the formation was operating and what its purpose was, Lin Yu Laozu naturally had no way of knowing, so it would not affect Jinling's plan. Even if Lu Ping had said before that Lu Ping was even willing to postpone this for 100 years for the distribution of the huge spiritual stone vein in the Phantom 5 Islands, it meant that although this matter was important, it was not urgent. Even if Lin Yu Laozu accidentally destroyed the formation on the island, Jinling would just build another one at most, and it would not cause any substantial harm. However, whether it was Lin Yu Laozu or Lu Ping, they both seemed to have forgotten that the formation on the island might not affect Jinling's plan, but if someone obtained what Jinling wanted in advance, it would be useless no matter how well the island's formation was preserved. After settling Lin Yu Laozu, Lu Ping went straight back to Tianling Mountain and was about to use the teleportation formation to return to Huangli Island, but he saw Lu Tianyuan chasing after him from afar. Lu Ping knew that he must have something urgent to do, so he turned around to greet him. Lu Tianyuan had been working with Lu Tianling, the sect master, and had already been tacitly accepted by Jinling as the next sect master. Although there were many outstanding disciples in Jinling's 3rd generation, Lu Ping was now the pure Yang Laozu, Yin Tianchu was gloomy, Ji Tianxian was mischievous, Yao Yong was irascible, Du Feng and Tian Shang were cold and unsociable, Tianling lacked wisdom, and although Tian Ru and Tian Hui had sufficient status and wisdom, it was difficult for them to convince the masses due to their limited cultivation and aptitude. Originally, the sect master of Jinling had placed all their hopes on Tian Tian, but unfortunately Tian Tian died young, so Lu Tianling and the other high-ranking Laozu set their sights on the mature and steady Lu Tianyuan and Qi Tiankai. However, although Qi Tiankai was quite capable, she didn't have the connections and prestige Lu Tianyuan had in the sect. Most importantly, not only did Lu Tianyuan have the support of Guo Tianshan's faction, but he also maintained a good relationship with the cultivators from Chonghua Manor, which Lu Ping belonged to. Only by having Lu Tianyuan take over the position of sect master could everyone in Jinling live up to their expectations. Junior brother Lu, Flowing Cloud Pavilion of Heartlands, has sent a cultivator to visit the sect. Flowing Cloud Pavilion? Lu Ping said in surprise. The Cloud Sky Pavilion that the new pure Yang cultivator of Heartlands, Yintian Laozu, belongs to? Why did they send someone here? Yintian Laozu had quite a grudge with me in the past. Now that they've sent someone here, are they declaring war or making amends? It's making amends? Lu Tianyuan also had a strange expression on his face as he said, "The cultivators from Flowing Cloud Pavilion have brought a large number of rare treasures. Apart from expressing their intention to make amends with the sect, they've also come to represent Yuntian Laozu to apologize to you, junior brother." Apologize to me? Lu Ping didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Who is this person? How is he qualified to apologize on Yuntian's behalf? Senior brother, what do you think? What does teacher think? Lu Tianyuan said, "This person is called Chen Changming. He's the first direct disciple of the 3rd generation of Flowing Cloud Pavilion. He's quite famous in the Heartlands. Uncle Sect Master seems to be moved, but it'll still depend on junior brother's opinion. In my opinion, this Flowing Cloud Pavilion truly wants to make amends with our sect. Apologizing to junior brother is probably something he came up with on the spur of the moment." Lu Ping suddenly smiled and said, "So it's him. This person is quite courageous to actually dare to represent Yuntian on his own. However, the relationship between sects is only about benefits. If it's beneficial to the sect, even I, a pure yang cultivator, can't sacrifice the benefits of the sect for my own selfishness. This Qian Changming probably thinks that all matters of the sect are decided by a pure yang cultivator like me. That's why he wants to take a different path and come to our sect. Lu Tianyuan praised, "Junior brother is very righteous. You've never been greedy for the power of the sect." However, Yuntian might not be as generous to the Flowing Cloud Pavilion as junior brother. It seems that all matters of the Flowing Cloud Pavilion are decided by Yuntian Laozu. The Flowing Cloud Pavilion is probably Yuntian Laozu's Flowing Cloud Pavilion alone. Qian Changming's actions are understandable. Lu Ping nodded. If that's the case, then Qian Changming won't be here. Senior brother can assist the sect master with the matters of the Flowing Cloud Pavilion. The Flowing Cloud Pavilion is far away in the heartlands and has no conflicts of interest with our sect. If the two sects work together, then there's no harm in working together. As for the grievances between me and Yuntian Laozu, the sect doesn't need to worry about it. Lu Tianyuan understood Lu Ping's attitude and turned to go to the Heaven Spirit Hall. Lu Ping thought for a while and decided not to return to Huangli Island. Instead, he turned and went to the back of Tianling Mountain. In the forbidden area of the back of Tianling Mountain, Junling had built a secret teleportation portal. This teleportation portal led directly to Feiling Island, which was submerged in the sea. In the whole of Junling, only Dharma adepts were qualified to know about the existence of this teleportation portal. Chu Tianqing was in charge of the affairs of Feiling Island. When he saw Lu Ping, he couldn't help but ask curiously, "Martial nephew, aren't you preparing to go to the East Sea? Why are you here?" Lu Ping said, "I'm here to see junior brother Yin." Chapter 1475. After the North Sea monsters had launched a beast tide and a great practitioner of the primordial crocodile clan had been killed by Yin Tianchu and Ji Tianxian, Yin Tianchu had come to Feiling Island to train in seclusion in preparation for his advancement to the late Dharma stage. However, Yin Tianchu, who had come before Lu Ping, was actually already a late Dharma practitioner. It was just that no one in Junling knew that there was another great practitioner in their sect. "Your training has not stabilized yet. It seems that you have just undergone the third thunder trial not long ago," Lu Ping said to Yin Tianchu with a smile. "Do you want me to go to the East Sea with you?" Yin Tianchu asked. Lu Ping shook his head. "No, I want you to stay in the North Sea and keep an eye on someone." They toured around Feiling Island. Under Junling's full management and the efforts of more than 10 wooden wands, Feiling Island now looked like an immortal paradise. As Junling's strength continued to increase, Tianling Mountain had become a little too small for the current Junling. At this time, Junling's demand for lifting the seal on Feiling Island and merging Feiling Island with Tianling Island was getting louder and louder. Junling's plan for Feiling Island had to be brought forward. Fortunately, Lu Ping's level of training had increased quickly enough. Although the plan had been brought forward, everything was still within the control of Lu Ping and the other great practitioners of Junling. In order not to cause too much damage to Feiling Island and the ley lines, Junling's lifting of the seal on Feiling Island was a gradual process. Although it took a little more time, the damage to the ley lines and the ley lines of Feiling Island was minimized during the process. After staying on Feiling Island for a few days, Lu Ping gave lectures to a few of Junling's fourth-generation practitioners. Then he arranged for Wang Xuanqi and Du Xianluo to train in seclusion here in preparation for breaking through to the Dharma stage. Only then did he leave Feiling Island and return to Tianling Mountain. The emissary from Flowing Cloud Pavilion had already returned to the Central Plains. Yuntian Laozu had always been a slippery character. He had suffered 3 consecutive losses at Lu Ping's hands, but had never lost his life. He was considered a rare opponent among Lu Ping. This time, he had deliberately sent a disciple from his sect to the North Sea to befriend Junling. He was probably thinking of apologizing to Lu Ping. From this point, it could be seen that Qian Changming had a very good understanding of his master's intentions. From Lu Ping's point of view, this pure young practitioner had most likely received some news from Wuxia school. After being frightened by the shocking strength that Lu Ping had displayed, he had hurriedly sent a disciple from his sect to apologize to Lu Ping in order to avoid another retaliation from Lu Ping. After all, when Lu Ping was at the late Dharma stage, he could already cause chaos in Flowing Cloud Pavilion. Now that he had advanced to the pure yang stage, if Lu Ping really wanted to take revenge, he would no longer care about the people who were watching. Lu Tianling accepted the gift from Flowing Cloud Pavilion, and then sent Li Tianru back to Flowing Cloud Pavilion with Qin Changming to express his gratitude. This could be considered as setting the tone for the two large sects to be on good terms. Presumably Yuntian Laozu would also be able to understand sect leader Junling's intentions. As Junling had a pure Yang practitioner in charge, and even had the possibility of becoming a holy land in the eyes of outsiders, Junling's external strategy would probably change accordingly. Seeing that Lu Ping had arrived, Lu Tianling was a little worried. Must you go to the East Sea this time? Lu Ping nodded and said, I'm afraid this is the best and last opportunity to suppress the Crystal Palace. If we miss this opportunity after 100 years, whether Xiao Baiyu and Skyrend will still maintain the alliance of the five sects because of the pressure from the Crystal Palace is unknown. Therefore, the gains from this trip to Phantom Island this time are crucial to the development of our sect for the next 100 years. After a pause, Lu Ping continued, not to mention, I'm going to the Eastern Sea to fulfill a promise I made to a senior cultivator. This senior cultivator has helped me a lot, and she's also been a great help to our sect. So, it's only right for me to help her. Lu Tianling thought for a while and asked, is it that Longhuai ancestor? What exactly is this person's background? Does Ninth Brother know anything about it? It's this person. Lu Ping continued, this Longhuai ancestor's background is mysterious. This person should be considered a spirit demon, but he has a bloodline inheritance. He has experienced a lot of time and knows a lot of secrets. I even suspect that this person might be related to Jiao Daoren of the 7th Patriarch. Seeing that his teacher was shocked, Lu Ping quickly said, of course this is just disciples' guess. Lu Tianling nodded and said, if that's the case then Ninth Brother, have you ever thought about whether letting this person out of the cultivation world is a blessing or a curse? Was the sky poison wall set up by Jiao Daoren to protect him or to imprison him? Is everything he did to help you, Old Nine, just to cover up his plot against you? Lu Ping really didn't think about this because ever since Lu Ping came into contact with the Longhuai ancestor, whether it was his bloodline or his soul, Lu Ping could feel kindness from the Longhuai ancestor. This kind of feeling was something that Lu Ping could only feel but not describe, let alone say it to others. The only thing that Lu Ping could use to convince his teacher was the selfless help and rescue of the Longhuai ancestor several times. No matter what, disciple has to give it a try. Otherwise it will be hard to feel at ease. If it is really a disaster, disciple still has 3 of the Yuan Daoist's life feathers. No matter how strong the Longhuai ancestor is, he has been imprisoned in the sky poison wall for tens of thousands of years and can't escape. At the very least, he can't compare to the 7th Patriarch of Sky Splitting. With the Sky Splitting divine ability sealed in the life feathers, disciple can at least escape unscathed. Lu Tianling saw that Lu Ping had made up his mind, so he no longer tried to persuade him. Instead, he asked, do you need anyone else to go with you to the Fantasy Spirit Island this time? Lu Ping said, Martial Uncle Jiang and Martial Uncle Guo will lead the team. Martial Uncle Jiang will still be in charge of the Fantasy Spirit Palace's affairs. I won't show my face. When the time comes, it will still depend on each person's strength. I will also have to secretly fight with the Crystal Palace's pure Yang. Other than that, there won't be too many risks. However, after Disciple leaves, there will definitely be a storm in the North Sea. I will need Martial Uncle Tianxiang, teacher, and Martial Uncle Mei to take the risk. Lu Tianling smiled and said, you set up the overall situation but only left us to pull the net. If we can't even endure this kind of risk, then Junling deserves to not have the luck to become a holy land in the future. Even if you have 3 heads and 6 arms, you won't be able to take care of the important matters of the sect. You have done enough for the sect and it is time for us to fight for the sect. Lu Ping said seriously, in any case please be careful. The opponents are all the top existences in this world. Although the 3 of you have your life feathers to protect yourselves, you may not be able to do everything. When the time comes, you just need to guard the sect and wait for Disciple to return. Lu Tianling suddenly smiled and said, Old Nine, do you know what the trump card that Laozu left for the sect's sect protection array was? Chapter 1477. Xiao Baiyu used the sky-cracking sword qi to control the pure Yang flying sword, but it couldn't break the light curtain of Spirit Wine Laozu's crystal pagoda. Xiao Baiyu was shocked, but he immediately realized that the person he had defeated before had probably become a true spirit. Only in this way could the invincible sky-cracking sword qi be defeated by Spirit Wine Laozu's natal spiritual treasure. It should be known that Xiao Baiyu's pure yang flying sword was not an ordinary pure yang spiritual treasure. It was made by smelting half of the broken sword that Jiao Daoren used to open the sky. Although its power couldn't compare with a heaven-opening artifact, it was much stronger than an ordinary pure yang spiritual treasure. Since Spirit Wine Laozu had become a true spirit, it meant that the Crystal Palace's true spirit cultivator had completed the handover. The previous true spirit cultivator should be at the end of his lifespan, or he didn't want to stay in the mini-kiliacosm of the Crystal Palace anymore and was ready to go to the North Ice Field. If this was the case, it was normal for Laozu, the true spirit cultivator of Wuxing School, to kill several enemies of the Crystal Palace before he went to the North Ice Field. As for Spirit Wine Laozu, after becoming a true spirit, a cultivator did have 1 year to spend in the cultivation world. This was the case for Jinling's Ginseng Laozu. However, after a cultivator became a true spirit, he would usually use this 1 year to consolidate his cultivation. It was precisely because after a cultivator became a true spirit, his cultivation would fluctuate and there was a risk of falling from a true spirit at any time. That was why this world tolerated them. At this critical moment, the Crystal Palace suddenly had 2 true spirit cultivators who didn't care about the mini-kiliacosm for the time being. Obviously they had planned this beforehand. If this was the case, they were really targeting Xiao Baiyu and Lu Ping. Although Lu Ping didn't know whether Xiao Baiyu was telling the truth or not, Xiao Baiyu didn't need to scare him. With a slight movement of his mind, he had scanned the surrounding 300 miles with his divine thought. At the same time, he was inevitably eager to test the true spirit cultivator Laozu's real strength. With a strange cry, Lu Xiaoping pulled out the willow sword on his back. He took 2 steps in the air and hid behind the sky-cracking sword. At the moment when the crystal tower suppressed the sky-cracking sword chi again, Lu Xiaoping shouted, "Kill!" The willow sword suddenly shot out and pointed at the place where the sky-cracking sword was stabbed. He used the great magical power, serial flying kill. There was an exclamation in the air, and the light curtain hanging down from the crystal tower was instantly pierced. Although this attack relied more on the power of Xiao Baiyu's pure yang sky-cracking sword, the timing of Lu Ping's attack and the great swordsmanship of the Avatar were all amazing. Even the spirit cultivator Laozu of the Crystal Palace couldn't help praising him as he was his enemy. However, although Lu Ping's strength was beyond the expectations of the spirit cultivator Laozu, Lu Xiaoping's attack stopped after breaking the light curtain of the crystal tower. Not only did it not have the power to move forward, it did not pose a threat to the crystal tower at all. Even the spirit cultivator Laozu of the Crystal Palace couldn't help praising him as he was his enemy. The difference between the real spirit and the pure yang was actually so huge. Lu Ping had already judged the difference in strength between the two from the exchange of blows. He couldn't help but feel inexplicably shocked. The sky-cracking sword had already bravely charged forward again. Xiao Baiyu saw that Lu Xiaoping had yet to recover from the previous attack, and it was obviously difficult for him to hold back the spirit cultivator Laozu by himself. He hurriedly explained, "Lu Xiaoyu, don't panic. This person has always been clumsy." However, when he was at the pure yang level, his defensive ability was even better than that of the Earth spiritual son of Wuxing School. Now that he has become a real spirit, he will definitely be more difficult to deal with, but he is also clumsier. At this time, Lu Ping and Xiao Baiyu were in a difficult position. Normally, no matter which pure yang cultivator came from the Crystal Palace, Lu Ping and Xiao Baiyu could calmly deal with them. However, the two of them were facing a real spirit cultivator Laozu. No matter if it was the sky-cracking sword or Lu Xiaoping, the real spirit Laozu would definitely follow the spatial fluctuations and catch up to them. Therefore, Xiao Baiyu and Lu Ping had no choice but to join forces to resist the Jinling cultivator's detection. However, this method could only delay the two of them from being discovered by the two real spirit cultivators. While the sky-cracking sword and Lu Xiaoping did not dare to retreat, they also held back the two of them. If they wanted to control the two of them at will, they had to be within a certain distance from the two of them. This distance was naturally the range of the pure yang cultivator's divine sense, which was usually 150 to 200 miles. Lu Ping and Xiao Baiyu were not ordinary pure yang cultivators, so the range that their divine sense could cover must exceed this distance, especially for Lu Ping. Although he had just advanced to the pure yang level, his divine sense could cover an area of 300 miles. Therefore, if the two real spirits of the Crystal Palace really attacked together, they had to expand the range of their search. The trap set by the Crystal Palace with the two real spirit cultivators to ambush Xiao Baiyu and Lu Ping could be considered as a lion going all out to catch a rabbit. At least in the eyes of outsiders, it was like this. With the two real spirits Laozu attacking, the Crystal Palace could re-establish their dominance over the East Sea in this battle. They could even destroy Jinling in one fell swoop and control the North Sea cultivation world. Which of the two true spirit cultivators would find Lu Ping? Even Lu Ping himself did not know. However, no matter which one it was the most critical moment for Lu Ping, who was in a dilemma. This was because Lu Ping did not dare to leave at this time, so he could only wait for the other Crystal Palace real spirit Laozu to find him. In fact, Lu Ping and Xiao Baiyu could completely abandon the sky-splitting sword and Lu Xiaoping and retreat at this time. This way they would not have to worry about the traces of the real spirit Laozu of the Crystal Palace using these two treasures. However, Xiao Baiyu was a pure swordsman. This pure yang flying sword was almost 1/3 of his strength. And this avatar of Lu Xiaoping did not need Lu Ping's divine will to control it, but it also had the strength comparable to a late Dharma adept. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Lu Ping was not willing to abandon it. At this moment Xiao Baiyu suddenly shouted, "Oh no, I've been discovered." With that, the sky-splitting sword spun around, and the body of the sword directly opened up a passage in the void, intending to escape. Unexpectedly, the crystal tower, which had previously appeared clumsy in the process of fighting with the sky-splitting sword and Lu Xiaoping, suddenly appeared above the space passage that the sky-splitting sword had opened. That Yuanjiu Laozu laughed loudly, and the 9th level of the crystal tower shone brightly. A crystal-clear light curtain hung down, and the space passage immediately collapsed. However, the sky-splitting sword did not plunge into the open space passage at this time. Instead, the moment it broke open the space passage, it suddenly turned and disappeared into the void in the opposite direction, leaving only Xiao Baiyu's cold laughter in the void. "Yuanjiu, old man, I know that you are used to taking advantage of the situation. Even if I fall into your trap today, don't even think about taking advantage of me." The crystal tower failed to stop the sky-splitting sword. Xiao Baiyu's seemingly angry words did not cause the slightest fluctuation in Yuanjiu Laozu's mood. Instead, he laughed softly and said, "Still as slippery as before, but this time, you may not be able to escape." With that, the crystal tower turned and flew in another direction. There was still a spatial fluctuation left there, which was the place where Lu Ping's avatar had disappeared. Under the control of the true spirit Laozu, the crystal tower could completely capture the direction in which Lu Xiaoping had left. A moment after the crystal tower chased after the direction in which Lu Xiaoping had left, a cultivator in his 40s with a huge red nose stepped out of the void and appeared in the void where the sky-splitting sword, the crystal tower, and Lu Xiaoping had fought. The cultivator closed his eyes and carefully sensed the spatial fluctuations around him. It did not take long before he found the spatial imprint left behind by the crystal pagoda. The cultivator smiled and took a step forward, disappearing from sight once more. Just before Xiao Baiyu suddenly shouted that he was found by the other true spirit of the Crystal Palace, Laozu, Lu Ping immediately ordered Lu Xiaoping to return, even if it meant exposing his location. At the same time, a thought suddenly emerged in Lu Ping's mind. Could this be a conspiracy by Xiao Baiyu and the Crystal Palace? Although Lu Ping did not hear the conversation between Yuanjiu Laozu and Xiao Baiyu because he had withdrawn Lu Xiaoping in the first place, he rejected this idea as soon as it emerged in Lu Ping's mind. At this time, it was completely impossible for Xiao Baiyu to plot against him, because before he advanced to the true spirit, he still needed to resist the pressure from the Crystal Palace. The surface of the 12 elemental Qin beads, which had just passed through the second lightning tribulation, shone even more brilliantly. The white jade lotus flower array gradually began to disappear from the void under their feet. However, the white jade lotus flower array was still a first tribulation spiritual treasure. Just when Lu Ping had just set up the Genshin formation, Lu Xiaoping had already escaped from the void. Lu Ping withdrew his external incarnation and flew backward, trying to leave this place with the divine sense of space. "Hee, can you still escape?" A mocking voice sounded. The Crystal Palace forcibly broke through the space tunnel and arrived in front of Lu Ping. Then the Crystal Palace shone brightly, and the void was immediately sealed. Lu Ping's divine sense of space instantly lost its effect. However, Lu Ping had never thought that he could escape from the pursuit of a true soul cultivator, Laozu. All he did was to make Spirit Wine Laozu lower his guard. The moment the crystal tower appeared, the densely packed multicolored light emitted from the surface of the 12 Genshin beads intertwined with each other and resonated with the white jade lotus formation below, forming a multicolored space that completely trapped the crystal tower in the formation. Overturn the sky. The void collapsed. Although the crystal tower could suppress the divine sense of space, when the entire void began to collapse, the crystal tower could do nothing. Therefore, the moment the Gentian formation was activated, it cut off the connection between Spirit Wine Laozu and the crystal tower. Hey, it can actually cut off the connection between the old man and his natal spiritual treasure. This is getting more and more interesting. Spirit Wine Laozu, who was shuttling through the void, was startled at first, but then his interest increased. But if you think that you can escape from the old man's pursuit, you are too naive. Lu Ping naturally did not think that he could trap the crystal tower, but what he really wanted was to temporarily escape the crystal tower's pursuit and escape. Therefore, the moment Lu Ping used the Gentian formation to temporarily trap the crystal tower in the space turbulence, he quickly left. However, before Lu Ping could escape far, Spirit Wine Laozu's voice suddenly seemed to appear in Lu Ping's ears. Can you still escape? Lu Ping suddenly stopped and turned to look at the void behind him. There was a turbulence in the void, and a male practitioner in his 40s with a red rosacea nose strolled out. He looked at Lu Ping standing in front of him and asked, "North Sea Water Sword Immortal?" Lu Ping said coldly, "I am not worthy of your excellency's address." Spirit Wine Laozu shook his head and said, "Absolutely worthy. At least when Xiao Baiyu was at your level of cultivation he was still weaker than you and Lu Ping is weaker than him. The only thing that makes the old man regret is that you are not a pure sword cultivator." Spirit Wine Laozu stood still and then looked past Lu Ping to look at the myriad poison sky wall behind him. He smiled and said, "Running away in panic? Unfortunately this time the old man must kill you, because your future might be more glorious than anyone else's. For the sake of the entire cultivation world, the old man has no choice but to eliminate you, who is still in the budding stage." Lu Ping suddenly raised his head and chuckled. "Why do you have to do this? However, if you want to eliminate me you have to see if I agree. My life is up to me, not the heavens. If Senior Spirit Wine wants my life, you need to have the ability to do so." Spirit Wine Laozu secretly cursed. He was about to stop Lu Ping but it was already too late. Lu Ping stretched out his hand and suddenly patted the myriad poison sky wall not far behind him. The myriad poison sky wall behind Lu Ping suddenly revealed a passage that was as tall as a person. Chapter 1478. Xiao Baiyu was on the run. Even though Laozu, a celestial being, was chasing him, Xiao Baiyu did not panic. Instead he remained calm. However, the only thing that puzzled him was that the void was still calm. How was it that Origin Wine had not found Lu Tianping yet? Could it be that Lu Tianping was even more powerful than him? This was impossible. Xiao Baiyu did not believe that Lu Ping had surpassed him in terms of strength. Perhaps he would in the future, but he was definitely not a match for him now. Yes, the reason was because of Origin Wine. That fellow had just become a celestial being, and his cultivation had not stabilized yet. He had delayed until now in order to play it safe. Unknowingly, the sky-splitting sword saint, known as the #1 pure young cultivator in the cultivation world, Xiao Baiyu, had placed Lu Ping on equal footing with him. At this critical moment of life and death, they were even secretly competing to see who could hide from celestial being Laozu for the longest time. Perhaps it was to confirm what Xiao Baiyu had just thought. At this moment, a turbulent wave of spiritual qi suddenly surged from the void hundreds of miles behind him. At that moment, the surrounding void was annihilated, and the violent spatial vibrations directly affected Xiao Baiyu's surroundings. It even caused Xiao Baiyu's restrained aura to leak out for a moment. Not good. Xiao Baiyu was shocked. He calmed down the turbulence in the surrounding void, and the moment he restrained the spiritual qi around him, he used the sky-splitting sword as an escape sword. By combining the escape technique with spatial magic, Xiao Baiyu's speed increased by another level. However, it was all too late. It was that moment of exposure that allowed celestial being Laozu, who had been chasing Xiao Baiyu, to capture his location. The surrounding space seemed to compress. An old man with white hair and a beard seemed to be walking slowly, but every step he took seemed to cross countless spaces. Xiao Baiyu could only feel that the distance between them was rapidly shrinking. "Xiao Baiyu, since you have already received the inheritance of Jiushuan Tower, you already know that you cannot escape from the old man." The old man strolled leisurely behind Xiao Baiyu. He was not in a hurry to stop Xiao Baiyu. Instead he tried to persuade him. Unexpectedly, Xiao Baiyu really stopped in the void, turned around, and cupped his hands towards the Crystal Palace's Laozu. "Senior must be Danju Laozu from the Crystal Palace. Junior Xiao Baiyu being able to compete with Senior today is enough to satisfy me." The old man looked at Xiao Baiyu in amusement. "Do you really think you are a match for the old man?" Do you know the true difference between a celestial being and a pure yang cultivator? Xiao Baiyu smiled. Since Senior has already said that I have received the inheritance of Jiushuan Tower, how could I not know the true difference between a pure yang cultivator and a celestial being? However, it is also because of this that I also know that although Senior has become a celestial being, I am afraid that you do not dare to use your full strength in this world. Otherwise, even if the heavenly punishment does not descend immediately, Senior will not stay here for long. Why should I fear a celestial being Laozu who is only a celestial being but has to use a pure yang technique? In comparison, I am even luckier than the North Sea Water Sword Immortal. Danju Laozu snorted coldly. As the guardian of the Crystal Palace, the old man would rather suffer the heavenly punishment to get rid of a scourge like you. The smile on Xiao Baiyu's face disappeared. He said in a low voice, "Then I can only bet that Senior does not dare to exchange your own safety for this Xiao's life. If Senior insists on taking the heavenly punishment to attack this Xiao, then this Xiao will accept my fate." In the end, Xiao Baiyu suddenly showed a sarcastic expression and said, "Senior, do you really have the courage to perish together with me?" Danju Laozu's expression turned cold. Although the old man cannot stay in this world for too long before the heavenly punishment descends, I at least have the confidence to attack with all my strength. Does fellow Xiao have the confidence to receive it? Danju Laozu's words were actually admitting that he did not dare to perish together with Xiao Baiyu. However, even though Xiao Baiyu had seen descriptions of the true spirit Laozu's full strength in the 9 mystical towers ancient books, he had never seen it for himself. It was absolutely impossible to say that he was not nervous. However, just as Danju Laozu asked this, he saw a trace of fanaticism suddenly appear on Xiao Baiyu's face. This trace of fanaticism was the same as the inexplicable excitement that Lu Ping had when he found out that he was about to encounter the true spirit Laozu. It was a kind of pursuit and desire for the limit. At this moment, the sky splitter under Xiao Baiyu's feet seemed to conform to its master's wishes. The crisp sound of the sword swept across half of the space with endless fighting spirit. Even Danju Laozu slowly withdrew the smile on his face at this moment. His gaze towards Xiao Baiyu was a little more solemn. This kind of fearless mentality that never knows what despair is. The old man has not seen such a mentality since he became a true spirit. It has been a long time. The heavenly poisonous wall was a forbidden place in the cultivation world of the East Sea. According to the legend of the cultivation world, this secret place was formed when Jiao Daoren mistakenly took Taoist Gui's poisonous elixir and forced out his poisonous blood. In order to prevent the toxicity of the heavenly poisonous wall from spreading, Jiao Daoren was seriously injured and set up the heavenly poisonous wall to prevent the spread of the toxicity of the heavenly poisonous wall to the whole cultivation world. However, according to the historical records of the Crystal Palace, the heavenly poisonous wall was a place full of strangeness and danger. Even the founder of the Crystal Palace had vaguely guessed from Taoist whose words that there might be some amazing existence hidden in the heavenly poisonous wall when Taoist who sat down to listen to Taoist whose teachings. However, Laozu, the true spirit of the Crystal Palace, had sent practitioners to try to sneak into the heavenly poisonous wall to investigate, but in the end they either got some treasures of heaven and earth or never came back. Therefore, the heavenly poisonous wall remained mysterious to the gurus of the Crystal Palace. Until 8,000 years ago, a pure yang practitioner of the Crystal Palace could not restrain his curiosity and took the risk to sneak into the heavenly poisonous wall 1 year after he became a true spirit and his cultivation was not stable, trying to reveal the secret of the heavenly poisonous wall to the world. However, what really shocked the Crystal Palace happened. Soon after the pure yang practitioner broke into the heavenly poisonous wall, a huge turbulence of spiritual qi broke out inside, which was obviously caused by a fierce fight. However, before the Crystal Palace could respond and send more people to the rescue, the legendary turbulence of spiritual qi in the secret place suddenly disappeared, and the true spirit cultivator of the Crystal Palace never returned to the Crystal Palace. The soul lamp that represented his life and death in the Crystal Palace also went out. When the battle broke out, the 2 pure yang cultivators from Water Crystal Palace who had first entered the myriad poison firmament wall to receive this patriarch had also disappeared. Their soul lamps had also extinguished, proving that the 2 pure yang cultivators had already perished. If Laozu, who had just become a true spirit, had caused a big movement in the heavenly poisonous wall that almost shocked the entire East Ocean, then the 2 pure yang practitioners were like a drop of water falling into the sea. They could not even make a sound. This also proved that the Crystal Palace Laozu, who had become a true spirit, could not do anything to the mysterious existence in the heavenly poisonous wall. This incident made the Crystal Palace very frightened, and they were on emergency alert for a long time. However, the mysterious existence hidden in the secret place of the fallen site never retaliated against the Crystal Palace. Although the expected retaliation did not come, the Crystal Palace was secretly on alert and in panic for a whole 200 years because the Crystal Palace Laozu, who had just become a true spirit, was preparing to inherit the previous true spirit and continue to be the guardian of the mini-kiliacosm of the Crystal Palace. Because of his sudden death, along with the 2 pure Yang cultivators who had perished, the previous true spirit guardian of the Crystal Palace had no choice but to stay for an additional 100 years. Only then did he decide to head to the northern ice plains and leave this world despite the pleas of the entire Crystal Palace. The true spirit cultivators also had a limited lifespan. After becoming a true spirit, the guardians of the Holy Land had to stay in the mini-kiliacosm, which made it impossible for them to make any progress in their cultivation. They could only waste their lifespan. Therefore, these supreme powerhouses often guarded the Holy Land for 300 to 500 years at most before they left this world to pursue a broader world. The previous true spirit Laozu of the Crystal Palace had to stay for an extra 100 years because of the death of his successor and the possible threat from the Sky Wall of Poison. He had already done his best. If he stayed any longer, what was the point of leaving this world when his lifespan was about to end? However, 100 years could not allow the Crystal Palace to cultivate a new successor, which made the Crystal Palace once faced a situation very similar to the situation before the 9 Mystical Tower was destroyed. Fortunately, the news of the death of the Crystal Palace's true spirit Laozu was not spread out. The cultivation world did not know that the inheritance of the Crystal Palace's true spirit had been broken. Without the support of the true spirit Laozu, the Crystal Palace had always maintained a strong position in Donghai. However, after waiting in fear for 100 years, the Crystal Palace finally welcomed a new true spirit cultivator. The inheritance of the true spirit was continued again, and the glory of the Holy Land was finally maintained. However, although the crisis had passed, the Crystal Palace had always been secretive about the secret fallen site. Every time the Sky Wall of Poison weakened, the Crystal Palace still sent cultivators into it to search for rare treasures and never gave up exploring the secret fallen site covered by the Sky Wall of Poison. However, the cultivators above the pure Yang level who could damage the sect never entered it again. The mysterious existence that the entire Crystal Palace was very afraid of also never appeared again. Originally, Yuanzhou Laozu was a little hesitant about Lu Ping appearing in front of the Sky Wall of Poison, but he still did not hesitate to attack and kill this genius cultivator who had also disturbed the control of the Crystal Palace over the overseas cultivation world like Xiao Baiyu. However, he never thought that Lu Ping would break the Sky Wall of Poison without hesitation and break in. The Sky Wall of Poison was the ancient taboo of the Crystal Palace. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.